Here's what happens when you show videos of, like murdered, broken, German girl bodies being thrown around trucks, being spit on, okay, by Gaza City inhabitants, and you say, hey, do you think this is bad? This is what you guys do. Wait, you gotta understand, well, there's an occupation, and sometimes, the selling people might be, it's not always bad, there's a context behind everything, there's a context behind, that's the issue.
Destiny, this is you little cook. Look at me, baby. Now, let me ask you a question, right? Why does everyone here think they are eligible to say Hamas is a terrorist group? Let me hear that shit. Let me hear that from you guys.
Why are we allowed to say Hamas is a terrorist group?
Yeah.
Because in their original charter, it seemed as though they were advocating for the destruction of Jewish people all across the world.
Okay, well, I actually did hear that. That's okay. I think that is wrong, but that's the only reason why they are But that's the only reason why they are labeled as a terrorist group, because of what they said about the Jews.
Stop! Sorry, wait. No, there's a very niche period in the British Mandate between I think, Aris, you can correct me on this, 1925, 28. Between that period, when Britain tried to set up a national assembly system where there was basically one national assembly would be Arab and the other one would be 50-50 Jewish and Arab. I think the Arabs. Wait, just let me finish a fucking sentence.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 17 of Kick or Keep. Today, we brought together 7 wonderful contestants. They'll be going head-to-head in an elimination-style debate. Did I say elimination? No eliminations this week, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it'll be more of a podcast. We'll let people go back and forth. Just don't fucking talk over each other. That's the only fucking rule, right? But at the end, we're still selecting a winner, right? And chat, that's on you. But with all that being said,
wait, real quick. Wait, so then do we have a timer or no? We just like.
No, I'd still like to time the topic because I don't want us to just stay on one topic for 2 hours and then that's the end of the fucking show. So let's still do the timers. But it's going to be like 25 minutes for all the rounds, pretty much. We're not going to decrease. With all that being said and done, I'm your host, kick.com/Arantos. That's QORANTOS, live right now. Joining me is my co-host, Destiny. You want to say hi?
Hi, what's up? It's Destiny.
Okay, there we go. Before I do the introductions, I want you guys, say a little about yourself and also tell us what your position is. Because I'm curious, right? You lean more towards, being on the Palestinian side or the Israeli side. So, to the right of Destiny, we've got Dylan Burns. Introduce yourself, please.
My name is Dylan Burns. I'm an American political Twitch streamer and I guess you could say amateur war journalist. My positions, I think, for the American political spectrum are definitely more pro-Palestinian, but saying that I'm pro-Palestinian does not mean that I need to align with a lot of the authoritarian nation states like Iran or groups like Hezbollah that back a lot of the militant groups that are fighting into the Gaza Strip right now. There you go.
There we go. Thank you for the intro. To the right of Dylan Burns and above me, a repeat contestant, the one and only, ladies and gentlemen, Fabian. Did I get it right this time? Fabian. There we go. Fabian Liberty Scott. There we go. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Scott from Fabian Liberty. You can find me on YouTube and Rumble. I'm an anarcho-capitalist, which is basically like the most extreme form of libertarian. So I find myself in a very weird position because I hate all nation states, so fuck the state of Israel. And yet, what I mostly find is an old trope of Marxist organizations supporting an oppressed class of other socialists, spewing a bunch of communist propaganda and bullshit history, and very little people actually understand the conflict. They just kind of understand that pre-programmed oppressed oppressor narrative. And so despite the fact that, I'm very critical of Israel, and then I think there are a lot of things we should be doing to try and stop them and better things, I find myself more often than not trying to combat socialist agitprop, misinformation, and just all around bad takes that you should always expect from anybody that labels themselves a socialist or anything further left.
Okay, there we go. Thank you for the introduction. To the bottom of Destiny and to the left of Prime, we'll get to you. Crowd favorite, Loader Box. Introduce yourself, my man.
Hey, I'm Lonerbox. I generally lean more towards the Palestinian side, although I do believe Israelis have a right to live where they live now and live there in peace. I think for Palestinians, I think the question is fundamentally, it's not about who has an innate right to what land or tracing back some arbitrary point in history. To me, it's a question of human rights. I think Palestinians have a right to self-determination, to civil liberties. I think refugees have a right either to return or to reparations or restitution. I think they are owed a lot of reconciliation. How we get from here to there, I don't know. I guess we'll figure out in the panel.
There we go. Thank you for the introduction. To the right of Loaderbox and below Dylan Burns, we've got Prime. Canes? Which one is it?
Whatever you like.
Okay, there you
Thanks for having me here. I hope you all can hear me well. Just take a moment to thank my fellow contestants. Hey, Scott. Loner Box, haven't seen you in a while. Tom, I love you. I miss you. SDL, what's up? And nice to meet you, Quibble. And thank you for inviting me so much. So my name is Prime Kai, PrimeCays. You can find me on Twitch and YouTube. And simply put, my position is free Palestine from the river to the sea. Thank you.
My man. Oh, wait. Below Loner and diagonal to Prime, we've got Ted Kiz. So my bad. Quibbles over coffee. Go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Cool. I'm Quibbles over coffee. I'm broadly pro-Israel. I'm not sure if the question was in reference to what America should do or what Israel should do. In terms of what America should do, we should continue to fund the Iron Dome. We should probably try to, I can list a bunch of different things, but I don't want to do that now. And then in terms of what Israel should do, I think they're going to have to do, unfortunately, an occupation of the Gaza Strip.
All right, there we go. Thank you for the introduction. To our penultimate contestant, to the right of Quibbles, we've got SDL. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Mom.
Hey everyone, I'm Aiden. I run the channel Sucked on Left, and yeah, I'm pretty pro-Palestinian. I think the root cause of the violence here is the occupation. You don't have to support Hamas to say that. The only way that you're going to see a long-term end to this is an end to the occupation. There's a reason that though Israel has bombed Gaza 5 odd times in the past 2 decades, shit hasn't worked. The vast majority of those deaths, something like 80%, are not even military-aged men, much less militants, but not even military-aged men. I think this is pretty close to ethnic cleansing. Just one last stat before I go. 1.4 million people have been displaced here. We bombed Serbia for displacing 200,000.
Thank you for that introduction. Last but not least, Tom motherfucking Flu. Bro, why can't I read? Foolery. There we go. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Tom. I go by Tom Fuller Show on YouTube and Kick. I don't know that I'm pro one side over the other. Definitely out of all the people here, I'm probably the least educated on this topic, but I'm arrogant enough to show up for a panel anyways. And so I'm here to solve this crisis with you fine people.
Thank you for the introduction. With that, ladies and gentlemen, let's get on with the motherfucking show. So, question number 1. And by the way, let's see. Listen, if you feel the inclination to jump in, you could jump in. You know what I mean?
Fuck it. Okay.
It's long form. You know what I mean? It's long form.
Is it? Yeah.
We don't mind it this episode. Okay. So, following the October 7th attack and the subsequent counterattack by Israel, can violence or armed resistance ever be justified as a means of achieving political goals for either side in this ongoing conflict? Let me start with you, Loner. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I think Palestinians have a right to use some degree of violence. It's a fucking military occupation. I don't think that means that you're okay to go and kill civilians in a festival in the middle of a field. I much prefer the kind of like Mandela ANC style of going for like sabotage of infrastructure rather than targeting people, because then you don't have to deal with the problem of having to spend like 100 years reconciling for all the pain and death that you've caused, like trying to end the occupation. Israelis, I think they have a right to go after Hamas. I don't know what proportionality looks like exactly, but yeah, they have some right to do something. They can't just sit there and take it.
All right, Fabian, go ahead. And by the way, feel free to fucking cut each other off if somebody says something you
Okay.
disagree with, right? Like this
Tom, we
ain't
can
one
hear
of
you
those, you know.
typing. Tom, we can hear you typing, just so you know.
Yeah, it's true. Just
Thank
mute
you.
when you're typing, please. All right, Fabian, go ahead.
Yeah, so I largely agree, right? I think justified is a question of is a different question of then what should someone do, and I think we should maybe like separate those two things, right? Like I agree that like attacking infrastructure, government installations, government employees is something that Hamas, maybe not Hamas, because Hamas has kind of like lost most of their their rights, justifiably so. But Palestinian organizations that haven't committed terrorist attacks have that right. But it's not a good tactic, right? Like it's a really bad idea. It's not going to help anybody. And if you're a consequentialist in your framework, we can still hear someone else typing. If you're a consequentialist in your framework, then you kind of have to look at that and go, okay, well, if it's only going to cause more problems for everybody, then you would probably have to say that it's unjustified. So anybody that's saying that it is justified, it's very interesting because I would then question what their moral framework is, because they're kind of proving to not be a utilitarian or consequentialist, and so I'm wondering where they're getting that justification from. But yeah.
So
I'm just curious, is there anyone on the panel who thinks that it's a good idea or justifiable to attack civilians?
it depends on who you define as civilians. This part's very important.
Just
right?
regular,
Like,
normal Israelis, people living on a kibbutz.
again, you have to define what that means, because we can understand that the settlers are armed, the settlers are attacking and clearing out villages themselves, right? And someone can call them a civilian, but they are not. So they are active participants in this violence. And so if the
So you're saying,
Palestinians were, if the I'm going to answer your question. If the Palestinians were to attack those settlers, armed settlers who shoot, kill, rape, murder these individuals, yes, it's perfectly justified to fight back.
so I just want to be clear. Are you saying, when you say civilian, when you say settlers, are you saying solely the people in the West Bank? Are you saying people in the West Bank also Israel proper? Are you saying West Bank, Golan Heights? What are you saying?
That's like I said. This is a good question, because as you're properly pointing out, not all settlers have equal like access to Palestinians, and not all settlers are even armed. Like this is a spectrum. So I'm not exactly sure where that line is, but certainly the ones who are actively
Well, it's a relevant line. You should have an
armed.
answer to the question of where the line
No,
is, right? You're
no,
saying,
no, sorry. I'm not going to pigeonhole. I understand a spectrum of violence that's being done here. Some people are doing it more
right, but I'm
passively.
asking whether or not
Others
you're
more
willing to
active.
condemn the
Hold on,
murder
hold
of
on, hold on,
children.
hold on, hold on. I'll answer your question. Excuse me. So I can
Okay.
understand that there's a difference between these two. Now, if you're asking me exactly where is the line, no, I don't know exactly where the line is, but there are active militants, settler militants, and they certainly are justified targets.
Yeah, but that's not to
Can
do
I,
with
let
them
me
being
ask you a
settlers.
clarifying-
That's to do with them
stop,
being.
stop, stop, stop. Wait,
Hold on.
hold on. Let me ask a clarifying question. Okay, just okay. So for the purposes of this conversation, I think all of us can agree that when somebody says civilians, I think all of us agree that we're talking about citizens of Israel that are not engaged in direct military or violent confrontation. So for instance, I would be shocked if anybody in here was opposed to Palestinians in the West Bank enacting violence on aggressive settlers using firearms to clear out camps. I think everybody in here would probably say there are justifications for that type of counterattack. I think I think the point of the question was to get more to, like, for instance, the people that were partying at the festival, would these types of settlers be okay to enact violence
not
against
settlers.
on behalf of the Palestinians?
Stephen, you're incorrect. Those weren't settlers. Those were people in Israel proper.
What?
Those people were in Israel proper. They weren't in Gaza.
I'm sorry. I understand what you're saying.
You're fine.
There are some people, a lot
There are people in the West Bank. That's
Right,
certainly
hold on.
true.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. One sec. Just to be clear, there are some people that would consider all Israeli citizens settlers. So that's what I'm saying. Like the wording that we use. Yeah, I'm just saying civilians that aren't engaged in direct military occupation. Because when people say violence is okay against settlers, there are a lot of people that consider every Israeli citizen a settler. So that's what I'm trying to clarify. Right.
Yeah,
so
fair. I think.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for coming
I
in
appreciate
and
that.
having to give definitions, because leftists want to subvert things.
I want to ask you.
There's a
I want to
second
ask you, Prime. When it
component
comes to definitions of settlers, I mean, you said so when you say settlers, you always qualified it with settlers who are engaging in violence and attacking Palestinians. Well, that doesn't matter matter if they're a settler or not. Like even if a civilian does that, you're okay to defend yourself against them.
You're no longer a
So
civilian.
I know legally, just being a settler, like a non-violent settler, makes you a civilian. You're a civilian if you're a settler in the West Bank. That's like international law. Do you agree with that, or do you think the settlers, like, it doesn't matter if they're attacking Palestinians or not, just them being there makes them fair game for attack? What do you think?
Yeah, it's a tough question. I think overall, uh, I think that being part of the settlement movement is a violence being done to the Palestinian people, right? Like you are justifying and participating in the system
Just as a
that
real
has.
quick clarifying question, I'm sorry. Just when you say settler movement, do you mean only people in the West Bank, or do you mean all Israelis?
I guess right now I'll just talk about the West Bank. I'm more familiar with that rather than like what's happening in Israel proper. So I'll just speak to that. So you are uh, like actively participating in that, and I don't want to whitewash that, but I don't know how we can just like as outside observers say it's okay to shoot like some kid who happens to have grown up in a settlement. I don't see how that can be a proper target.
You kind of showed your own contradiction, though.
Wow.
Well, like you're saying there's a line that you can't define of where someone stops being a civilian, and then you said, but if they're participating in the settler movement, well, they're not. So like what is it? Is it a person that goes to homestead property in an area and chooses to build a home, right? Are they no longer a civilian because they're an adult participating in the settler movement, or is it, or do they have to be someone that is actively armed? Like you kind of can't have your cake and eat it too, and kind of like
I'm
wink,
not
wink,
trying
nudge,
to.
nudge. Violence is okay against all of those
Hold on,
people,
I
but
literally
then be
hold on.
like, but totally not
What did
okay.
I just say? I made it very specific here. I said that like I don't see how we can justify a person who is simply there, not actually doing active violence, right? Like or sorry, shooting someone, right? Because to be clear, right?
Right.
Like who isn't
Like I said, you
actively
contradicted
attacking
yourself
an
because you also
individual,
said
right?
being in
Yeah,
a
sure,
settler.
whatever. Yeah, sure. But anyway, I said that those individuals who aren't doing that, like I don't know how we can justify attacking them, right? So that would be problematic.
What do you mean by
Um,
I don't know how we can justify it? It almost seems like you wish that you could find a way to justify attacking these people, but that you can't actually
He just said
logically
he
say
wasn't
it.
going to
Like,
justify
do you
it.
just
Well,
mean it's
well,
He didn't
unjustified?
justify it. He's
all I'm
saying he's not
doing,
justifying it.
nice, yeah. So all I'm doing is understanding that there's that we as observers want to look to see who is the good
Mhm.
guy and who is the bad guy. We want to establish lines and draw
Mm.
and draw them in the sand. I understand that these things aren't true in conflict zones. That there are injustices that happen all the time to various degrees. Some of them might require an armed response, right? And others, it, I, I don't know, especially for the Palestinians. I don't know what they can do, but that an armed response wouldn't be necessary or justified. Simple as that.
Okay, you also said that
I mean, it's
just
as simple
being
as
in the
that, but can
West
you
Bank.
just say it would be unjustified to attack people that have not attacked anyone else, that have simply been a quote part of the settler movement and have built homes there?
I'm sorry.
That would be unjustified to attack those people. Can you just say it is completely unjustified to attack people who have done nothing other than protect their homes, armed people that have protected their homes, but have not actively gone out and attacked any Palestinian people that have just moved into that area? Is it unjustified to attack them?
What does protected their homes mean, right? So if a Palestinian
Yeah, see,
comes
this is
back to
exactly what I'm talking about. Is that like
yeah,
you can't
I'm
just
sorry, things are
unequivocally
more
say it
complicated.
would be wrong to do that?
You won't put
No, it's
me
not
in a black and
complicated.
white line.
You can't
simply
kill
won't do
peaceful
that.
people.
It won't happen to me. I get you, Scott. I have
Yeah,
experience
you
with how
won't
you
go in a
operate.
box.
But that
Okay,
won't
wait,
work
real
on
quick,
me.
hold on,
Right.
wait. Okay, hold on. Okay,
Right,
hold on.
so you
Just
won't see it's wrong.
okay. Wait, hold on. So just as a quick thing, okay? The steelman argument for Prime Kai's position is, let's say that you're a bunch of Arabs, you live in an area, IDF forces come in, gun you down, kill everybody, blow your shit up, and then other settlers, under the protection of the IDF soldiers that murdered or cleansed all of the ethnic Arabs that live there, now they build properties and homes and they live there, and then the IDF pulls back.
Mhm.
Are the people that are now building houses on the bodies of your dead family members, are they enacting any form of violence, or are they safe despite the fact that they were put there with violence? That's like the steelman version of Prime Kai's argument.
Yeah, so I mean, if we take that, like, I would be all for. I would love if people took a libertarian position of understanding property rights and actually went in at an individual basis and said that certain individuals had their homes stolen and that it's stolen land, and that the first thing you do is say, "Hey, look, I have the deed to this home. Please move off of this land. This is legally mine, and you have no right to be here." And then we escalated until a form where eventually we had to go to violence because they refused to move. Yeah, I would love that if that was the case, but I know that that's not the steelman position because that would require prime guys to be a
Yeah, can we have a
libertarian.
clarification of
That can't be
where
the steelman position.
specifically-
That would be mine.
Wait, hold on. That is literally the steelman position. Is that there might be quote unquote
No, it would-
civilian settlements in the West
can't
Bank,
be.
but those are put there on
Right.
the auspice of IDF violence, right? That's the whole point.
So, Stephen, where would that be?
Right, and the solution to that would be
What
individual
specific location
property
are you talking
rights,
about?
right? Like I'm all
What
for
I'm
that.
talking about the expansion of settlements in the West Bank.
Right. What specific expansion? What specific settlement?
I
like
don't know
40.
the name of the specific settlement, but the territory of the West Bank wasn't within the original Israeli borders defined after the
Right,
war
so
of
are you saying-
1948.
are
So
you saying that
technically
the existence-
every single Israeli settlement, all of them, literally every single one. The only reason why that territory exists is because Israel has drawn armistice lines over it after a prior war, right? The 6-Day War.
So are you saying the influx of Jews, or are you saying the Area C as a concept? Right, like the Area C, as in like it is controlled both militarily and civilly by the Israeli government, is a separate question than whether or not there's an influx of Jewish people. So which one
I'm
of those?
saying
are you
that
discussing?
every single Jewish settlement in the West Bank is.
But when you say
arguably-
settlement there, like my point is, like, there's a difference between, like, if people purchase land, this is Fabian's point, people purchase land gainfully, rightfully from people, from Palestinians, and then they purchase that land and then they live on that land. Like, what's the problem there as a Jewish person? Like, why is it
That's-
different for a Jew to do that
because
than for a Muslim to do it?
Because you're making an assumption that I think maybe is, again, another part of this socialist agitprop and murky waters that so many people have to dig through in order to understand what actually happened, is that yes, you are definitely describing the way some settlements have been established. Also, other settlements have been established by people like kind of cheekily, peacefully moving in and then causing problems, and then they waiting for the Palestinians to attack, and then wiping out that section, and then being like, "Oh, all this new land is up for grabs," right? And then there are other sections where individuals have gone to Palestinians, purchased land, and then moved in and lived in that land. And there's no stolen land involved in this process whatsoever, unless you believe that a Jew existing on the land taints the land itself.
Yeah, but I think Prime is
Yeah, I
saying
mean,
that he doesn't
let's be-
believe in violence against these people unless they're actively involved in violence themselves, not just by being on the land in and of itself.
Right,
Because if you said that, then
I
you'd
would
have
assume
Israel
that as
is
well.
doing that as
And
well.
then I
Yeah,
was
that's
like,
not
"Hey,
quite
can you
true.
say that?" And then he wouldn't.
Fabian, that's not quite true, because
Right.
there are examples where it actually has been stolen land. So the most famous example, the most recent one, was in 2017. It was in Mona, right? So that was an example of land that was just literally taken.
I said there are
by a bunch
examples
of
that there
Jews,
are
and they
that
just
that
started
aren't
squatting.
right. Like
Right,
you
and
could
to be
go
clear,
all the
like,
way you could go
Israel,
all
the
the way back.
government,
You could go all the way
stopped that.
back to like the British Mandate and say, and like, and if you really looked, enough historically, and there were documents, right? Like the Britain controlled areas, that had been left from the Ottoman Empire. I'm sure there's tons of land there that has been stolen from somebody or was public unused land. It everything
Yeah, but
ultimately,
I'm saying
if you want to be properly
there
ethical, has
are
to go by a
cases.
case basis.
Yeah, so
There's a
like
difference
Scott,
between my point is there's a difference between an outpost and an actual settlement. A settlement is a place that there are like genuine property rights of the people there. An outpost does not. So there are outposts that exist. Again, Mona's
Okay,
most
okay.
Well, just to be
recent
clear,
example.
those
You're getting
property
into
rights,
linguistic
those property
territory for
rights
no
are
reason.
devolved under military occupation, though. That's why they're not
Exactly.
recognized
Sorry?
internationally. That's why they're illegal. They're illegal to Israel, but they're illegal to everyone else.
Okay.
I think as a quick so just as a real quick
Your
thing,
whole thing is proper.
Buying-
Anarchist. I don't give a fuck about
buying-
Israel or anybody else's.
buying land and territory, right, is not necessarily a bad thing. Buying land and territory that you have like an unrecognized military occupation over is quite a bit different, especially when you're buying land from people that everybody agrees you've ethnically cleansed already from their homes and territory.
Scott, like
Everybody
sorry,
agrees you've
Scott, I just
ethnically
wanna-
cleansed.
Scott,
Like,
I just
come
want to like try to address your point directly. What I was trying to say, when you asked me that question, right? Like, will you sign on to this statement? I wanted to show just how difficult it is just to just make any sort of blanket statement. So when you said, because before you said like an Israeli who is defending their home, right? Is that person different from a person who goes out and attacks Palestinians in another village? Well, if what I was trying to say is if a Palestinian comes back to that home and says, "Hey, this is my place," and that person, the Israeli, pulls out a gun on them, and then the Palestinian escalates, like, is that justified? So I was just trying to like
Okay, hold on.
complicate the
Let me
situation.
let me
But
let me
I
be as fair
understand
as I can
perfectly
to
what
you.
you're saying, and in
Let me be
fact,
as fair
and in
as I
fact,
possibly can.
I'm
I just don't.
I and in fact, I'm signing on more to what you're like the homesteading libertarian view of this, right? So like I'm trying to like build a bridge here. Go ahead.
Right. If I can be as fair as I possibly can, right? Will you sign on to this statement? A person purchases property from a Palestinian, has a deed that shows that they purchased property from a Palestinian to move into an area for whatever reason that they desire because they like that. Maybe they just fucking love Palestinian people, right? Maybe they're just fucking, some super hardcore Tel Aviv lefty that just, lives in solidarity with the Palestinians, right? And wants to live amongst them. And they purchase land, right? And then they live in their home and they have firearms and they've never used those firearms unless someone came in to raid their home they gainfully purchased. Is it wrong to commit violence against those people? Is it unjustified in that specific example?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we have at
And
least
that includes in
some
the case
area
of,
where there's some people in the West Bank that it is unjustified to attack by your
Absolutely,
definition,
yes.
which means that a blanket attack on quote unquote settlers in the West Bank is not justified.
Absolutely.
It needs to
Do you
be
think that
looked
those
at
people have done
individually.
something
We need to
wrong?
look at property disputes.
Do you think that those Jews have done something wrong, Prime?
Which Jews?
The Jews who are purchasing that land.
From a
You mean
Palestinian,
the
as
Jews?
you just laid it out. From a Palestinian, certainly not. I mean, if a Palestinian wants to sell their land, then yes. I mean,
Okay,
assuming
so
it's like
if
up to
in
market
Area
price and
C,
not at
so,
gunpoint, yeah.
so I just want to clarify: if in Area C, a Jew wants to purchase land, and they are a citizen of Israel, you are okay with them purchasing that land?
Yeah, if they got if they
Okay.
can get it, if they're not, if like it's a fair deal, obviously, right? If there's like pressure on this Palestinian to sell, like the IDF is saying we're going to clear this place out, and then some Jewish settler comes in and says, "Oh, I'll give you some money for this," right? In that case, it's not so much. But if it's just a regular
and that would be a
between
case by case.
individuals,
Absent
yes.
coercion.
Absent
Absent coercion,
coercion.
but like absent coercion. But there's always going to be like some limited level of coercion.
I just want to clarify what we're talking about. We're talking about Jewish people purchasing territory with no coercion from a group of people under indefinite military occupation. Just to be clear, that's what you're saying.
This is the problem I have with
In
this,
Area
though,
C,
is that
correct.
it's kind of impossible to remove the coercion from the element when there's IDF soldiers on the beat, when the Palestinians in occupied territory are going to be treated by a separate set of laws than Israeli citizens, and they're going to be treated differently from the government than Israeli citizens. I think that state of conditions in and of itself is coercive to the Palestinians to make them want to leave and go to maybe to the diaspora overseas if their families living in France or in Germany or the United States.
To speak to that briefly,
Yeah,
I think
but
the
so-
rate of
Are
approval
there
for
any-
building, on Palestinian property is something like 2%. Like Israel overwhelmingly denies the ability of Palestinians to build their own shit on their own land because they don't want more Palestinians there. But like
Where are you
it's so
talking
obvious. In
Where?
the West Bank, they don't have control over
I
Gaza.
believe that number. I believe that statistics on Jerusalem. If you're talking about Jerusalem, that's certainly that. I mean, I don't remember the exact statistics off the top of my head, but that wouldn't shock me in Jerusalem. But that's a very different conversation than West Bank writ large. There's
My
lots of stuff
understanding
that's
is
happening in
that-
Ramallah, for example, right?
Do you think like
My understanding is that for the West Bank, any sort of construction has to be done under the approval of the Israeli military because it's a military, they're the controlling government of that area, right? Not just in East Jerusalem, but in literally all parts of the West Bank. No?
Not in all of it. In Area C, that's true. In Area B, it is militarily controlled by Israel. It's not civilly controlled. So there are certain cases in Area B in which that would be the case. In Area A, that it was not true at all. So in most of the cities, which the majority of people live in West Bank, that is not the case.
All right. Does anybody else has anything to say before we move on to the next question? Any last takes?
I just want to remind everybody that in the beginning I said that Palestinians can bomb Israeli government buildings. Just in case anyone accuses me of being too pro-state of Israel.
Just
I
to
think
just to
in
read,
that specific example. Yeah.
just to read the permitting thing, it's 2% of Area C, so the area under Israeli control. But so, like, again, that's the sort of example of the coercion here, that if Area C expands and if Palestinians can't build there, then the amount of area that they get to control gets smaller and smaller and smaller. There's clearly a structural violence going on here that doesn't justify violence against individuals, but maybe does justify violence against the structures. So
I'm curious, do you have the numbers
mean by
for
violence
the
against the
Israeli
structures there?
approval process?
Isn't it like 94%? I feel like I've seen these numbers before. It's very, very, very high on the Israeli side.
Yeah,
like
like, can you
exact
like
inverse.
send?
I also think it'd be
where you're
worth
getting the area.
I think it'd be worth
I
knowing
was
as
gonna
well,
ask, okay,
what percentage? Sorry, what percentage of settlers, like settler land, is actually just Jews purchasing the land from Palestinians who own the land? Because I thought wasn't quite a lot of this land that was devolved to settlements actually unregistered land that was obviously taken under Israel during the occupation. Do you know?
I mean, like most
I don't know
of
the-
Israel,
I don't
well,
know.
most of current day Israel, Palestine, Assyria, Palestine, whatever you want, was just unused land. Like most of it is public land that no one's been living on.
That's what I thought.
Like
there's a lot of
there's a large portion of Israel that is unairable until people come there and build infrastructure, or there are swamps, or there is desert, right? And specifically in the West Bank, yes, the land is a little bit better, but it's still, I mean, like when you look at the best maps available in terms of like as the Zionist movement come in and with each process, there's still tons of public domain land that nobody's living on. And then people go and live on it.
But that's why when we're talking this argument about Jews buying up land from Palestinians individually, like maybe even under occupation, maybe you can make an argument for that. But I feel like in most cases, it's settlers who are taking this land because that land was taken by Israel in 1967, and that's where the majority of it comes from. And I'd say that so the majority of cases, that's why settler presence would be unethical, right?
Yeah. So what's your view on what should happen on that land?
Either land swapped because those people are not going to want to live in a Palestinian state, or you withdraw. Probably I'd withdraw the outposts.
No, I'm saying
100%. But
I'm saying prior to the settlements, like prior to Jews moving in there,
well, I think it would have been
happened to that land.
So in 67.
Yeah.
Well, I think initially it wasn't even.
Maybe
Wait,
66.
Jesus Christ! I think even initially it wasn't even legal by Israeli standards for them. They just went there of their own accord. They just wandered in there themselves and kind of did it independently. So I think if Israel maybe just kind of enforced some rules there and said, "Wait, this isn't actually like going to be ours forever."
Why is it on Israel to do?
Because they're occupying the territory.
Okay, so it's Israel's job to forcibly remove any Jews who want to go into the area.
To occupy territory, if they want to like a path to statehood for their neighbors, then yeah. Unless they just want to have the situation we have now, which is you expand settlements for like 50, 60 years.
Okay, so it is your stance that in order for Palestine to be a separate country, it has to be an ethno-state with no Jews.
I don't say it needs to be an ethno-state. First of all, okay, wait. Do you think these settlers would want to live in a Palestinian state?
Well, I'm asking. Like these are.
I'm not
not
saying it
Israelis
needs
at
to
this
be an
point.
ethno-state. I'm saying
Jews.
I'm not. It's not about the. It's not about. They could be the same ethnicity. It's that you're settling in occupied territory, where the people who live there don't have self-determination. They have no say over.
You wouldn't make the same. You wouldn't make the same claim about all of the Palestinians who post Nakba were leaving Israel proper and going into the West Bank. So I'm curious, what's the difference there between Jews moving into the West Bank and Palestinians moving into the West Bank?
Because one group moved there as refugees, the other one moved there as settlers.
So is your claim that the Jews in the 1940s and 1950s and 1960s were not refugees?
The ones in 67, the ones who moved into the West Bank, I don't think they were refugees, no.
I'm asking prior to that, like at the beginning of the founding of Israel.
You can ask me a completely different question if you want. No, yeah, I think the Mizrahi and North African Jews were refugees, but that's a completely different question.
Okay.
Well, and even refugees don't have the right to. Even refugees don't have the right to go and like take other people's lands. Like that's
you don't have a right to say. Yeah, I don't know if
refugees.
yeah, like this is
talking
again
about taking other people's land.
So refugees, I would imagine you have a right to be a citizen in Israel because that's like a country that that wants to take Jewish people. So
Why would it be? Why is it such a crazy idea? The idea that an occupying state, while occupying territory, should stop its own citizens or its own people from going there and settling on the territory of the displaced.
Yeah, my point
If
is, I don't like this
during World War
idea.
II, we had the standard in Germany, and we just started having random like American nationalist colonies all across Germany, we would expect the American government to expel them.
Or
The
when we
point I'm trying to make
occupied
is I don't
Iraq
like
and
the idea
Afghanistan, would it have
that
been okay for
Jews-
me to just go in there and like set up a fucking little
The point,
tent? And
the point that I'm trying to make is that I don't
Obviously
like this
not.
idea that Jews are by definition Israeli. That's a bad idea, right?
No one's making that
There are
argument.
just Jews.
They should stop
that-
Palestinian.
No, you kind of
they-
are.
They,
but you're
they
making
should
this-
stop
you're making this
Palestinian
case that-
Arabs who want to
you're
go
making
be
this
settlers
case-
too.
You're
Like, it
trying to
doesn't-
make it.
you're
You're trying to
making
make
this
it.
case-
No, you're trying to make it an ethnicity argument. I'm saying I can apply this to anywhere. In occupied fucking
point is
Afghanistan
that
or
you
Iraq,
wouldn't
it wouldn't
make
have been
the
okay
claim.
for me to go there and just set up house under that regime.
The
Because
point is that you
same thing with
you seem
with
to have no problem.
West Bank.
You seem to have no problem with an influx of Palestinians into this area, whether it's in 48, whether it's in 67. But you seem to have a very large problem with
Because
the
they
idea
were
of an influx
forced
of
there.
I
Jews.
seem to have no problem
That's the
with
difference.
delineating the difference between settlers and refugees. Yeah, I don't have much of a problem making that separation. No.
Okay,
I have a
point is,
question.
you are-
I have a question. Quibbles. I have
go
a
for it.
question. Just, you know, there seems to be. I'm trying to understand. Is it an anti-Semitic thing? And I'm not accusing anybody here of anti-Semitism. Just more kind of like a broad cultural thing. Is it an anti-Semitic thing, or is it a timeline thing? Like a certain distance in terms of time? Because like the way that I see it is like I agree, right? Like individual property that was owned, that in 48 you had fleeing Palestinian Arabs, if they can prove or show in any capacity that like they owned this portion of land and that it wasn't just unused land, that it's their land, not the settlers that came afterwards land. But it seems to be that there's like this weird thing where Israel is held to this like super libertarian property idea perspective that like no other country is held to. Because like, as far as I'm concerned, by this logic, and I agree, most of you probably won't, all of northern Georgia, every white motherfucker that lives there needs to get off of their land right now, because then the Cherokee Nation in 1850 that was forced to walk the Trail of Tears, they homesteaded land, they had a post office, they had property deeds, they did everything they could to prove that that is their land. And so like, you don't, like, if you live in northern Georgia,
Okay,
you're not
I
just
gotta
on
stop
stolen
you
land.
here.
Like,
Yeah,
you
the
stolen
answer is no.
You know
I
that
don't
every
think that-
lefty on here is pro
I don't think-
reparations. I
the answer-
guarantee it, right? Like,
The answer is
like
no, I
Prime
don't
Kai,
think-
Prime Kai or
The
Loner
question
Box,
is
do you oppose
for me.
reparations?
The question
I
is
know.
for me.
Reparations is a
He's
totally
asking the
separate
question
issue.
to you because you're going to agree with him, right? And we're stepping in to
No, I'm
disagree.
not going to agree
So
with
do
him.
either the
I'm not
lefties?
going to agree with him.
Oh
Dr.
my
Left, I am not going to agree with him. The answer to the question is no, it is not anti-Semitic for people to be concerned about the Palestinian right to lands, even post 48, even post 67. There is a very real concern that there was a large number of people who have been forced out during the Nakba. There is a very real concern that yes, Palestinians have a right to live in this area. What I contend with is I think this idea that Jews don't have a right to live in the West Bank, which is a very important component of our historic lands. I think that is a crazy idea, and I think that it is just as absurd to say it about Jews as it is to say it about Palestinians.
Okay, first
But
of
in
all,
both
no,
ways-
Not to be
first of all,
a
no one gives a
dick, not to be a
fuck
dick,
about what's
but
your
Stockton
important
left-
historical land. But
Stockton
also,
left
sorry,
was actually answering my question. Like Stockton left was actually answering my question, and you just latched onto the anti-Semitic remark. Like, is there any way Stockton left could finish? Because like, I think
Well, sure.
reparations are something different.
I mean, Quibbles,
It sounds
if
like
you were-
Lonerbox was gonna give the same answer, that historical land, whatever, is not the important thing here. Like, Israel is unique in part because what other countries are doing settlement like Israel? Part of the reason that we talk about it this way is it's so rare nowadays. A lot of settlements like this died in 1960 during decolonization, but Israel's didn't. Israel's has been going on for another 50, 60 years. That's why we only talk about Israel in that sense. People did talk about stuff like this, about like French colonies and British colonies in random far off countries where they set up their own little tiny ethno state of British only or French only, and they get to run the whole country from there. Yeah, like that. And I just like as a final
Also,
sentence,
Obviously, that's
wait,
substantively
wait,
different
hold on.
than French colonialism.
Well, hold on. Just as a quick thing I'd like to throw in here too. I also think it's okay, we can meaningfully talk differently about the Palestinian peoples, because while the rules of the world might have been like conquest and conquer and take the territory, in I think it's 1945, like the UN has an official charter that a whole bunch of countries around the world signed on to that actually like explicitly gave people the right to self-determination, for people to live on land and to exist there in a way that like the Cherokees or Native people in North America didn't. So I think it's worth speaking in a world where all of us try to abide roughly by international law. The UN Charter explicitly, in Chapter 1, Article 1, whatever, like explicitly states for people to have a right to a self-determination as people in a land. So that would make it a little bit different than like North American stuff.
All right, hold
Yeah,
on,
but it
hold on.
sounds like
Wait, Tom, hold on. I want to shift gears slightly. Okay, we've been on this topic for a bit. On the same like sort of topic, I want to ask you guys this, right? Do you believe in a two-state solution? If yes, what are the rightful borders between Israel and Palestine? Quibbles, I want to start with you.
Okay, I want a clarification. When you say believe in, do you mean I want it, or does that mean like I believe it's
As in,
possible?
I wouldn't say want it.
Whatever
as in,
you
but,
want
like,
it
do you
to be.
think? Do you think? No. Do you think that would be the best solution if there would be two states?
I think the
Yeah,
best
those guys are
solution
dumb
to
cunt.
try to get to in the period of the next 40 years is eventually to have Gaza be an independent country, have much of the West Bank, but not all of the West Bank, be an independent country, and have particularly the areas that are closest to the border of the settlements folded into Israel proper, and have that be a third country.
Okay.
But I think it's going to happen tomorrow, and I think that it's going to take a lot of struggle, and I think it's going to require that there's an occupation of Gaza for a long time to get there, and I think it's going to require that, unfortunately, many hundreds of thousands of people are going to die. I think it's going to be screwed for a really long time.
So when you say the settlements should become part of Israel proper, I guess that would also mean the West Bank would be kind of disconnected, right? Because those settlements run in between Palestinian communities.
That's why I clarified.
Yeah, so thank you for just explaining why people are against settlements for reasons that are not anti-Semitism and ethnostates. Cool, that's fine.
That's why I clarified. I was talking about the ones that are specifically on the border, right? There's the overwhelming majority of settlers are within a mile of the border. Something like 90% are literally within a mile of the border. So those settlements that are very close to the border, that are there primarily for fiscal reasons, I would put them in a separate category than the ones that are there primarily for religious reasons, which are much further inland.
I don't know. So even in Camp David, the settlements then running between communities were prevalent enough that it would have kind of disconnected the West Bank. So I can't imagine a settlement now would not include that, though, unless you wanted to dismantle some of them.
The answer is that there's going to be some number of Jews that are folded into that Palestinian West Bank, and there's going to be some number of Palestinian non-Jews that are folded into Israel proper as a result of this. This is going to be complicated. There's a reason it's going to take 40 years to get to it, but I do think that that's the closest to a reasonable solution that I can think of. And again, it is not happening tomorrow, and again, it's going to be incredibly bloody to get to it.
So I would say two things. The first, the only ethical solution that doesn't violate anyone's rights is that the state of Israel, the nation state of Israel, dissolves, and that private property rights and anarchism is given to everybody. But kumbaya, la la land, fucking utopia shit, right? So I would say that a proper, a better situation tactically towards reestablishing property rights would have to be a two-state solution, much like was offered. I would say 67 borders is probably the closest we'll get. I'm going to just disagree with many of the pro-Israel stands in terms of the West Bank areas. I think those should be under the Palestinian Authority, and most of those people will probably have to flee, because when you have a majority Muslim country and you're a Jew, you can pretty much expect that that they'll kill you. Because
can I ask you a quick clarifying question?
Islam.
Because I'm actually not sure. When people say, just as a quick question, I'm not sure if you guys know this. People say 67 borders. Do they mean like 48 borders, or do they mean like post 6-Day War borders? Like, what are they talking about?
Pre-67 borders.
No. So when
pre-67. Okay, gotcha. Just making sure. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Sorry. So 67 borders pre. Yeah. So I would say that, as well as like what was offered in 2019 to the Palestinian Authority that they rejected, which is 67 borders and joint control over all holy sites in Jerusalem was offered, and so has been offered multiple times, I believe. And so like that, I think that's probably the best deal. Yeah, the 2019 like perfect deal or whatever.
The Trump deal
that never got to talks.
The Trump deal.
Yeah, just never went to talks. Yeah, the Trump deal. They just immediately were like,
okay,
no, fuck
everyone
you,
Google the map for the Trump peace plan, and ask yourselves why the Palestinians weren't interested in that. Just Google the map.
Am I incorrect? Am I incorrect?
Have you seen
the Trump deal?
The Trump deal was 2020, but there's a good reason Palestinians were never going to accept this, right? Have you seen the map?
people.
It looks like
literally
someone
know
just
about
like
this.
flicked paint on the Israel map, and you've got fucking Palestinian territory, right?
People have literally posted
I mean, I'll
memes of
look
like
again.
subdividing California with vision for peace up top because of how fucked it is. Where you carve out like the top like the 8 red counties in California, and it looks the fucking same.
Well,
it's a joke.
One of the things that I find a little bit frustrating.
So what I'm
about
referring to is
conversations like this-
before a map, before any deal, before anything was put forward, right? Trump said, well, I don't know that it was Trump specifically. I can't remember exactly who it was, but they were speaking about 67 borders and joint control. And then the Palestinian Authority, without ever seeing the deal, said that they needed to reject it.
Just as a quick thing,
so,
I
I mean,
look
like,
this up real quick. Just
which
as real quick,
happens
looking up the borders that were proposed for this, the amount of territory here, a lot of the Palestinians seem significantly less than what existed from 48 to 67, and it looks like the Palestinians weren't even consulted when it came to doing this proposal. So it's not surprising that anybody.
Yeah, it was an
would reject
untenable
it.
solution.
Yeah, it's a hilarious map. Regardless,
itself,
the 2019 deal is not the
when we
point
look
of what
at
I'm
maps-
saying.
Like every
I'm
deal
just saying
since Geneva has
I
just
will
been
brought it
total
up.
horseshit. Would
That
never
was-
happen. Yeah.
That was the deal.
I
That
will
was the
say, so
perfect
there's a
deal.
couple of things.
Yeah,
The
I
first
have
thing-
no problem. Hold on,
Wait,
please,
hold
without
on,
interrupting, real quick. Let me just take this L publicly.
Fabian, 1 second.
Just-
We'll stalk it. Let him finish, and then you could go ahead. Okay, let's go ahead.
Okay, there's a couple of things. The first thing that I will say is that the idea of having, I mean, this is exactly what Letterbox was saying earlier, and he's totally right about it. The idea of having these territories that are not actually connected is a really dangerous idea. This is why I think that the idea of Gaza being the same country as the West Bank, I think is just untenable. I don't think it's a good idea. But the second component that I do think is worth pointing out is that when you look at maps like this, it's very similar to like the Electoral College. Republicans will constantly look at like an Electoral College and be like, "Ooh, look at the whole thing is red, right? Except these tiny little cities." Well, yeah, but the cities are blue, right? So like similarly, well, yeah, if you look like at a map like that, what it's saying there is the majority of the areas that people don't live in are going to end up being under Israeli control, which makes sense from a military perspective, because from a military perspective, that is somewhere that you're able to shoot off rockets from. And so it has a lot of military implications, but has very little implications in terms of the daily life of many of the people who actually live in cities.
Is there anybody who thinks that the West
I
Bank
don't
and
support this.
Gaza should be one state while separated like that?
Say it again.
Is there anybody who does think that the West Bank and Gaza should be one state while separated like that?
Yeah, that was what the Trump peacebound was. Yeah, that was up until like this month the broad view of a lot of people. It's very recent that people believe that Gaza and the West Bank need to be considered to be like separate things. That is not something that either the Palestinian or the Israeli side were in support of up until this month, and that's pretty remarkably changing. I'd not heard other people talk about that until this month.
What is the three-state solution gaining traction amongst politicians in Israel and Palestine?
I would say.
Well, I mean, I
certainly-
figured that they were going to redraw
any
borders to where they would
solution
actually
gaining traction
connect in
amongst
some
I would
way,
say-
or that they would
Well,
be.
well,
some
yeah,
state.
senior Israelis are talking about just kicking all the Palestinians out, and they've drafted up plans
So
to
hold on,
cluster
I
it
just-
out. But
hold on.
that's the plan that's rising
Hold
in
on,
their
I-
minds.
So
that.
real quick, I just wanted to go back real quick. I had not looked at a map. I had only read from sources without looking at a map. I was wrong. I just wanted to publicly take that L because I don't want to bullshit. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Right? That's all I wanted to say. Continue.
Sigma.
Okay,
It doesn't have to get
guys.
quiet after that. Like you have to make this worse for me,
That
guys.
was-
You know what I mean? Like,
this moment will never come again, so I'm just gonna sit here and enjoy it. But
Drake
I've
it in,
done
yeah.
that like multiple times on your show. Don't
I
even.
know. I'm just messing with you, friend.
I always take my L's publicly. All right. I don't try and like wash over them. Fuck off.
You're good.
All right. Let me ask you this, right? To what extent, and this is something that we've seen plenty, and this is something that I'm sure a lot of you guys have spoken about as well, but to what extent does media bias, both internationally and within the region, perpetuate or exacerbate the conflict? And how can this be rectified for a fair representation of the situation? Because I'm sure a lot of you have, some takes on the coverage of the conflict on both sides.
Can we start with Destiny?
No, let's start with Jackson Hinkle. No one should listen to Jackson Hinkle. Then you can say whatever else you were going to say. Yeah.
Wait. Hold on. What's your problem with Jackson Hinkle?
Jackson Hinkle is
Communism. That we're done. That's it. That's retarded. There we go. There's the whole problem.
Bro, fuck the American. Oh my God, communism, terrible. Like, no, wait, quibbles. What's your problem with Jackson Hinkle?
That Jackson Hinkle like regularly, just constantly, in terms of the attack on the hospital, in terms of lots of stuff, he's just like constantly saying complete. That was supposed to be a throwaway, but yeah, he's saying complete bullshit all the time, and it's just
He
like,
is.
bad.
Hinkle is a
Okay.
habitual
Information.
grifter.
All right, 1 second.
Yeah.
How would someone like Jackson Hinkle be different to someone like Ben Shapiro and his takes and his coverage of the conflict?
Because I think that Ben Shapiro at least attempts broadly to be truthful, even if he is biased. That's different than
Oh,
Jackson
bro,
Hinkle,
come
who
on.
is both biased and doesn't even
Is
attempt
it-
to be truthful.
Wait,
Can
so-
I draw a difference?
Wait,
Can I draw a
hold on.
difference? Wait, real quick. Just in terms of expanding what you're saying, I think the difference is Ben Shapiro, like, let's say there's a fight where 5 people bring guns on one side and 5 people bring guns on the other side. Ben Shapiro would report this as, wow, 5 really bad dudes like showed up with guns and they managed to get killed by like good guys or whatever. He would never report that the other 5 guys had guns. He would only report one side of it. Jackson Hinkle would claim that 4,000 brave men were surrounded by like 5 murderers. He would completely fabricate the story. That's the difference. Ben Shapiro doesn't seem to outright lie, but he selectively chooses facts so much that the stories he tells are essentially dishonest. But it's not usually with an outright lie.
So one is a
mean,
little dishonest, the other is an outright liar. What Quibbles just said is, with Ben Shapiro,
but
he
weighing
tries or
things
attempts
out.
to be honest. Wait, hold on.
Yeah,
Does anybody
weighing
else on this
things-
panel agree with that?
I
No,
never said Ben
I would
Shapiro.
s-
To be clear, I never said Ben Shapiro tends to be honest. I said Ben Shapiro usually won't fabricate fact. Jackson Hinkle has no obligation to be truthful in anything that he. He'll show you a video from 2014 from Syria and claim that it's IDF soldiers killing Palestinians today. He would do something like that. Ben Shapiro will say something like Arab nations attack Israel for absolutely no good reason. He'll say something like that, right?
Ben Shapiro would also say there's 40 beheaded babies and provide absolutely no proof. But Loner, you wanted to talk about Quibbles and his take that Ben Shapiro is more honest and wouldn't lie as Jackson Hinkle would.
I
No,
do
Ben
not
Shapiro.
support
Ben Shapiro
in that
does.
statement.
Ben Shapiro does
Clarify, that's
lie
not what I'm doing.
sometimes. Jackson Hinkle lies all the time. That's all the difference is.
No, but
Yeah, and just one last
And,
comment.
and Jackson lies with a lot more impunity. Yeah.
Hinkle is also
He does
like
a lot
just
more
openly
maliciously,
a
too.
grifter. Like he went from being like a Warren stan in 2018. He was an ML in 2020. He was a conservative communist in 2022, and then he went on fucking Fox News and was promoting George Soros controls the world. There's a deep state run by the FBI with George Soros conspiracy theories.
Hold on,
The guy is
hold
like either insane or a grifter. Like those are the 2 options.
Like
Yeah.
I mean, there's a fine line between like
Okay, Prime,
far
you wanted
right,
to insult
far
Destiny.
right
I want to hear about
fascist
that. We're
and
done with
MLs.
Jackson.
To be fair, that's not
Prime
a very
wanted to
fucking
insult
far grift. Like the far
Prime
right
insult
fascist
Destiny.
is like barely indistinguishable between the tanky. Let's be honest.
Wait, hold on,
Okay.
Slicker, what do you want? Wait, hold on, Quibbles, 1 second. Slicker, what do you want?
Nice to meet you guys. I just want to come in here and say that, I've not been watching too much. But, I got to say something. I'm a threat. I am. I'm not trolling here. I'm not messing about. I feel like I'm a threat to society. And you know why? I don't know you guys. One second. Let me just put you guys up. Nice to meet
Your
you.
bald
You
head
guys don't know.
blinds people as you walk by.
Bro, shut up. You're white. You're a cracker. Shut up. No one's talking to you. But I
Okay,
want to
then.
jump in
You're dark-
straight
you're
and
white
jump
as
in.
I am.
I want to
Really?
jump in and straight talk. I want to talk and say some things, right? Number one, Destiny. Destiny, this is you little cook. Look at me, baby. Now, let me ask you a question, right? Why does everyone here think they are eligible to say Hamas is a terrorist group? Let me hear that shit. Let me hear that from you guys.
Why are we allowed to say Hamas is a terrorist
Yeah,
group?
yeah.
Because
Go
in their
ahead. Let me hear-
original charter, it seemed as though they were advocating for the destruction of Jewish people all across the world.
Okay, well, I actually did hear that. That's okay. I think that is wrong, but that's the only reason why they are But that's the only reason why they are labeled as a terrorist group because of what they said about the Jews. But
That's not
listen
the
to
only
me.
reason. They
No.
also
Listen to me.
engage-
Listen to me. Okay, but
you don't want
listen
me to
to me.
answer? Okay,
Listen-
go ahead. Yeah.
Okay,
There are
but
other
listen to
reasons
this.
too, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, all right, okay, but listen to this. We shouldn't be saying that because we don't know that what they're going for. We are not in their footsteps to say that they are a terrorist group. Now you know why? Listen to this as well. Destiny, you are a Palestinian. Your mom and your dad just died. Hamas comes up to you and says, "Oh, we're gonna go invade Israel." What are you gonna say after your mom and dad just died from Israel attack?
I don't know. I guess I'd
They
say,
might
well,
say
I'll go
something
be a
like,
terrorist
"The
too.
day
I mean,
of
what do you want me to
judgment
say?
will not come until Muslims fight the Jews. When the Jew will hide behind stones and
Get
trees,
the fuck
the
out of
stones
here
and
with
trees
that.
will
Oh
say,
my
Bro,
God.
bro.
Muslim,
You know what? You know what? Let me say
God,
something.
there's
Let me
a
say
Jew
something about
behind
this
me.
guy. Let me say
Kill
something
him,
about
kill
this guy.
him.
Easily, easily.
Wait, Slicker,
Okay.
Slicker, hold on. Fabian, you just quoted
Sorry, that's just the
something.
1988
Wait,
charter of.
No, you
Moscow.
just quoted it with no context, with no background. You just said, no,
No
but this is the
context.
charter.
What
There's nothing-
context makes
Wait,
the
wait,
trees
no,
and
hold on,
stones crying
Wait,
out
hold
for
on.
the Muslims to kill the
Hold on,
Jews?
hold on. First of all,
Make sense.
First of all, we act as though Hamas was just created out of nowhere, out of the blue. first and foremost.
No, I
Oh, no.
fucking
Wouldn't have
don't.
it. Yes, you fucking do. Because you fucking act
No, I
as though
don't.
Hamas
Bibi
just came out of
Netanyahu
nowhere.
strengthened
Just to
fucking
go out and-
Hamas because he wanted a group that was Islamist that would cause problems with the Palestinian Authority, and then his dumbass
Keep
let
going.
it get out of control.
Keep
I'm a
going.
fucking libertarian, okay? But when somebody comes on here and tries to act like fucking terrorists aren't pieces of shit, it's fucking stupid. And you brought
No,
him into
where's your
conversation.
wait? Where is your energy for America, for Europe, for even Israel? Where's your energy for saying that?
Bitch, you
But you know
don't
what? The
know
whole
me.
world. Listen, you white shit. Don't talk to me like that.
Me.
But for
My
all your
energy
energy,
around is the right
all
shit.
your
I'm white
energy,
shit.
all your
Yeah.
energy. I
I'm
don't give a
darker
shit. I don't
than
give a
you,
shit. I don't
bitch.
give a shit. I don't give a shit. If you're gonna talk about Hamas,
I know you
first
don't give a
everyone
shit.
in
You're
this
too fucking
world,
stupid to be
everyone
able
in
to
this world should
think
start
for
talking about what America and what Europe has done to or everyone. But because of white people dying in this world and this woman that's died, they don't want to show like IDF don't want to show pictures of any of the kids that died in Palestine. They don't give a shit.
A
They
lot of the
use that.
people
They
who
use
died
that
in
as
southern
No
Israel were
shit.
like Thai migrant
No
workers.
shit.
A lot of them
as
were
an
Arab.
Iraqi,
They weren't all white people.
as an Iraqi that's seen the dirty, scummy Americans invaded, and even Ukraine wanted to jump in and invade Iraq.
Flicker,
But
when did you
because
live
of-
in Iraq again? When did you
We
live in
get
Iraq
it.
again? Flicker, for how
We-
long?
Yeah,
we
you
get
guys
it.
are
We
racist.
get it.
Listen.
We get it. You're
Well,
a
because
racist.
because
racist.
white people are
You
dying
hate
and
white
getting
people.
invaded, we should tear for them. Go suck my dick. I don't give a fuck about you. Fuck you. And if you think Hamas is a terrorist, first look at yourself in the mirror because you're
IDF
living in
is
a terrorist
darker
ass
than you,
country,
motherfucker.
bitch. West side.
After we're done with
IDF
the
is
performative
darker than you,
libertarian
you
versus
white bitch.
whatever this is, can we get back to something
All right.
productive?
And this, first of all, and this
Me and
homeless,
the IDF
and
are
this,
darker
and
than
this
you.
guy, this electrocuted looking ass motherfucker saying Jackson Hinkle is a fucking whatever you said, talking
he's
shit
a
about him.
Nazgul. He literally
Listen,
quotes
listen,
LaRouche. LaRouche is
listen,
a far
you know
right
what
fascist.
is- you know
He's
what?
confirmed.
You're
He's probably an FBI agent
Jackson,
for it. He went on Fox
Jackson,
News.
you know what?
He promoted white supremacy, promoted the deep state,
Listen,
believes that
listen,
George
let
Soros
me
runs
say
the world.
this.
He's pretty much a Nazi.
You know
Fuck the
what?
guy.
You know what? You know what? I'm gonna say I respect him. You know why? Because he's against America, and I respect him for that.
Oh my
And not
God,
you
wow.
guys say that shit.
So
Not you
beautiful,
guys
bro.
say that shit. You don't see
81
that shit.
Alright,
Any
alright,
motherfucker in this
alright.
world that talks shit about Jackson
Flicker.
Hinkle, you ain't promoting or helping anyone in this world other than sitting here begging for money like
That's
Destiny,
true.
just
That's
trying
a
to
really
farm
good
this
point.
shit.
Can you point to which causes
All right.
Jackson Hinkle has promoted? Can you point to one
Okay, well,
Palestinian
all
charity?
right. Listen.
Let's not fucking
No, just real
drag
quick.
this
Name
on.
At
one
the end of the day,
Palestinian
at the end of the day, the charity
No, just
is.
name
The
one. No,
charity is.
stop pivoting. Stop
listen.
pivoting. Name one thing that he's actually promoted for the benefit of Palestinian people.
Okay.
Besides posting on Twitter, name one concrete thing
And
that he
asking for
promoted.
$3
Bro, the
donations.
charity is of him
I know.
exposing
the
the world
content.
Oh
and
my God.
So
exposing
he's the
his own
charity.
government.
He's the
Bro, he
charity.
could die from this retard. He
He's
can
not
get
gonna
killed
die
from
from
this.
anything.
Bro,
Come on, the
not-
victim complex.
Bro,
Come on.
says the guy that's a Discord mod. Don't talk. I'm not talking to you. But I'm saying it to this fat fuck on the
mod.
right. I'm telling you that he could die from this. It could be a threat. I'm telling you, it's dangerous.
I
None
don't-
of you
I'm not
Americans
gonna
will do
die.
that.
That's
All
true.
you
Every
guys are
time I
dragging
post on Twitter,
Biden's
it's a
dick.
charity to the
All
world.
you
It's a
guys-
victory
all
of the
you
world.
guys
So
are-
true. So true.
Enough. Stop.
You guys just got wrecked.
Enough. All I'm gonna say is
What do you mean
this.
enough? You brought
Why
him
were
on.
you nodding along with much of what he was saying? I know you don't agree with him, so why were you nodding?
What I'm going to say is this: when somebody labels Hamas as terrorists but fail to recognize the IDF and what they've done in Gaza, what they've done to Palestinians, and refuses to acknowledge the war crimes that were committed by the Israelis, you know, I can't really take you that serious. If you were to look at the IDF and think there's
Who did that? Who
you
did
know
that?
what? You know
Just as
what?
a quick thing,
Justify.
who did that?
All the
Wait, hold on, wait.
casualties,
Just as a
all
quick
the
thing. Just as a quick thing. Q.
Oh,
The
I
reason
know.
why people have an issue with this is here's what it looks like when you go to 95% of Western people and you say, hey, here is some irrefutable evidence that the IDF was shooting civilians at long range. They killed civilians for no reason. Do you know what 95% of people say? They go, that's really fucking horrible. Those soldiers should be punished. Here's what happens when you show videos of, like murdered, broken, German girl bodies being thrown around trucks, being spit on, okay, by Gaza City inhabitants. And you say, hey, do you think this is bad? This is what you guys do. Wait, you gotta understand. Well, there's an occupation, and sometimes, the selling people might be. It's not always bad. There's a context behind everything. There's a context behind. That's the issue. That's why people have an issue. That's why people have an issue with the. Okay, you can keep talking about it. That's the issue. That's the reality. That's the reality. Okay. That's the reality. That's the issue. That is the issue.
No, hold on.
Who did it?
No, wait 1 second.
Who did it?
Stop over me.
You made a
Stop,
claim.
Fabian.
Who did
No,
it?
Fabian, stop. You act as though the fucking people that support Israel don't say, do you condemn Hamas? The first fucking thing, when you point out all the fucked up shit that the IDF did, the first thing they say is,
they do.
you condemn Hamas.
People
You
say that
condemn
because
Hamas.
people ask
You
that because it's a layup.
because
That's
the
why people
lefties
ask
There
it.
have been Jewish terrorists in the West Bank. If you asked me to condemn them, I would immediately condemn them and we would move forward. It would take literally
Yeah,
15
no,
seconds to
it's-
get that.
It's
Okay,
literally,
let me
I
speak to
saw
that.
all over Twitter, all of these
I-
lefties that were like, hey, white people, do you condemn this mass shooter? And we're like,
Yeah,
fucking
duh.
obviously.
Yeah,
because it's
then
over
we
the
do
lefty
Hamas.
that's like, well,
So,
let
me
I'll
speak to
say-
that.
Wait,
So Scott,
I condemn
former
I
Prime
condemn
Minister.
Hamas.
I'm muting everybody. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Don't speak over me, you fucking cunts. When you act, right? When you fucking act as though all Palestinians support Hamas, all Palestinians are extremists, but
Who
you turn
does
a
this?
blind eye. Shut the
No
fuck
one
up when I'm
says that.
talking, nigga. Let me finish what I'm saying.
You
When
keep
you look at the
making
Israeli
claims
government,
and lies
hold
about
on.
us.
No. Well, you just acted as though all Palestinians and all people that support Palestinian
No, I
liberation.
didn't. You're lying
Nobody
about
said
me
that.
right
Q,
now.
you're fighting. You're boxing
That's
shadows
what
right now. You're fighting
That's what you
ghosts.
just did. That's what you just did because they're like, yo, when it comes to us, we condemn all people that fucking do extremist acts. We condemn them, but you guys say, what about Israel? These
Why
people
are you
fucking
lying about
oppressed.
me and
These people
Destiny?
get to do this. You literally just said this. You can't gaslight me, you stupid fuck.
I-
Number one.
Q,
Number
You're
two,
trying to gaslight me. I
hold
never
on.
said
This is
that
the
all
difference.
fucking
When America,
Palestinian people support Hamas.
let
when
me know when I
America,
reply, by the way.
yeah,
Go.
you will. Okay, listen. When America does stuff like Abu Ghraib, people are ashamed. They hide it. When it comes out, not only is the entire world looking at the United States, which is crazy, the support in the United States for foreign wars falls off a cliff. Okay, when Hamas abducts, burns, beheads, murders, and rapes people and brings back their villages, the Palestinians there cheer. It's a big difference.
Let me ask you. Let me ask you about this.
That's
Hold
not
on.
fair,
Let me ask.
Steven. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Not only.
Okay,
oh, wait,
I
hold
like
on.
it. It's totally fair. We saw the videos.
No,
okay.
it's not fair.
No.
it's not
Well,
fair
we saw the
because you
people
can see
outside
hold on,
cheering. We didn't see the people
no,
inside who
no,
weren't
no,
interested
no,
in
you
it.
could also
It's
see
not
the videos.
fair.
Wait.
It's not
Wait, hold
fair.
on. You
It's
could
not
also see
fair.
the
And the
fucking
reason it's
videos.
not fair-
Quibbles, stop. Quibbles,
The
I'm
reason
fucking
it's not-
talking.
okay, go
You
for it.
could make
Yeah, go
stop.
for it.
You could also see the videos of the Israelis celebrating the deaths of innocent civilians in Gaza. You could see those videos too, but you don't talk about that. You
I'm
don't
sorry,
talk
wait,
about
which
the
ones?
fact that
Wait,
the
which
Israeli
videos?
government is leaning extremely far right, and a
Karantos,
lot of
which
these
videos?
fucking
Karantos.
people are pro fucking
You just
exterminating
make shit up.
Palestinians.
Okay, yeah, there
How
you
am I
go.
making
All
shit
right.
up? Wait, how am I making
Okay,
shit up?
it's
Did you
not
see the
Where,
fair
where,
to
show,
compare.
Leon,
did you see
where
the
are
did you see the head of
Oh,
security in
okay,
Israel
okay.
fucking arming settlers in the West Bank, or did I make that up? Well, what's his
I'm
name?
asking
Ben
you,
Giver. Did
where
I
the
just make
video?
that up?
Oh, okay.
Did I
Karantos,
make
can I
that
just
up? No, no,
Karantos?
hold on.
Q,
No,
Q,
let me-
Q,
no, no,
Q,
wait, let me ask
Q,
Destiny.
Q,
Why
Oh,
are
yeah.
you dodging it, pussy?
Q. I want to.
He's
Okay,
dodging it. He's dodging it.
Q. I'm
He's
gonna try.
dodging it.
I'm gonna try a really.
You know, I'm not,
Q.
no, hold on, Loner, I'm not letting it go. I'm being autistic about this. Fuck this. Destiny, did you not see the video of the head of fucking defense, Israeli defense, Ben Giver, arming settlers in the West Bank to forcibly take fucking land from Palestinians? Did you not see that? Yes or no?
To take land?
I
What are you
haven't
talking
seen
about?
it, but the
Defend
videos
themselves.
that you're talking about, they're not the same thing as what I was just talking about.
What were you talking about?
I was talking about murdered civilians being trucked back to towns where everybody is cheering and celebrating and then spitting on the body of murdered civilians. If people in Israel are doing that, maybe if they are, man, that would be really fucked up. And you know what? If I saw it, I'd say, that is insanely fucked up. I would super condemn that video. Do videos like that exist?
Are we claiming that the situation of the people in Gaza is equivalent to the situation of the people in Israel? Yes or no? I just want to know.
There you
You're
go.
the
No,
only
we're not.
one
I
making
never claimed
false
that.
equivalencies.
It's an
The
absolute
point that I-
Literally
it's a
only
valid
you
point.
making
It's a
false
valid
equivalencies.
point.
So,
No,
okay.
he's the one who
The
made
point that
false
I don't
equivalencies
like
because
about
he
that,
acts as
Steven.
though
But
Israelis
wait, no, Q.
are
Then we agree,
equal
Q. Then we agree, Q. Then we agree. The Palestinian people celebrate the murder of civilians. They love it, but they've got a good reason to. That's fine. That's your argument. I can hear that. Okay.
Israelis celebrate the murder
not-
of innocent Palestinians too, but you ignore that fact. You ignore the fact that they select extreme far right people into their government, people that are pro exterminating Palestinians, but you ignore that as well.
If Israel's
go
so
ahead.
pro exterminating, Palestinians, why don't they just kill a whole bunch of fucking more? Why are the death tolls so fucking shitty on the Israeli side?
Wait, hold on. Weren't you the same person that was questioning the death tolls anyways? You're like, wait, 3,000, 4,000? Oh, no way that is true. Weren't you doing
I
that?
never said I was questioning death tolls. I said I was questioning when all of them are called civilians. But I'm asking you, let's say Israel just wants to murder Palestinians.
Wait,
Why
no,
don't they-
okay. Wait, let me ask
Oh,
you.
you don't have an answer for that? Oh, gotcha.
No. Wait.
You're not gonna
Do you have an answer to my question? So
Oh
when we
my
see
God.
4,000 deaths, are you saying they're all Hamas? Do you saying they're majority Hamas?
I'm not
I
saying
thought
they're
that-
all Hamas. I never said they're all Hamas, but I said definitely they're not all civilians. Okay.
Okay, no, okay, then give me a split in your opinion, right? In your educated opinion, since you know so much about this conflict, right? How much would you say is civilians versus terrorists?
I can't possibly
It's
know
an
the answer to that.
ongoing
So
conflict.
just
How
to
can
give a
you possibly
context
answer that?
number, on the named and identified bodies by the Ministry of Health in Gaza, only 1 in 5,
Hamas.
20%
Wait, hold up.
are military.
You just named Hamas.
Hey,
Your
let me
source is
finish.
Hamas.
Military aged men. Okay, men 18 to
source is
35.
Hamas.
Only 1 in 5. The overwhelming
Okay,
majority
fucking left.
You see
are
what that
not
is?
even
That
possible
same- wait,
soldiers.
hold up. That
Oh my
exact
God.
same source that you just cited lies
Yes.
about the hospital bombing. right?
Ooh.
I don't know. I don't. There's like a time. There's a timeline reconstruction there that relates to the translation of the doctor. I don't fucking know. But what I would point to,
that was
if
the
you're interested,
largest conversation that happened this entire time in terms of the response of Israel. The largest thing that they pointed to was that specific bombing, and they were lying about it.
Well, that is
And now you're
true.
using
I
it
would
as a
be
source.
careful. I would wait. While that is true, I'm pretty sure Zelensky himself co-signed that there were Russian missiles that had launched that had landed inside what was it, Russian Ukrainian territory? And then we found out later on that they were actually Ukrainian missiles that fell short of a Russian target and bombed their own stuff in Ukrainian territory. And I'm pretty sure Zelensky himself co-signed that message and went public. So I'm not trying to say that we should believe Hamas because I generally don't, but I'm saying they are the only ones that can reliably report deaths in Gaza. Just because they do tell some lies doesn't mean every single thing they say will be a lie.
And the additional data I would just give is that in previous conflicts, the numbers they've given aligned almost entirely with the UN's numbers.
Amnesty International, that's not true. Amnesty International and also the IDF will ultimately come out with numbers that are generally considered to be serious and real. That is not something they've done yet. And the reason they've done
you
it yet
can't say
is because it is
Hamas's
not
numbers
something
are
that's
bullshit and then be like, but IDF's is going to be pretty good.
The IDF ones consistently,
It'll be more
the IDF
accurate, but
numbers,
it's not like they're going to be like they don't have an incentive to bullshit too.
Consistently, the IDF numbers consistently, one, they wait longer, and two, they line up broadly with UN numbers. So yeah, I think that they are significantly
so the original question,
than Hamas.
the original question. That's the defense for the IDF numbers, and the Hamas numbers are good. So moving back to the Hamas numbers, only 1 in 5 are military-aged men. Okay, of the identified dead, 1 in 5 are all military-aged men. That's like the maximum number of militants. And that's
you want to
it's clearly not that high.
And only use Amnesty International, that's fine. We can only use Amnesty International. They haven't come out with numbers yet because they don't know yet, because it's an ongoing conversation.
Listen,
and this whole
I know your name is Quibbles. I know your
and
name is
saying
Quibbles,
bullshit.
and you're
This
very
is
on
the
brand
reason.
right now. Right, but so there's a couple of issues here. Number one, we're way off topic, but fuck it. Number two, when you talk about death tolls, when you talk about numbers, when you talk about these things, it is devoid of any context. It is a very kind of sneaky way of talking about this situation, because I agree that there are absolutely better ways for Israel to fight in terms of conducting warfare against Hamas. But you are talking about a group of people who, so for this recent refugee bombing, right? As far as we know, right? Israel could be lying. The former deputy prime minister, when he came out to speak about the recent refugee camp bombing, could be totally lying. But according to Israel, they made telephone calls for 2 weeks straight. And then they knocked on the roof a half hour before the bombing, right? And they were telling people over and over and over again, you have to leave this area. There is a facility at the bottom of this building that is Hamas, and we are targeting a specific commander. Leave the building. They give them 2 weeks, and then they knock on the roof a half hour later, right? And then they blow up the building. And what happens when they blow up the building? As according to Hamas, right? According to Hamas, over 50 people, last I checked right before the stream. So I mean, the death toll could have increased. Over 50 people are dead so that Israel could kill a couple of Hamas people and a specific commander. And so when you talk about like, well, look at the death numbers, and you don't talk about the fact that Hamas says it's psychological warfare. Israel's lying. You have to stay here. You have to be our human shield. They won't bomb this building so long as you're here. They're just making up things to scare you. They're not even going to blow up the building anyways. And Israel does everything they can to evacuate these people. And then 50, 60 people die. Yeah, the numbers are going to be different when this is a pattern that occurs in this area. There are plenty of things we can talk about doing warfare better. But again, SEL, I've already tripped you up on this multiple times, which is your only solution is to do nothing and to just let Hamas have power.
So just sticking on the death numbers, right? Like the even the rate of civilian casualties by like Hamas's incursion so far from the ID bodies was 1/3 military. Israel's bombing is so fucking bad at targeting militants that's at best 1/5. So Israel is perforperforming worse on a kill-for-kill basis than fucking Hamas.
Anything I said?
Wait, hold on. I want to hear this. I want to hear the answers, because I've never, ever heard somebody actually respond to this part. So I'm actually genuinely super curious, okay? Everyone in here agrees that Hamas intentionally operates outside of civilian infrastructure, right? Is Israel just never supposed to counterattack Hamas if they constantly and consistently operate out of civilian infrastructure? Or what is the solution there?
Do it in a way
Steele's
that
given
I'd be interested to
I'm
hear
curious,
STL
I'm
say
curious,
that.
He's already given
Loader's
it
given the
before.
better
I
one.
just said,
Why is every pro-Israeli person talking?
Fabian,
Fabian,
why are
shut the
you
fuck up.
talking?
Let us
This is
talk.
their
Yeah, let us
question.
talk. I want to hear the answers. I'm super curious about the answer to that.
I want to give it to Loner because he's given a better one before, but I can
Okay,
go
Loner
if
can
not.
answer too. I don't care either one. Yeah, I want to hear the response to that. I'm curious what the response
Wait,
is.
what was my answer to that before?
I could have sworn we had this debate like a week ago. Whatever.
No, wait. I'll own the position. Like, yeah, if and if this is the case in international law as well, if civilian infrastructure is being used for military purposes, it ceases to be civilian infrastructure in the eyes of international law. So like if there's like rocket, like to the point that Hamas will like literally commandeer people's houses to use their rooftops as military bases, like temporarily. So
Okay.
no,
Wait, hold
yeah,
on.
I don't have
Loner,
an answer for what Israel should do to that.
Wait,
That's
wait,
quite
Loner,
hard.
let me ask you a couple of questions.
Well,
because
I have an
Yeah.
answer.
wait,
The answer is
Quibbles,
that
one
they
second.
broadly-
Quibbles, one second. Quibbles, one second.
Go for it.
Just for you, Loner. Apologies, Quibbles. I'm really curious because we had a conversation
fine,
about
you're
this,
fine.
right? So when you say it ceases to be civilian infrastructure, right?
Hmm.
I have a couple of questions for you because you said last time we spoke about this, these people, as in Palestinian civilians, are willingly offering themselves as human shields.
No,
They see it as martyrdom.
Some of them
you
are.
said that.
Some of them are,
You
but
said
not
that.
all of them. That's like the rule. But we've seen examples
All
of
right.
that. Yeah.
All right. So are you saying that they're being held there by force then?
It's a
Yeah. Well,
dictatorship.
if they're being commandeered, yeah, the house is being commandeered. That means they're being held
Kevin,
there. Yeah.
So okay.
And that
So
election
let's
in 20
hold on.
years.
Hold on. Let's build up on this, right? So they're being held there by force, by Hamas, to be used as human shields
Israel.
against Israel. And then Israel looks at that and says, all right, you're being held there by force. You're pretty much a hostage. We'll still bomb you regardless.
That's why they
On
knock.
what? On what?
They're-
Oh
they
my God!
literally
Thank you for
invented the
knocking.
knock.
Thank you for knocking before you blow me the
Messages.
fuck up even
Then-
after I
Wait,
can't
what's
escape.
the
I'm
alternative?
being held. Wait, hold on.
Wait, Q. So wait,
Yeah,
I think most people think it's justified even without the
hold
knock.
on, wait,
Can I talk?
real quick. Okay, hold on. Okay, there's a big waste of time. All of us agree that using civilian shields is bad. We all agree with that. And all of us agree that killing civilians sucks. Okay, but then the question is, and I'll pose it to you, Q or STL or Lonerbox, what is the alternative?
The alternative is getting to your targets in a way that doesn't disproportionately kill or harm innocent civilians.
How do
That's
you
what
know
you
they're
think.
doing that?
Okay, I just want to build on that. I want to build on that. Wait.
Do you think
Wait,
the
quick,
Jews
I just wanna
actually
build
have
on that.
Jewish space
Wait,
lasers?
hold on. No, it's
How
not
the fuck
space
do
lasers.
they
I
do
just want
that?
to. I just want to build on that. Okay, so Q. Then are you co-signing an IDF ground invasion to Gaza?
I
And do
wouldn't
you
say
think that would
grounded.
result? And do you think that would result in less civilian deaths than what's happening now?
I 100% believe that the first of all, civilian deaths would be inevitable if you do it even in that way. But it
I'll be
would
right back. Somebody tell me the answer to this
extremely less.
question, okay?
It'll be wait. I'm answering you, fucking retard. Okay, don't. He's trying to pull a fucking XQC on me. It's not gonna fucking work, right? Anyway,
Live.
the answer is simple.
That's a really nice chair.
The answer is
Sorry,
simple.
go on.
Either ways, right? Either ways, people are going
not.
to die. Either ways,
back
people are
porch
gonna
is so
fucking
bad.
die. Shut the fuck up, bro! Fucking mute you, permanently, you fucking idiot. All right, he's back. Wait, let's wait for the retard to put on the headset.
Okay,
All
just
right.
give it an
I like
answer.
your chair.
All right,
No.
debuffed Hassan. Let me fucking answer you, right? What I was saying is, regardless, you wouldn't escape civilian casualties or civilian deaths, but one would be extremely less compared to the other. So I
You
wouldn't say
think a
ground
ground
invasion.
invasion would be
I
less
wouldn't say
civilian
ground.
deaths?
I wouldn't say a fucking ground invasion where you send hundreds of thousands of fucking soldiers.
Then what's the
I say
alternative?
send specialized. I say send
Like a
specialized
raid?
teams and get after your fucking targets.
You send
Right, that's what I'm saying.
20 good men from Game of Thrones
Wait,
into
a
Gaza City and
raid?
try to fight that way?
Loner
Yeah,
box,
no,
you
Instead of
can't do a
fucking
raid.
dropping bombs and killing
300
fucking
miles
50
of
to
tunnels.
1, I'd rather fucking do that.
Bro, the point
You
is that
can't-
they're all
okay,
dead.
hold on,
You're
hold on.
sending them
His
on
we need to-
suicide.
His
Loner
rating
box
is
said something
they're not
crazy.
getting
I
anything
need
done.
to
value
insult Loner
Palestinian
box for his
lives.
cringe.
What?
Loner
Q,
box
Q,
said
real
some
quick,
cringe.
real quick.
You
What did
said
I
that they
say?
should just do
Real quick.
you said that they should just do individual individual attacks on individual locations, right?
Okay, I don't know if you're like autistic, but I said it like it was a question. I asked a raid because it sounded like that's what Quran
Oh, I'm
was
sorry.
saying.
Let me clarify a
Okay.
few things, right?
That's all right.
So the problem is that and Q, and I'm not even trying to be insulting to you. I promise, right? Like a lot of people have like watched. They haven't been in the military, or they don't have a lot of military knowledge, right? Or know a lot of people in it. So a lot of times people's views of the military is made by Hollywood. and or like successful raids by the Navy SEALs. So the first thing we need to understand is that like America's Navy SEALs, Green Berets, Marine Force Recon, like these people are some of the are very small, efficient groups, and they're some of the best in the entire world. And even though IDF has its own SF, they don't fucking compare. Now, Israeli intelligence is okay, right? Israeli intelligence is pretty good compared to U.S. intelligence, or at least what we know. But here's the problem with that concept: is there's really only two ways to do a non-ground invasion where you raid specific areas. So option A is something like Mogadishu in 1993, and we saw how successful that was, which is not fucking at all, right?
Yeah, we killed you niggas.
You know, trying to do several raids in an area, and trying to go door to door, going through like the fatal funnel of fire. IDF is basically going to lose everybody and have a lot of unsuccessful missions, and they're not actually going to be able to get their targets, right? So they're just going to throw IDF soldiers to the wolves and get killed. And they have to go in a very large force in order to do that, because you're talking about a very densely populated area, right? You can't just, it's not like
Osama bin Laden in Pakistan or something where you're like taking people by helicopter in the middle of fucking nowhere. And yeah.
Right. You can't do that like the Navy SEALs did. So
all
there's
right,
option two,
wait.
That option two, which is that.
Give me a solution. Then give me a different way than what
the
they're
solution is targeted strikes on buildings that you believe Hamas is operating out of. And if civilians aren't allowed to leave, then that's on Hamas. That's exactly what Israel's doing. I don't know if there's a better way right now.
I've stated that what the type of warfare that Israel commits, I think, is likely the most ethical form of warfare that we see in the world. And yet there is something that I think Israel absolutely should be taken to task for, and the United States should be using whatever soft power it has, especially in the UN, to try and force this, which is that forcing people to southern Gaza, right, where they have limited resources, limited water, and then Hamas moving installations into southern Gaza. They're ping-ponging refugees into areas to be bombed within Gaza.
Fabian,
it is completely unethical. They need to be setting up blue zones. They need to be setting up blue zones. No, listen. No. I'm going to finish this. They need to be set up. Nope. I'm going to finish this. They need to be setting up blue zones within Gaza or refugee camps outside of Gaza if they're going to go on an intensive bombing campaign followed by a ground invasion, so that refugees, at the very least, it may not be the best place, it may not be the greatest place, at the very least they have a means of not getting fucking bombed after they get cleared. Because it has been true before the October 7th attack, roughly 85% of people that were in this quote unquote open air prison were able to get passes to leave Gaza to go to work or to medical facilities.
Can I just ask a quick
within
question?
Israel?
Can I ask a quick, wait.
So those people should be in refugee camps.
Ultra quick question about this. If Hamas won't let people leave buildings that are getting bombed, why do you think they would let people leave to go to refugee camps?
So it's not a matter of whether or not Hamas will let people leave. I understand what you're saying, and that there will be people that will ideologically stay there, and there will be people that are forced to stay there. But you cannot take the moral high ground when you are ping-ponging people within this small, isolated area that with limited resources. Then when you say, look, we have a place for them to go to, it's not our fault.
I think it's also unfortunately.
Hold on, loner. Let Quipples talk. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Today's the 31st. Okay, today's the 31st. The shooting happened, the attack happened on the 7th, right? And so it has been a very long time. Everyone expected for Israel to invade by now, but they haven't invaded by now. And the reason for that is because they've given
the US said, please don't fucking invade.
Okay, the reason is that they've given a long time for people to move south so that they can have an invasion specifically of the north. Why do they have to attack the north specifically? Because that's where the tunnels are. There are 300 plus miles of tunnels in Gaza, and
it's
so
not addressing what I said at all.
They're not going to be able to have an attack against Hamas. They're not going to be able to ever probably destroy all of Hamas.
You're not answering what I said though. You're not answering the critique that they should be setting up some form of blue zone or refugee camp.
I think
the other thing that you're completely ignoring. The other thing that you're completely ignoring is that part of the reason they haven't invaded yet is because there's 100,000 soldiers at their northern border, and Hezbollah and Lebanon are fucking eyeing them real close.
Okay. you can't just like make a refugee camp in somewhere like Egypt, which won't take them, right? And the reason that
I
Egypt
didn't
won't
say
take
make
them
it
is
in
because
Egypt.
they're
There's a
concerned.
fucking whole
Okay,
Sinai
I
Peninsula nearby them.
understand. I'm sorry.
Or sorry, not Sinai
Where
Peninsula,
do you want
the
them?
desert that starts
Sinai
with
is
Z. I can't
Egypt.
remember the fucking.
That's Egypt, though.
You
No,
mean Negev?
I know. I said
I don't know
I know,
where-
and then I said sorry. Immediately corrected myself. I'm saying
Okay.
immediately to the east of
If
them
you
is
put them-
desert that you could set up areas.
Okay,
At the very
if you
least.
put them in Egypt, there's going to be an expectation.
I
that they
did,
can stay
no,
in
I'm
Egypt
not
after-
saying put them in
I'm
fucking
trying
Egypt.
to explain. You were annoyed at me for not directly answering your question.
Egypt
I'm trying to
doesn't
directly
want
answer your
them.
question. Okay.
Can
Exactly.
we let
They
Quibbles
can't put them
finish?
in Egypt because if they left them in Egypt, there would be an expectation that they'd be allowed to stay in Egypt after this was all over. You can't put them into Israel proper because there would be an expectation to be permitted to stay in Israel proper after this is all over. And so therefore they have to stay inside of Israel proper, or excuse me, inside of Gaza proper. And so that
But
means that they're either going to be in the northern of Gaza, which is where the majority of them live currently, or they're going to be forced south, which is a horrible situation.
That is such
obviously.
bullshit.
But that's why they've
you
been
just
given
made that
nearly
up.
a month to do so.
That's insane. There are plenty of places nearby that you can house refugees. Would it be incredibly
Where?
expensive? Would it be one of the most insane fucking tasks that you could ever take on? Absolutely. Right. But
What would
Israel
happen
is asking for billions of dollars. People are going to give them hundreds of billions of dollars in order to deal with this situation. And it would be, and I
don't know where you stand for
guarantee
that
you,
number.
the US and a lot of other places, even though I'm against them being involved in any capacity, would be willing to give a lot more money if Israel was moving people into safe zones and was removing the blockade.
Right. That's why they're trying to allow people to go south, because that's the closest to a safety that they can provide. They can't allow people to be in Israel
But they're
proper
not
because then they will
safe in the
stay
south.
in Israel.
They're
I understand they're
also
not-
bombing
okay.
the south.
Hold on.
When
Wait,
you are under a
hold on. Wait.
terrorist
I hear this. Wait.
dictatorship,
Hold on.
you're
Wait.
not safe.
Also, wait. This keeps saying that they're bombing the south. They're not mass bombing the south. That's just not true. I don't know where
No,
this. I don't know. There were
course
one or
not.
two operations that people are pretending like all of the south. I know we saw the Vox video where the picture was the bomb, but the south is not being mass bombed. The reason why the
didn't
people
say-
in Gaza aren't safe is because Hamas doesn't want them to be safe. Okay, full stop. That's it.
Again, just
Sorry,
always fucking put it to Hamas. Let Israel genocide the
This is
entirety
true.
of the fucking Palestinians in Gaza
there-
and be like, it's not Hamas. Who cares?
Statements
Bro,
are
we
true.
literally
If
have
you-
evidence
we
of
have
them
Israel-
knocking
hold
and
on.
trying to
Israel
get
was
in,
trying
and
to
then
genocide.
Millions?
don't leave.
Israel was trying to genocide all of those people. They'd be killing way more than 150 a day. I promise.
Sorry,
you.
hold on.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is
You
not
act as if they're
genocide.
still not
Obviously.
fucking beholden to the United States and what
Sorry.
they fucking tell them to do. Biden
But
told
this
them
is not-
back off, chill with the ground invasion, and they didn't do shit.
The
think,
entire
like, they could-
occupation. Sorry, excuse me. The entire
ahead.
occupation is not genocide, and that like we got to get the number down to zero right now. This is an ethnic cleansing campaign. It's and the results are
They're doing a
that
terrible job.
People,
Well, they've only
Right.
displaced 1.4 million people.
Yeah, like
When
yeah,
the
they've
Rohingya genocide happened, it was
Population's
only
the
only
majority of the
increased in
Palestinians
Gaza.
living
maybe
out.
300,000 more, and then we can call it the G word.
There are
SDL,
millions of
that's not true.
Palestinians.
Wait,
living
hold
out-
up. SDL, you just lied.
Hold
That's
on,
not true.
hold
They
on.
didn't-
Isn't Prime
no,
fucking
that's not
talking
true.
Quibbles? Wait, stop, Quibbles.
There being
Stop,
1.4
stop.
million.
Did I not say stop? Or was I speaking Chinese?
God.
Ni hao ma. Was I speaking Chinese? Mandarin? The fuck? Prime, go ahead.
I had a hard time hearing you with the face diaper on. Sorry.
It's called a mask, something you fucking retards don't know about. But my bad, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, so there are millions of Palestinians living outside within the Palestinian diaspora, right? In neighboring countries. This is an ethnic cleansing campaign. The point is to at least like for like the West Bank to make it so miserable that you leave. And to say that, well, Israel just hasn't wiped them all out by now, so I guess it's not genocide. And so what does that mean morally? It's still an ethnic cleansing campaign. Let's not make any mistakes about that. And they are bombing the South. Like we're getting reports of like bombs in the South, like families
Yeah, it's
doing
very
what Israel
limited,
told
like I said.
during Israel told them to do, leaving the north and still being hit down in the quote unquote safe areas. Now, as far as I know, what Destiny said is correct in that like they're not mass bombing the South, right? It's not the same, but people are dying there when they were told this is the safe area.
Well, I just want to say that's probably why there's a problem with blue zones. Is that historically, even since the 50s, when they were going after like Fedayeen fighters, it was in refugee camps because that's where they operate from. So that's why the blue zone is not necessarily you can't really have a blue zone because they're that's one problem. Anyway.
Look, there's no perfect solution there. Like I absolutely agree that the Palestinian Fedayeen, was operating out of refugee camps as well as in Jordan and almost, fucking overthrew a monarchy there and then had to get kicked to another country where they started another war and displaced 1 million Christians, But nevertheless, like I do agree that there's no perfect solution here. But the thing is that I don't think you get to take the moral high ground as Israel when you have people isolated into this area. Like I agree that I think there's also this ridiculous kind of counter argument, which is like, oh, we'll just open everything up and it's like cool, and then we'll get the 4th intifada, or maybe this will be the 3rd one or whatever, and like every goddamn discotheque in fucking Tel Aviv will get blown up. Like there is a kind of a balancing issue here.
Moral high ground over the terrorists.
To have the moral high ground over the terrorists is very different than having the moral high ground over
the moral high ground.
I don't think.
Exactly.
Well,
wait, hold on.
They have to, you're asking anarchists. They would have to dissolve the state of Israel.
I'm asking. Okay. We can LARP, but I'm curious what your actual opinion is. Like, what do you think that they have to do in order to?
Well, that's what I told you. I said that they need. Even if the blue zones are unsuccessful, right? Because the amount of money that they cause and the difficulty of running them means that only a limited number of people are able to achieve them, right? At least trying to have areas that are guaranteed safe, and then asking the rest of the world for help specifically with those blue zones, right? Gives them the ability to go, we're doing the best we can.
Okay. When from those blue zones, Hamas starts shooting rockets at innocent civilians.
Like they're doing from Gaza?
That's what I'm saying. In those blue zones, right now they're blue zones. Now you're no longer allowed to, Israel's no longer allowed to attack those locations. When all of the people who are at the highest level of Hamas start shooting rockets from those locations, what exactly should Israel do in response?
Okay, so what you've done now is like we're moving, like we're moving to like now the new what if is once the blue zones fail.
You're saying this is how you get to the moral high ground. I'm trying to understand the moral high ground.
Right. So the difference between the two examples of no blue zones versus failed blue zones is that failed blue zones is an attempt to give the Palestinian people a place to go that isn't forcing them into a country that doesn't want them, forcing them into a region that they may have to bomb later, right? Et cetera, et cetera. It is an attempt to the best of their ability to give them safe harbor.
I think the issue is real quick. Real quick. One of the reasons why people, Israel included, and other countries, believe it or not, sometimes try their best to follow international laws because when conflict happens, they want to be able to appeal to people like the United Nations or the international community, broadly speaking, for support. So we can say that Israel attempting to set up blue zones might be a show of good faith for them in order to garner more support from the international community. However, if it is the case that Israel believes that Hamas intentionally operates with civilian infrastructure, right now, Israel can bomb Gaza and say, well, look, Hamas is there. If Israel sets up a blue zone and then Hamas begins operating out of it, and now Israeli soldiers are going into blue zones to kill people, they might destroy all goodwill they have in the international community because now they're seen as attacking refugee camps that they themselves have said are safe. That could be an issue that Israel would have with setting up specific blue zones outside of Gaza City for civilians that are intermingled with the terrorist groups so much that you can't tell the difference between the two.
Right. So the question then becomes of like, this is a question of tactics in the future of like under the assumption or like the what if of what if blue zones fail. I agree that there are ways that this could get worse for the nation state of Israel. I don't give a fuck. What I'm saying is that when you're bombing people and you don't give them anywhere that is like absolutely safe to be, right?
So you're asking for branding.
I understand that Israel is doing more than most countries would do in terms of warfare to be ethical, but there are still lines that not only can they do better, they absolutely should be doing better.
I think maybe
not just more. They're not just more, right? It's a completely unreasonable standard in comparison with the way other countries have been treated when they have had a direct attack on their citizens like this. It's absolutely wild, the different standard that Israel is held to. And I don't know if it's anti-Semitism. I don't know if it's because there's like this weird symbolic idea of what Israel represents in the Middle East. I don't know what the reason for it is, right? But it's very strange.
What if-
There's a
the
massive
crazy-
difference
I
between
made this point like an hour ago, but yeah.
like terrorist attacks on one country and then other countries where they actually have like a very long history and they're like extending
What do
borders.
you mean
and-
unprompted? Wait, do you not think that the United States made a bunch of decisions that directly led or indirectly led, you could argue, to 9/11?
Maybe I wouldn't say it's the same. I wouldn't say that those are the same at all. We're talking about some are actually like violent attacks. These are actually like back and forth violent attacks.
I agree. It wouldn't be the
at
same,
one
right? Because the
another.
brutality of October 7th just does not compare to the brutality of
Yeah,
September
but
11th. Right?
I think in both cases, it was pretty clear that the military response didn't make the world safer. We live in the post 9/11 military response world. Are we all safer for it? Is Israel safer for it? Are Americans safer for it?
Okay.
Honestly,
this is
that's an argument that I'm much more interested in than
you just made a
moral grandstanding.
You just made a blanket statement about war in general.
Okay. This is
I'll
not
be quick.
multiple
I'll be quick.
Okay.
You made a blanket statement.
Q, which one of us can go?
Okay, hold on. Wait. Fabian, go, and then Quibbles go after.
Okay, I'll be very quick. To say that the military response made us less safe, right, is a condemnation of the specific actions that occurred in the Iraq and Afghanistan war, of which you will find very little argument from me. But to say it but when you say it this way, we all know what you're actually saying, which is that any military response makes us less safe, as you have said in the past on other panels with me, and your only response is to have no military action against Hamas, which is absurd, right? So I agree with you that the Iraq invasion was
that's wrong. So every time you've asked this question, I say, like, stuff to the degree of maybe what Loaderbox is talking about, target attacks on individual locations. I've said that type of military response might solve, like, in the very short run, some level of violence, but it won't solve the long run violence.
No, wait, don't wait. Let me tell you what I was actually saying.
Wait, stop.
Loaderbox said it all. You are not listening.
Quibbles.
Loaderbox was saying
so I think what I've said in the past,
military function, right?
So I think what I've said in the past is that when it comes to criticizing the Israeli military, it tends to be over like kind of details. So when I've read like some case law on about when their investigations into the 2008 war, it seemed to be the case that the critiques of Israel was that occasionally there were acts of recklessness when they hit targets that had no clear or no discernible military use, like the sewage treatment plant, or there was this thing like roof knocking. People always talk about roof knocking is, as far as I've seen from investigations, is basically useless. It's indistinguishable if you're in a building from like explosions going off all around you. So there's not really much point in it. Or they've been criticized for their warnings and their phone call messages not being very coherent. But it's things like that. It's like they just like tangible things compared to comparing it to like
that's bullshit.
What?
Just to
say that roof knocking. To say that roof knocking.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Shut up!
I'm just quoting the investigation from the international court. I'm sorry.
We're trying to get back to the question, which was like what types of response are acceptable, right? And so, Loaderbox, you were trying to say that these types of targeted responses on like individual buildings, that's maybe I don't know if you described that as the right approach, but I thought you were leaning that direction earlier. That seems like
no, but if they do what you just said, though, the problem is that Hamas embeds their military activity and their military infrastructure in civilian infrastructure. So, they could be. We don't know. They could be every target they've hit could have had Hamas infrastructure or personnel. That's feasible, right?
Feasibly, if like every
and still a lot of civilians would die.
Fighter, there were still like 4 like civilians like immediately in the radius.
It's not just about fighters; it's about infrastructure. It's about rockets. It's about launch pads. It's about stockpiles. It's about communication centers.
It's from the Gaza.
So it's not just about
the release data.
It's not just about proportion. It's not just about proportions of people. It's also it's not just about proportions of people. Even this strike today in the refugee camp, wasn't it? Because they said there was like a big part of the tunnel network underneath it. So it's targeting tunnels. It's about targeting. Communications.
Yes, but the argument I just want to be clear.
When it comes to how we're doing
Fabian every single time is that none of these worked in the long run, right? Israel has bombed Gaza half a dozen times.
Why are you grouping all of these military operations together as if they're the same thing? It's this very simplistic view of military operations.
Okay, has any of them worked? What is different about this
actually,
one? Why will this one work?
Have worked, right? Like one of the problems that you're having, right, is that like you're looking at this from a purely ideological perspective. Israel is looking at survival.
I asked you a concrete question. Which of them have worked? Don't answer with ideology. Tell me which one
I would
worked.
say all of them because Israel's still standing. Israel, when Israel responded, why is
Wait,
that?
how are
Why
you
is that
laughing
funny?
at that?
Wait, hold on. Wait.
Yeah, I agree. The firebombing addressed it.
Israel's
Hold on.
still standing is what's preventing.
Just to be ultra clear, the only reason that Israel exists today is through extensive military action. Whether you talk about the original independence of 48, whether you talk about the expansion borders of 67, or whether you talk about the repulsion of dozens of different types of incursions from PLO people on the borders, from other Arab nations attacking them over and over and over again, that is the answer. That is the only reason. So when you ask, has Israel's military action worked so far? Even the Arab states would agree, yeah, that's the only reason. That is the reason why Egypt now recognizes Israel as a nation. That is the reason why Jordan now recognizes Israel as a nation. You can laugh, but that is true.
We're not talking about Israel surviving. We're talking about ending terrorism.
Convenient for your argument. It's just so disingenuous.
Oh my God.
Why I laughed is because that's also the reason why Israel is under threat, right? Like these actions that we're talking about are also the same reason
Israel's
people
under
are
threat.
fighting. Yes, the reason why Israel's under threat. Why Israel doesn't it feels like it's under siege. It always tells us within its propaganda that it's under siege from all sides. Yes, this is why it's
you're
under
talking
threat.
about a
It's
bunch of
military
people.
actions. Hold on.
Talking about a
You
bunch
have
of
been
people.
under
Hold
threat
on,
in the
wait,
Middle
wait,
East.
hold on. Quibbles, knock it off.
I don't know what you're
Prime
talking about.
finish. Let Prime finish, Quibbles. Prime, go ahead.
I haven't interrupted you. Let me finish, right? So, what I'm saying is that Israel's decisions up till now have led it to be under threat. Now, I'm not saying that these people should be killed or wiped out or anything. I'm saying that the political and military decisions have led to this. Expelling the Palestinians have led to this. These military actions that Eris is talking about. Hello, Eris. Nice to see you again. Have put them in this situation. And so when I laugh at that to say that, well, that's why Israel's still standing. Well, yeah, well, Israel didn't have to take this path. Israel could have been a cosmopolitan, multi-ethnic country. It had that ability, but it didn't take that path.
When did it have that ability? When did it have that
Lebanon tried
ability?
that. It didn't really work out
Before
for
it
them.
expelled the Palestinians.
Wait, when?
Lebanon didn't expel the
Wait,
Palestinians.
wait, when did Israel have the ability to be a multi-ethnic paradise?
Before it started ethnic cleansing.
Stop. Sorry. Wait. No. Like, okay. Wait. There's a very niche period in the British Mandate between 20. I think, Aris, you can correct me on this. 1925, 28. Between that period, when Britain tried to set up a national assembly system where there was basically like one national assembly would be Arab and the other one would be 50-50 Jewish and Arab. I think the Arabs. Wait. So just let me finish a fucking sentence. Like the Arabs initially said no. I think they were. Maybe it was the one where they were close to considering, but then the Zionist side said no, and then it was never going to fucking happen. But yeah, anyway. But yeah, there was one period where there could have been a binational one-state solution.
I'm making a large argument.
There is not
I'm
one
saying
period.
that
It is
there
not
have
true that there was
been
one
multiple.
That is
That
something
like
happened in 2018. Something very noticeable.
Wait, hold on. Let Prime. Wait. Hold on. Wait. Real quick. Wait. Okay. Wait. Let Prime go, then Quibble, then go, and then we'll go from there. Okay, go.
Quibbles, you need to chill with the Japanese too, brother. Just
Well, hold on. Quibble's barely gotten any of his own time to talk. To be fair, okay. Prime go, and then Quibble go.
I've given him time as well. Prime go for it.
Okay, I'm saying there's a chain of events here. I'm saying that when you say that Israel is standing because of all these military actions, that gives the impression that this was the only path. That they must have taken this brutal path to still be existing. I'm saying along the way there have been political decisions, right? Many of them, hundreds of them, thousands of them. Where there was a different path, right? That could have put us in a more equitable situation. We haven't taken that, and here we are. So to say that, like, well, Israel's still standing, well, the path that it took led to October 7th, right? Now, I condemn the Hamas attack, right? I condemn like the slaughter of civilians, all that, done, right? But like, let's understand this. What was it? So in 2018 to 2019, in Gaza, they had the March of Return, right? It was a peaceful protest. Exactly what people were saying that you got to do. Tens of thousands of people participated in those. What was Israel's response? It had snipers lined up on the wall of Gaza shooting at the civilians. Like 200 plus people.
Can we say the first point?
Excuse me. Shut up. Knock
what
it
year
off.
was this in?
Hold on. 2018 to 2019. It was like.
Can you provide a source for like snipers explicitly targeting civilians in that protest?
I can
when the
absolutely
UN investigated, only 2 of 498 were found to have been a
Can we
threat to
stay
the
on the
soldiers.
first
So
point?
Yeah. Hold on. I'm
I'm
gonna.
asking, when was
Shut
there
up,
a time
Quibble.
when they had
Quibble.
choice?
Shut the fuck
Go
up.
for it.
Quibbles, let
Thank
him
you.
finish.
So,
Prime, wrap it up so
there
Quibbles
was
can reply.
the Great March of Return, right? So 2020, the response was those civilians were shot at. Okay, and then the UN puts a report in 2015 that says by 2020 Gaza will be uninhabitable. Right, that's a UN report. And now in 2023, when nothing happens, right? When the indignities and the lack of resources and the lack of employment and the lack of care festers for this long, then October 7th happened. It shouldn't have happened the way it did. Absolutely not. But these are all from political decisions, a chain of events. So I condemn that chain of events. That's what I'm saying. Done.
Nobly Vans. Quibbles, go ahead.
You just said like 15,000 things. I'm not going to respond to
I
all
said
of them.
like
I know
3 of
Eris
them.
is already. I
Prime,
know
let him
Eris
talk.
is already looking up the thing where you said that they targeted civilians. It's obviously not true. I'm sure Eris is looking it up though. So the broader point is when you make this claim that Israel had this option, this moment in its history where, oh my God, it could have totally have been all kumbaya and lovey-dovey and everything would have been great. And you're talking about 48. You're talking about a time when a bunch of literal Holocaust survivors literally left the camps and literally on foot walked all the way to Israel in some cases, okay, and were literally still in their stripes from Auschwitz. Okay, you're talking about a time when upwards of 900,000 people across literally every single other country in the entirety of the Middle East, okay, were forced from their homes, okay, to go into this one tiny location, okay, 1/4 of the amount of land in all of Israel proper and also the West Bank and also Gaza, 1/4 as much land as the land that was stolen from them across the rest of the Middle East, okay? You're talking about those people who were immediately, as soon as they declared independence, okay, attacked by literally every single neighbor that they have. The idea that they had this moment for kumbaya is just on its face absurd, and you should be ashamed of
Quibbles,
yourself.
are you saying that the Jew?
Yeah,
Are you
go fuck
wait,
yourself.
sorry, are you referring to the Jewish Exodus? Because that happened after independence, not
Yeah.
before.
It
Wasn't it?
happened
And it was over like a
directly after.
30-year
It was
period.
very clear that it was already on that trajectory.
No, wait. So, do you think so?
It was
Holocaust
already-
survivors,
There were
Holocaust survivors who are
multiple
still
exoduses.
so Holocaust survivors who are still in their
Yeah, but
stripes.
the
Do you think that's
number
do you think
he's
that's like an accurate characterization of like
Yes.
the
Yes.
standard Israeli who was there in 48?
Yes. When many
Okay.
of the not by 48, they weren't literally in their stripes. They were obviously still people who were escaping the Holocaust in 48. But yes, they are.
Yeah,
it
and
is
some of them
literally
were
true.
armed, and some of
Very
them were
large number
terrorists
of
who attacked the British, and some of them committed
It is-
massacres.
it
And dare you say,
literally-
yeah, okay,
I
yeah.
don't think
The
I
number
don't
of
think it's
terrorists and the number of
productive.
Holocaust
Wait,
survivors
I don't
are
think it's
not equivalent
productive
numbers.
to argue that Israel's foundation or the way it was created was ethical. The creation of the majority of countries is usually a very unethical process, right?
The
That's why
question of whether it's
most
ethical
countries
is a different
have
question.
issues with it,
But they
right?
had an
So
option of
yeah, I
kumbaya.
understand. Right?
Oh, wait,
That's a
hold on,
very
I'm
harsh
sorry,
way to talk
hold
about
on, I'm
Holocaust
sorry.
survivors.
Just a real quick, hold on, real quick fact check, okay? Something from I'm wrong. My understanding is in 1948, the vast majority of Jewish people that are in Israel were absolutely not World War II Holocaust survivors. Those people didn't start immigrating into Israel en masse until after Israel won the initial 48 War for Independence. So the initial people there were, we would call them settlers, right? Or people brought in under the auspices of British, the Palestinian Mandate. Okay, all right.
From where?
So there's a point.
Well, from where? From all of Europe, from the United States,
There-
and people from all over the
hold on.
yeah.
There's something really important because I actually kind of disagree, Eris. I think it is actually important to talk about the founding
Oh my
of
God.
Israel, because I think the founding of Israel is likely one of the more peaceful nation states founded in the world. You have the Jordanian mandate. You have, obviously you have like French mandate and, Lebanon and stuff, but like from the British, you have the mandate for Jordan, you have a mandate for Palestine, you have a mandate for Israel. All of these, this area is kind of simultaneously promised to three people. You have Jewish Zionist movement that is mostly socialists coming in and collectivizing money so that they can buy land, as well as individual Jewish Zionists. And yes, there are scuffles. There are Jews coming in, taking public land that may or may not be there. Well, no, it starts off as scuffles, right? There are absolutely Palestinian Arabs that move to areas that moved to areas where Jews move, because everywhere that Jews moved in Israel was an area where the population increased because they gave these people jobs and they made the land more arable. And yes, then you have things like the Jaffa riots that really kick off tensions between these groups. And yes, you have the British doing things. But another thing that's important to recognize is, Destiny says, well, look, these, fairly, because Quibbles is like, invoking imagery of everybody being like a Holocaust survivor in there, which is a little bit.
The Haganah were still in their stripes.
Right?
Sorry.
Yeah. Right, but the other thing that's important to note is that the other thing,
true.
The Haganah?
Yeah,
were
sure.
the Haganah
like
still in their stripes when they
0.1%.
were killing people in the fucking? I'm sorry. No. I know that's not true. Is it?
So
Is it?
Many people.
Listen,
Listen,
okay,
it is also
what
important.
I think he's referring to
I'm
is
almost
in.
done. It is almost. It's so close. So listen. It's also important to note.
Understand, I feel like the
there-
leftists here should really
it's
give him
also important to
reparations in the
note-
form of extra
it was-
time to talk as
it
king
was
of the
also-
patriarchy.
It was also important to note that when we talk about Holocaust survivors, it was the British that had established the white papers in 1939 that made it incredibly difficult for Jews and Zionists that were escaping growing tensions in Europe to go to Israel where they could buy fucking public land.
I agree. Open borders are
they were
based. We shouldn't
forced
have
to
an
do it.
ethno state that keeps people out of like coming into that
Okay, so
country.
then
That would
stop
be really
trying to
bad,
stop
right?
the Jews from moving into West Bank. If you believe that, stop trying to stop the
Oh my
Jews.
god.
Wait,
Yeah, I agree.
Quibbles,
That's
Quibbles,
the only
if you want to go
reform you
back
would
to
make.
that, if you want to
Jews
go,
out of
Oh my
Gaza.
god.
Quibbles, if you want to go
Don't
back to
kick the
that,
Jews out of
Quibbles, if you want to go back to
Sinai,
that
if you think
argument,
that.
if you want to go back to that argument about assuming that not wanting settlers to go to the West Bank is just an ethnic argument, if you were actually asking that question in good faith, you could just say, okay, let's say assume the West Bank is a state. Should Jews be allowed the right to immigrate there? You could ask me that, and I'd say, yeah, they should be. Of course, they should be allowed to. No one's entitled to an ethno state, but you're not going to ask that because you just want to assume that. You're not isolating the variable. The problem with Jewish settlers going to the West Bank is that it's occupied territory, not because they're fucking Jewish. Jesus Christ.
Is Gaza occupied territory?
Legally, according to some organizations, yes, because of the blockade and the control of the
I'm asking
airspace.
you.
But
I'm asking
In
you.
what- in what-
Is it controlled
so
by Israel? Currently?
yeah,
Yeah,
the
the
borders
answer for
are the
Gaza is
population
clearly yes.
registry,
The
the
answer is clearly
airspace,
yes.
the border. Yeah,
Yes, it is.
yeah. So quite a lot of.
Yes, because they control the border.
The pop-
No,
and the
the
pop-
day-to-day life
Wait,
is
mate,
controlled by the dictatorship of
They
Hamas.
control the
hold
population
on.
registry. They control who goes in and out. They control what goes in and out. They control the maritime border, the
Hold
airspace.
on, hold on, wait. Regardless of that, regardless of that, Israel has literally gone to war at least twice over the closure of the Suez Canal for Egypt. Okay, so Israel clearly recognizes, along with the rest of the world, that blockades are a casus belli for going to war. That is a reason, a cause for war. So if you're having a total
Okay, so
blockade on a
blockades are
population.
occupation?
In a way, yes, of course. If it's an extended blockade where you're controlling everything going in and out of a certain population, right, is essentially an occupation, yes.
An occupation. So did we? Okay, that is a very interesting view. So you think that anytime that you blockade someone,
It's
that's
not an
occupation.
interesting view. You're just getting fucking. You're just quibbling as your name
The
suggests.
blockade
over
is
the
one of
fucking
like
term.
5 variables that makes an occupation. That's okay. Yeah.
It's
I think
maybe
the
a
idea that any
necessary but
blockade is an
insufficient
You're
occupation.
condition.
spurging over the language instead of the issue.
Particularly when the
Whoa.
blockade in this particular case is not even done exclusively by
What did that have to
Israel.
do
It's
with?
also
I was
done by
asking you about settlers. I'm sorry, but like, can you
So
still not
I
understand?
don't even
Sorry,
know
I
what
want
you
you
guys
to.
are talking about right now. Everyone's
If
just
you're
jumping
talking
around.
about Gaza, which is a place that is an ethno state, which has forced out all of its Jews, or excuse me, rather, Israel has forced out all of the Jews who are living in Gaza, right? In order for Hamas to take over, because they were concerned, they correctly were understood that if Gaza were under the control of Hamas, immediately every single Jew who was living in Hamas-controlled Gaza would be killed, right? Given that, they forced out all of the Jews. So I'm asking, do you think that that was an appropriate action for Israel to do?
What, to remove the settlers from Gaza?
Yeah.
In and of itself, I think it was probably the right thing to do, but not the way that they did it. No,
Why?
the unilateral disengagement was a bit
Why was it
fucking
right?
cringe.
Why was it the right thing to do?
Because they were there illegally.
Wait,
Okay,
they
we
were
can move
there
on, it's fine.
illegally?
Yeah, they were there
No,
illegally.
hold on. Let's not move on. They were there illegally. So you think that? Hold on. So you think
my
that the
God.
Jews should be kicked out because they were against Hamas law?
Either
It's
way,
not
I think we've
against-
established that ethnic cleansing
internet-
can
nobody's
happen
okay.
for the sake of peace,
No,
right?
Okay. If you were
Quibbles,
inside
you're
somebody's
ethnic-
internationally defined territories, undocumented, illegally, or any other way, all countries would kick them out. The United States does it, Canada does it, Germany does it, every other
Okay.
country in the world
You
does
think
it.
that it's
Why do the
appropriate-
Palestinians not have the right to do that?
Okay, so do you think it is appropriate? Like everyone here seems to be like, "Ooh, let's do open borders," right? Do you think that it is appropriate for Jews to move back into
No.
into Gaza now?
For Jews to move back into Gaza is probably not a smart idea. But are you talking about Israeli settlers or just
Should
like
they be
Jewish people?
permitted to do
Period.
it? No, I'm saying Jews, not Israelis.
Should they be
Jews.
permitted? Of course, they should be
Yeah, but let's be
permitted
clear,
to go
the
there.
people who are living
Yes,
there
of course,
prior,
Jews
the
should be permitted.
people who
But
are
when we're
living there-
talking about the pullback, the Israeli government pulled back the settlements.
Yes, they weren't Israeli settlements. They were Jewish settlements.
They were still illegal settlements.
Yeah, but we call
Right.
them Israeli because they're Jewish.
but
I think
the point is,
that's the point that he's trying to
Were the-
demonstrate,
were the
right?
No,
settlements
no, 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 wait, 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 wait. We call
They're
them,
not
hold on, wait,
Israeli.
wait. Let's be clear. We call them Jewish/Israeli settlements because the Jewish people going there are not like randomly stumbling into Gaza from some other part of the world. They're Israeli people that are moving from Israel to Gaza. That's what's happening. That's why they're considered Jewish/Israeli settlements, but that's why they're by Israel.
A huge
Okay,
portion of
there's a-
them, yeah. I would agree with you, but there was a consecutive Gazan Jewish presence that has been there for hundreds of years. That got
Yeah,
them
well,
There
out.
might
that's
be
different
some
than
Thing is,
the
everyone
very
has-
small.
I
There might be
supported
some very
that
small
move.
numbers. There might be some
Right?
very small numbers, but the issue is that the ownership of Gaza by Israel is not official territory, right? These are still armistice lines, right? So they don't really even 100% shouldn't even have control of that territory, but they do. They have a full embargo there. So the idea of Israeli citizens buying territory or moving into there is kind of just as reprehensible as the West Bank. It's weird to be buying and moving into a place, buying territory and moving into a place that you have like under military control, essentially.
Yeah, no.
So, so I
completely
thought
agree
the issue was that they
Oh,
were
oh,
extending
hold
the
on.
border, and that's why you guys would have issues with Israelis moving over there. But if they're just moving
it's
there
not
but
that. They
not
just don't like
extending
Is-
in any
they just
way,
don't like
then
Jews
how does this
living
make
within
sense?
Oh, do we
West
just
Bank
all
or
just
whatever.
don't
It
like
has nothing
Jews,
to
or
do.
what
Hold
do
on, wait. Where does hold on? The
No, you don't
anti-Semitism.
like Jews living in the West Bank or Gaza. That's different than you don't like Jews.
The problem
writ large.
isn't. Hold
I
on.
don't like
even.
Israeli
The problem
settlers
is not
in the
Jews.
Gaza Strip. What?
Yeah.
Why did the Jews? Why did the Israeli settlers go there? Did they just go there because
They aren't Israelis. They're Jews. That's my point.
No,
Tons
they're
of them were
coming from
Israelis. They went to
Israel.
Israel and
They're
then
coming
into the
from
Gaza Strip.
Israel.
They went Israel and then into the Gaza Strip. For
Steven,
what reason? To
when
build
you're
settlements.
talking, okay, when you're
Okay.
talking about these Jews, you are talking about people who are literally, explicitly refusing to join the Israeli military, refuse to vote in Israeli elections. You're talking about people who are radical Jews. They
Are
are
the
not
Amish not
radical
Americans?
Israelis. They're radical Jews.
That's
If you're
fine that
talking
you
about the-
say
if
that.
you're talking about the settlements, no, if you're talking about the settlements who are on the border of the West Bank, that's different than the ones that are inside of Gaza. They're not the same. To
it
call them
doesn't- it
Israelis
is-
is flatly wrong.
Do they enjoy protection from the IDF?
Everyone did. When
Hold
Gaza
on,
was under
hold on,
occupation,
wait. Okay, then in that
everyone
case,
did.
okay,
At that time-
okay.
Hold up.
I am about.
At
Oh, no,
that
hold on,
time-
let's clear this up. You just said everyone is. I will fully concede to you. Is there examples of the IDF shooting on Israeli settlers that are encroaching on Arab
Yes.
Palestinian property in the West Bank?
Yes, they forced out all 9,000 of these people from Gaza. Yes.
From Gaza, yes. They forced those out. That's not the same
Right.
as everybody there has equal protection and rights by the IDF. That's not true.
Equal protection is different than whether or not these people were Israelis.
No, they. Hold on. You can't be putting forth this argument in good faith, okay? The settlements let's talk about the West Bank. The settlements in the West Bank from
No, we're not
Jewish.
talking about the West Bank. We're talking about Gaza.
Okay, from Gaza,
I
and
think
it's
there's
easy.
some
Gaza is
miscommunication
occupied
going on.
territory. Those are armistice lines that were won militarily that aren't internationally recognized. Israel shouldn't be having people move into there. Full stop. Easy.
But Israel isn't. These are people. These are Jews. That's the point. They're not Israelis.
Who subsidizes the settlements?
Wait. Were they ever
They lived
recognized
there.
by?
They lived there the whole time.
Not the Israeli government. Certainly not
I
the
asked
Israeli
you in
government.
West Bank.
Jews
Who
do,
subsidizes the
but not-
settlements?
No, he's
We're not
asking.
talking about
West
West
Bank.
Bank. This is my point. We're talking about Gaza.
I actually don't know. I don't know who supported those settlements.
The answer is that
So,
it's private funding.
Eris, I was going to give you a response, and to
Usually
Quibbles, who
socialist
called me out.
charities.
No problem. Look, like I said, I brought up the March of Return in 2019, right? I put a link within the chat section here in this Discord to Haaretz. It shows it interviewing an IDF soldier who was there. He was.
Oh my
part of a
God!
sniper-
Stop. These are the worst things ever. Don't not the
No,
videos
hold
of the
on.
one
Wait a minute,
interview.
no,
Okay.
excuse me. Hold on. Let me respond, and you can respond afterwards, right? So he interviews them, and he talks about like how like what he was doing, and mostly they were targeting the knees of people who were part of this protest. Who were they targeting?
Okay,
They were
fine.
targeting
You've
major
convinced me that
insiders.
one individual
What makes a
soldier was
major?
an
Excuse me. Shut up. Hold on. Shut the fuck up. Thank you. What makes a major insider? A person who is like has their back to the wall, like the wall between Israel and Gaza, and who's holding a microphone or megaphone. That is a major insider. They 200 plus people were killed, 8,000 wounded. They were hitting ambulances. ambulances. They were when people came and got wounded. So this was a whole operation that happened over the course of a year and a half. So yeah,
Okay, if
this
you have a
happened.
source, if you have a source that extends beyond some random dude, okay, then I would like
I have
to hear
more.
it.
Sure,
If
I got
you
plenty
have
of those.
one
So,
random
one-
dude, then I'll condemn your one random
sure,
dude.
I got
Your
plenty
one
of them.
random
No
dude
problem. But
seems
I've
like a
just
joke.
given you a
Okay,
direct.
maybe
I've
he
given
should
you
go
a
to jail.
person who has got direct testimony of exactly what was happening, and
Okay,
an article
I
talking
like
about that
things
situation.
that are-
But I guess that's not good enough. No, I can give
Okay,
you another
I
one,
like
but you're
things-
Hold on,
bullshitting.
hold on,
me.
hold
You're
on, hold
fucking
on. Quibble,
He just
Quibble,
DM that to
Quibble,
me
wait.
because it's not loading for me.
I've got
So I can't-
evidence.
Shitpost-
I've got
yeah,
evidence. I've got evidence from insiders that prove that the American government has alien bodies.
Sure, no.
Why are we
And
doing
they
that?
work on these alien
I-
bodies.
Okay, hold on,
Don't
stop.
bullshit me.
Okay, wait, hold on. Okay, stop. Hold on. Okay, all right. Okay, Prime Kaiser's talking about the 2018 to 2019 Gaza border protests. Okay, this was the great. They call it the Great March of Return. Okay, like 3 different, 2 international organizations. Okay, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, and then B'Tselem or whatever, however the fuck you pronounce it, and UN officials all agree that IDF forces on the walls of this protest were basically shooting and killing protesters, probably for no good reason. I think there were about 500 killed. The IDF claims it is because they've been throwing rocks and shit. Most independent investigators said there was like 1 or 2 of those deaths that were just militarily. Seems like the IDF probably acted completely improperly there. Okay, that's yes.
Thank you.
Which protest we're talking
Yeah,
about?
just to give one of the
It's called
sources
the-
for
you
that.
can
Oh,
look
you
up for
don't, you don't know.
Google
Wait,
Google
Quibble,
the
ask
great
for
Google
sources.
the
What the
Google
fuck?
the I'm telling you, Google Great March of Return, okay, or 2018-2019 Gaza border protests, okay? There's several
This he doesn't
international
know.
organizations that have been doing this, okay?
Can I just
Wait, hold on,
correct?
this
I need
was-
to.
Hey,
I
it
wanna-
was-
This happened for a year and a half, and he doesn't know what it is.
I need
Amazing.
to correct something that happened
I
earlier.
asked which
The
thing you
original
were
settlements in
talking about.
Gaza
You were saying
were
a bunch of random
the
bullshit.
original settlements.
You
in-
weren't fucking listening. You
the-
were up your own ass. Sorry,
the
I'm done.
original.
So,
the-
Eris, the thing that I was yeah, go ahead.
the first proper settlements in Gaza after 67 were established by the Labour government, not by private owners anyway.
Well, and to speak to one thing, Eris, when I looked up the list of population, there's a wiki page for population settlements of the population statistics of the settlements in Gaza, and all of them seem to have been created in the 1970s or later. So maybe there was a community there that was then organized into the settlement. But
Well, yeah, I mean, these are all Jewish settlements, right? So like they get mushed together. They don't end up as separate settlements. So looking at it per settlement is just not going to get you anywhere. You have to look at it as individual Israelis, individual Jews in the region. But regardless, I completely agree with the pullout of Gaza ideologically. I don't know if I agree with it after the consequences of October 7th. But I certainly agreed with it when it happened. The point that I was trying to get across is that sometimes you have to do population exchanges for land for the sake of peace to prevent something that's far more harsh and far more dangerous. So it's also why it's somewhat disingenuous when you call Israel an ethno-state when basically every state in the Middle East operates off of demographics. Right, when we saw the consequence of those types of demographics on October 7th. So it's very strange to hyper focus on that when the entire reason why we removed Gazans from the area were because they were Jews. There was no investigation on like, okay, which one are you? Are you a descendant of this indigenous person, or no, did you come with this group, right? Or are you from this group? There was nothing. It was just Jews, you're gone. And I think that that's totally fine because I think that was deserved. That land should go to the Palestinians, right, for the sake of peace, and I do think that the West Bank should. But like this idea that somehow demographics and somehow like ethnicity is just like a unique thing that Israel cares about is just not true. It's a norm for the region, and it's a somewhat needed norm because of the historical animosity between different ethnic groups of the region.
I'm fucking confused because nobody's pushing back on the fact that she just said that it's the norm for the region to be like fucking ethnically based when like 99.9% of the
Q. Let's say Israel just rams fucking Jewish immigration for 20 years, and in 20 years there are 80% Jews living from the river to the sea, 80%, 20% Palestinian, and then they say, all right, we're going to free Palestine. It's a free Palestine from the river to the sea, one state, we all get voting rights. Would that be cool?
What if they just like displace all the Palestinians?
No. They just let them stay. But
Lauterbach is saying, what if so many Jewish people were in Israel that by the time that population blew up, such that if all of historic Palestine was then made one state, What if there were so many Jewish people there that Jewish people would still represent an 80% majority compared to 20% Arab Palestinians? If Gaza and the West Bank were incorporated into Israel proper and everyone was given equal rights, would you be okay with that?
That's exactly why they had a problem with the initial Zionist migration, right? Because it was changing the demographics of the region. And they had very good reason to be concerned about that.
Yeah, we need
Sure,
to
but
Karan's
what
answer
is
the
Q's
question.
answer to that?
Yeah.
Lunderbox, what is Q's answer to that? Would he be okay with that? If the demographics heavily favored Jewish people, such that 80% were Jewish, 20% were Palestinian Arab, would that be an okay one-state solution?
How the fuck is it being done is the question.
They all just
Right?
they just say
It
they
would
all
be done-
migrate
it would
to
be done
Israel.
by-
Just say they
it'd be
built
done
3
from
fucking
the most
massive
peaceful
cities and fill them with
Sure.
Jews. So
And
that there
Jews
are more
all over the
Jews than
world
Arabs
continue
from
to
the river to the
migrate
sea.
to Israel. Yeah.
And then they just say, okay, now it's one state. We'll call it Palestine. But there's like 80% Jews living there now.
Who gives a fuck as long as you're not killing the Palestinians?
You'd be okay
right?
with that?
Okay.
What?
Right.
Palestinians are not okay.
You
with that.
think the
They're not.
Palestinians would be
this
okay
is-
with that? With being that 20% minority in Palestine?
If it's first of all, if it's
I'm just going to
called
give the answer to you.
Palestine-
They would not be okay with it. They would be very
wait,
angry
The
with
majority
it.
of Palestinians will only accept a state where they have the majority control. That's a
Okay,
statistic.
a majority of Israeli Jewish people also support removing all Arabs from the country. It's like 40 to 50%.
Absolutely.
Wait, are you saying that's a Kahanis perspective? Are you saying the majority of Israelis are Kahanis?
Yeah, by the
Wait.
polling.
The polling data shows that I think around like 45 to 47% of people in Israel, or might even be a little bit over 50, support removing all Arab Palestinians from the region. However, an even higher percentage of Palestinians poll favorably. I think it's like 75% that action should continue against Israel, even if they had a one-state solution to continue to expel Jewish people from the region. So, I mean, like, both sides fucking hate each other.
Whoa.
Well,
Okay.
and to speak to that a little bit,
the thing that
one
is
of-
being
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Well, but fine. This idea that we shouldn't push back on this is I think we kind of already saw some of it, but it's really, really important to also understand the historical context in the sense that before Israel is even a state, right? The British are having to step in to separate and make it illegal for Jews to move into areas where they are afraid that there will be too many Jews in an area, which would thus make it a majority Jewish area. It is the British with the white papers that are intentionally making sure that Jews only settle in certain areas because of the historical fact
Sorry, we got one
that Aris and Loaderbox are discussing.
Wait,
thousand
wait,
viewers.
Fabian,
Where the
are
fuck
you
are the
saying
donuts,
that
you guys? Where's
the
the
fault of
subs?
this entire conflict
Where's the
between two
smash?
indigenous peoples fighting over land is actually the actual colonial
The
power,
colonized?
Britain, right?
I-
That
I-
both
I place
the
a
indigenous
large-
groups
I-
and the
I-
Wait,
British
hold up,
I-
hold
hold
up.
on,
Wait,
hold
hold
on.
on, real quick.
No,
Wait, hold on.
why?
Just real quick.
Fabian hasn't spoken
hold on.
enough.
Wait, because that was an insanely ridiculously that was a ridiculously pro-Zionist take. Britain did not materialize out of nowhere the desire to create Israel. Okay, this was through insanely aggressive, quasi-politically
Wait.
militant action by
was being
pro-Zionist people across Britain in order to get things like the Balfour Declaration to actually be declared so that they can have a place in Palestine carved out for them. That didn't come out of nowhere. It wasn't just Britain that did that, to be fair.
What do you mean have a place in Palestine carved out for them?
As in
Like,
Jewish
there's
Zionists,
no-
prior to the Balfour
Okay.
Declaration, were trying incredibly hard
What-
to get Britain to try to carve out some place that they could be moved to, that the Jewish people could have a country for, and it ended up being in the Middle East.
Sure. So what? Who is going to take over Palestine as Syria?
Palestinians, the people living there, the Arab Palestinians?
Okay. Oh, so the Palestinians whom have never had a king and have never had a ruler in that area.
Why does that
And have
matter?
never had a
Hold on,
government. in that
I'm sorry. But at the same time, from the 30s to the 40s, didn't the exact same thing happen in Syria and Iraq? Didn't literally both of those groups of people protest? Wasn't that the impetus for the 36 to 39 Arab revolts? Is that they saw other Arabs in the region revolting and then getting their own states? So if those guys could do it, why couldn't the Palestinians, the Arab Palestinians?
Right. The British promise people this power or these states of their own, so long as they work to overthrow the Ottomans, right? Like,
that
that's
was one of
the
the
deal.
promises made. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Like, so the deal
But I'm just
is
saying that
you
other
have
Arabs
local
that didn't
groups.
have their own individual states, I don't think the Iraqis or the Syrians didn't have their own individual states, but they managed to revolt against the British people that ran into the territory, and then they got their own states. So the Arab Palestinians probably thought they could have theirs too.
Right, but see, here's the thing: is that these people who have never had a king, never had a government, and never had power, the British said, you can have this area, an area in the region. And they said the same thing to the Jordanian monarchy. And they said the same thing to the Jews. And so the question is why is it specifically problematic for the Jews, but not for the other two?
Because the other two had already been there for hundreds and hundreds of years.
And the Jews were living in Judea. The Jews were living in Judea.
6,000 Jewish people in the region before
there were
the
Jewish.
movement.
There were Jewish Palestinians.
Right.
There were, but they were a smaller minority compared to the Arab population who lived there, right?
Yes, you're right. And also during the Roman Empire, you had roughly 2 million people living in a region. And after the diaspora, after they were forced out, those numbers dwindled to a few 100,000 all the way up until this time.
I totally agree. And if we want to do a panel, criticizing the Romans expelling Jewish people from Palestine, we can do that. But that's not what we're talking about right now. Right?
Okay.
The point is, you're trying to dismiss the idea of like why power and states were established in the region.
I'm not trying to dismiss it. I'm just saying that, listen, if you want to talk about like ultra historic people's rights to some land, that's fine, okay? But the difference is that the Arab Palestinians were already there. The Jews have already been expelled.
Thank you,
the Arab Palestinians have been living there for at least, 500
so
years
then,
at least, right?
Okay,
So, yeah.
So, Stephen, how long after you've been
generous.
ethnically cleansed from a region do you cease to have claims to that area? Do your descendants cease to have claims to that area?
I don't know how long it would be, but if you're already completely gone and another group of people is already there,
You're not
probably
completely gone. Careful, you're not completely gone.
They were
There's still
essentially
600,000 of you there. You're not completely gone.
Hold on. Wait. There were 600,000 Jewish Palestinians.
Yes.
6,000, not 600,000.
Stop. Hold on. Wait.
No.
The Al-Aqna, wait.
47 prior to the
not 47 before the Balfour Declaration.
Yeah, you guys are dealing with different time periods before the
Stop.
Zionist.
The whole of the Palestinian exodus, okay, in 48 was about 700,000 Arab Palestinians, okay? There's no way there were 600 Jewish Jewish Arabs or whatever there prior to Britain shipping to the land.
600,000 Jews.
No,
in 47 there were 600,000 Jews.
You're using different times.
We're talking about the Balfour Declaration because that's when Britain started allowing them to move in.
We're talking before Britain, okay? In like 1800 or whatever, there were like 6,000 Jewish people. 6,000.
What year? 1900.
Before Britain started bringing all of them in. That was the thing. That's why the Arab Palestinians were mad there. Is because Britain had a mandate on the territory, and then a whole bunch of Jewish people started moving in. That's why the people that had been there for hundreds and hundreds of years were getting upset, right?
It was like 2 to 3% of the population was Jewish in an area that even during Roman times could have supported 10 times the amount of people, right? This is kind of.
I want to know another reason why they're
upset. If your argument is that that the Palestinian people deserve a state because they live in the region, so that's the right to statehood, then why does that not apply to Jews that move there later? What right do people have to a state? Is it an ethnic right? Because if it's ethnic right,
hold on. We don't have to guess. The right is the UN Charter, okay, in the 40s said that a group of people living in an area, okay, have a right to self-determination. That they have a right to not be military infringement.
So then you're pro-state of Israel being established in this regard. Because the group of people live in an area.
Palestinians there, and they deserve the right to self-determination, and they also haven't been absorbed into other countries.
Yeah.
Right?
Also,
let's say we get to 1917, right? Let's say we get to. Let's say
but regardless, the main reason why they were upset, not just because of demographics issues, that the area in general operated pre-Israel, Palestine operated in a very feudal-like system that was a carryover from the Ottoman Empire. So all these, the majority of the Arab lands were not actually owned by those individual Arabs who were working the land. They were owned by these wealthy Arab landowners. Yeah. And what was starting to happen was wealthy Jewish groups or lots of fundings from Zionist groups over Europe would start buying the land, whereas the indigenous or Palestinian Jews, as you want to call them for this time period, were mostly poor, very religious, could not afford to do so. So they start buying all of this land from the rich Arab landowners, and then they start kicking the so-called serfs or peasants or whatever you want to call them who were working the land at the time, were mostly Arabs, right, off of the land in order to have Jews work the land instead, right? So That's how that operated, right? So legally, they were
Motorbox, you
technically correct,
smarmy
right? When it comes to
punk
like
bastard.
purchasing land on. I think we can all agree that morally, it's like pretty abhorrent. So they had complete right reasons for that. But regardless, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I really think when it comes to the current issue and the current situation of what's going on, discussing the details of this history is somewhat irrelevant.
Agreed.
And which feels like a lot coming from me, but it's somewhat irrelevant, right? Like when we're trying to actually talk about what's going on with Israel and what's going on with Palestinians, because Palestinians are very divided themselves on how to look at the past regardless. So right now you have a country, the country of Israel, which is an established country, recognized by the majority of the world, right? That is a U.S. and major Western ally. It is a Western liberal democracy. Okay, it participates in liberal Western traditions of freedom of press, religion, LGBT rights. Okay, it's the only country in the region that releases private documentation to scholars every 20 or 30 years, which is something I'm personally really passionate about. Okay, and you could say that these things are irrelevant. They are not irrelevant, right? It's an established nation, right? And even the nations around that are not democratic have a right to exist, right? If you believe in any country has the right to exist. If you're an anarchist, fine, you can be consistent. So I'm just saying that Israel's existence is right now. No, okay, 1 second. I'm gonna finish.
You weren't here.
Give me some reparations as a leftist. Come on. Okay, so I mean, for being a woman. When it comes to looking at this entire thing, you have to understand that Israel's entire existence, this is an Arab-Israeli conflict from an Israeli's perspective, right? So Israel's entire existence is it is literally hanging by a thread right now. And this is how every Israeli feels, no matter how extremely lefty, no matter how much they've fought for Palestinian rights regardless. So this is something that you have to consider. How do you think the United States is going to react if they think that their entire country might get wiped off the map tomorrow?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so here's the problem. And I'm going to ask this question to you all. Was South Africa a democracy during apartheid? Was the United States a democracy during American apartheid, during Jim Crow? You have hold on. I literally just started talking.
Quibbles, let him cook. Frank, go ahead.
Go for it.
Well, to be fair, you asked the question and then got mad when he
I
answered.
I don't understand why you ask a question if you don't want to answer.
Hold, shut up, Quibbles. Obviously, I was continuing talking. You can answer after I've done talking. You get this. Shut the fuck up. Thank you. Any which way. So yeah, when you have a portion of your population, ethnic minority, a large ethnic minority, who cannot fully participate within that society. What people need to understand is that during apartheid, during South African apartheid, during American apartheid, that this is not a passive thing, simply laws that exist in the air. And people just like exist in this atmosphere and just go by it. It's an active kinetic thing. So the population takes part in denying people their rights, enforcing those racial laws. So what I'm saying is that, like, you can say that, in Israel you have a vote. True. Yes, they have.
What racial laws does Israel
have
against Israeli Arabs?
Hold on, Eris, please. You can say that they have a vote.
You're making an analogy.
Shut up! Shut the fuck up! You can't do that. You can't accomplish that. Shut the fuck up.
Bro.
Thank you. Anyway, I'm
Why
literally almost done. I've
is
been
he
quiet
so
this
mad?
entire time. So shut up. Thank you.
Let him cook.
So you can say that they
He's not
have
like
these
this
structures,
usually, is he?
and they do have
What's
those
going
structures.
on?
But if those structures don't actually aren't open to the people, right, to millions of individuals, when they're locked out of that, is that actually a democracy? Is a mockery of that? So this gets trotted out. Israel is the only liberal democracy in this area. I say that's actually a lie. If you look at how it runs, right, how it enforces its laws brutally, then it certainly is not. So I want to ask
the same argument for the United States.
Hold on,
Okay,
I was like
We've
one
heard,
sentence.
we've heard it.
I
You've
was
said
one
the whole
sentence.
thing. We've
I
heard
was
it.
one sentence from finishing. So shut the fuck up. I'm going to say that sentence. So
You said
once
that
again,
15 seconds ago.
right, shut the fuck up. Thank you, dumbass.
Come on. Okay, Pride, please.
So
wrap
just
it up
my
and
last
let-
sentence. So I'm just saying, was the American apartheid during that? Were we a democracy? Was South Africa during that apartheid? Were they a democracy?
I've heard your
There you
question. You're just repeating yourself. I've heard the
Just
question.
saying, I am the
Here's
apartheid
response to your
queen. I feel like
question.
I'm an authority here.
Here's the response to the question. Are you ready? Cool. Okay. If you're talking about the West Bank, obviously that is an occupation, and obviously it is not democratic. If you're talking about Gaza, obviously that is a dictatorship of Hamas, and so no, it is not democratic. You're talking about Area A of the West Bank, which is controlled by the Palestinian Authority. Obviously, that has not been elected either for a very long time. Therefore, that also is a dictatorship, a much better dictatorship than Hamas, but still a dictatorship. If you're talking about Israel proper, okay, in Israel proper, 20% of people in Israel proper are Arabs. Okay, there's an Arab on the Supreme Court currently. There's another prior. Okay, there is as a proportion, larger number of Arabs who are in the Knesset than there have ever in the history of the United States been Black people in our Senate. Okay, it is also true that there's a larger number of Arabs as a proportion of the society. But like the idea that it's not a democracy, okay, is silly. Are there problems? Absolutely.
It's a very flawed democracy, just like the United States.
Yes.
This all or nothing thinking.
Democracy doesn't mean perfect. It just means yes, it is a democracy, right? It's just a yes or no. Hamas is not, right? Fatah is not, right? Lebanon, right? There are other places around this that are not, but yes, Israel is a democracy inside of Israel proper.
It's also relatively.
Lebanon
you need
is
to think relatively compared to the other countries in the region. It's insanely democratic, right? And I'm like a fucking massive critic of Israeli policy and the Israeli government, right? There's a lot of structural racism within Israel, just like there's a lot of structural racism within the United States or Canada. There's a lot of dark past, but that doesn't mean they lose their democracy card. That doesn't mean that they suddenly don't get any credit for the fact that they're the only Middle Eastern country that releases their documentation openly to scholars every 20 years. I have never gotten any documentation open from Jordan. Why don't they give it? Egypt doesn't give it either. These things are relevant, right? These things are relevant. We should care about this.
I'm just saying.
I don't know why, because there's flaws that they somehow just lose that card. It's just such a strange idea.
A massive military occupation that's lasted for decades, right? That's killed thousands of people. That's displaced. Yeah, I know. I get that you acknowledge that flaws exist. I'm getting that. I'm just like remembering what the flaw is. It isn't that places are being gerrymandered. That's not the flaw, right? The flaw is a massive.
Wait, I thought America was committing a genocide against trans people.
Okay.
That's always what
I'm just gonna say. Sorry, just for Prime. Sorry, the reason people call Israel apartheid is not because like they're saying it's like South Africa exactly, like it's an apartheid state. They say it because the occupation has made the state so embedded in Palestinian affairs, especially in the West Bank, with the settlements and with the fact that they've already annexed parts of it. They clearly have ambitions to annex more. Is that they already live in a one-state reality, and if you think of it in that way, then it's if it's functionally kind of just like one state anyway, then that's why they see it as apartheid, because that's where you actually do have unequal rights. That's the argument they would generally make. But I don't know if I agree with that 100%.
They should accept one of these fucking deals and govern themselves.
Well, which deal should the Palestinians have accepted?
Fucking one of them.
Which one?
Okay.
Wow.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
Which one?
37, 38,
fucking 67. You know what I mean? Fucking one of them.
67. What? 67 when they told 67 when they told fucking Egypt to take Gaza and Jordan to take the West Bank back. The Palestinians should have accepted that. Okay, someone else.
You're never gonna.
I just want to say the only reason why we know that Israel committed an ethnic cleansing in 1948 is because they released their documentation. To this day, Jordan has not released any of their documentation about what they've done.
Is that good?
Jordan left Black September, right?
These are the norms of the region. So when you use these terms and you don't apply them equally, it seems really strange.
I am
a lot of places in the Middle East are not democracies. They suck.
Is Egypt a Holocaust state?
I don't. So
is Egypt a Holocaust state?
So Loner, I have no idea about the history of Egypt, so I literally cannot tell you.
They forced out more Jews than Germany.
That's great. I mean, that's
are
awful.
They a Holocaust?
Excuse me, that's awful. Excuse me. That's
wait, hold on, wait. Egypt killed more Jews than Germany?
No, not killed. Forced out a larger number as a percentage of their Jews than did Germany.
Okay, wait. Hold on, wait.
Call it the Holocaust a larger number as a larger number percentage of their population. That's a way different statement.
You're sneaky as fuck with your points.
I meant percentages. I apologize. I meant percentages.
A lot of countries have really fucked up ethnically bigoted stuff in their past. The argument that we're getting here is that Israel continues to have fucked up ethnically bigoted stuff right now.
Yeah, I don't sign on to what Lorna Black says.
Surrounding it, though, right?
if you're going
I
to make a
don't-
comparison,
Like
here
3 people are
with
talking.
apartheid,
I just want to be.
This is
I just want to be
incomprehensible.
clear that
Yeah,
I don't
please,
sign on
one
to
at a
No one
time.
can hear you.
Quibbles, take it
Please
Please
easy.
stop speaking.
Yeah,
If you're
both
gonna
of
make
you,
the
one at
comparison-
a time. Yeah, go
Okay,
ahead.
if you're going to make the comparison to apartheid in relationship to the West Bank, I think that may be somewhat legitimate if you are likewise willing to make the comparison of Ethiopia or Iran or any number of places across both in Northern Africa and also the Middle East, which forced out as a percentage of their Jewish people a larger percentage than did Poland or Germany.
I agree.
That's
I
not
agree.
apartheid. That would
Okay,
be
I
like
agree.
removal.
What
That
is
would be
the rest
that would be
of-
persecution
I
or
just
ethnic
say
cleansing.
the
That wouldn't be
rest-
apartheid.
I don't know that history. but
Does
I
anyone
think
in
that's
this
right.
chat
What would be
support
closer
ethnic
to
Okay,
cleansing?
apartheid is
hey, one at a fucking time. What
It's
the
not a
fuck?
matter of whether or not it's not a matter of whether or not you support ethnic cleansing. It's a matter of whether or not you're willing to condemn with the same level of forceful terminology the ethnic
100%.
cleansing of the rest of the Middle East.
What, the Middle
as
East
you're
in the
talking
40s?
about the-
You think I would
There
support
is
the
a
Middle
lot
East in the
Some argument,
40s?
though.
There is the ongoing to great.
It's not a matter of whether you're
A lot of those places
and-
were monarchist fuck. Oh my
there
god.
is the ongoing to great conflict doesn't get any attention within the Western media, and
Uh-huh.
thousands of people are dying. And it's an ethnic cleansing campaign. I condemn that just as much. I want to bring more attention to that. So I'm 100% with you that a lot more countries need to be condemned, and I'm certainly willing to condemn America. So I don't know what this argument is. So like I disagree with Lorna Box talking about Israel's a little different from South Africa. I think actually the structures that we see in South Africa are very much mirrored within Israel, at least within the West Bank. So I'm actually perfectly comfortable.
It's a very clear difference, right? It's not based on a racial group, it's based on a national group, right? I don't have the same rights as you in the United States.
Yeah. Sorry, excuse me.
When I go to the United States, I don't have freedom of movement, right? I don't have the right to do a bunch of things. So am I being discriminated? Is that apartheid against me as a Canadian citizen?
You have the freedom of movement within the United States. What are you talking about?
I don't think
Well, she's not a citizen.
Canadian.
She's
No, we're talking
Canadian,
about. It's a
though.
bit different
Yeah,
when you're
she's
talking
a
about
filthy
people
Canadian,
living in their
like,
homes,
that's
right?
okay.
Like in their
But you can-
homelands.
But when you're
Yeah.
in the United States, you can freely move in the United States.
What she's
And-
saying is
Oh,
there are
the
restrictions.
reason
No,
why
no.
it's different is I would call it an illegal occupation, right?
Constitution
That's like
extends
a
to
much
them.
better descriptor than apartheid, right?
the
Because
Supreme
Arabs
Court-
within Israel are treated on the whole equally. So it's
No,
just
the-
dishonest. It's
Are they?
Hold on.
so dishonest to what happened in
That's
South
bullshit.
Africa.
Bullshit. Okay, so one, the
So-
Constitution extends to people within America, right? So even if you're not a citizen, you still have rights. You still have protected rights. So let's put that aside. Talking about
Is that
Israel,
true?
right?
Non-citizens have the same rights as American citizens? I don't
Not
believe
the
that's
same.
true.
Not the
The
same.
Constitution
No.
does extend to them. Yes, they do.
I'm just
They
saying
don't
I don't
have all the
believe
same
so.
rights.
The
No, there
apartheid-
are
They
lots of
have,
things you
they have
can't do.
freedom
How
of
does
Stay
it
on
can't
top
work
of
with a
it.
occupation? It
Stay
just
on
doesn't
top of
legally
it,
work
guys.
together.
It could,
Stay on
prime.
So-
Even the people who make the apartheid argument are not saying it's analogous to apartheid South Africa. They're calling it
Lots of
apartheid.
people
They're
make
calling
that
it apart. No, they're fucking retarded. They're calling it apartheid because it's a crime. That's why they're referring to international law against the crime of apartheid.
No,
That's
I'm
what they're
talking
saying.
about
Yes,
the
it is.
actual structures.
That's what
Corner
no.
box. Okay, well, all right. I'm making my argument. That I don't care about their argument. That I'm making my argument.
I'm just-
right?
okay,
So if you
that's
think it's
fine.
just me, that's fine. I'm saying that, like in apartheid, for instance, they gave you passes, right? And those and every one of the blacks, right, had to carry these passes, and the passes determined your movement. If you were the wrong age, or like I don't know, your birthday was wrong, what the fuck, like you couldn't go this place to point A or rather point B. The same thing is true within the West Bank, right? They have checkpoints all over the place to break up commerce, to break up movement, and they don't allow people to move around. They have separate roads, right? They have the Jewish
And
roads,
the country-
the highways, and then the dirt.
Call it an occupation.
Separate IDs as well.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just saying
That's
that's
weird. I have
really
a
good.
different
That's your.
passport
That's
than
really
most
good.
Americans.
That's really
I
good.
wanna
That's your
dispute
take, Prime. But I'm just saying the steel man. That
Yeah,
actually makes
okay,
sense to say.
excuse me. Then I edited.
Oh
then
my
I'm
God.
sorry.
Was I like 3 words into a
Like I
sentence?
said previously.
Wait, Prime,
That's so
Prime,
rude of
Prime.
me.
Let Loader. Prime. Let Loader go.
So the steel man of people calling it apartheid, and the reason B'Tselem and Amnesty and Human Rights Watch call it apartheid is because they're referring to it being a crime under international law, and because the crime of apartheid has not been recognized that many times since South Africa, it's got quite a lot of wiggle room for interpretation. But what they generally refer to is it's the practice. It's like a practice that happens under territory that they have a level of control of. And I think the level of control they have under the occupation is enough that it's like quite similar to it happening as if it would under one state. That's the argument they give anyway.
Lona Box, how does that level of control? What are the mechanisms for those control? Can you explain those mechanisms to everyone?
What mechanisms? What the apartheid mechanisms?
You're saying that, yeah, you're saying that there's a level of control within the West Bank, right? And because of this control, like people call it apartheid, right? So what are those mechanisms that people are?
So
like,
even in Israel proper, I think there's a law where I think the nation state law was kind of where why B'Tselem kicked off with it. I think the checkpoint system and like the policy of like generally like Hafrada, I think it's called, and then more even in Israel proper, you could argue there's a law which allows developers to reject people's rights to build up property in certain areas if they think for ethnic reasons, just on the grounds of ethnic reasons. And they would say that like falls under the legal definition of a system implemented with the intent to maintain like a domination of one group over the other.
Sure. Yeah. Can you describe the West Bank? Because that's what I asked you about.
Well, yeah, the West Bank would probably be the splitting up of communities. The fact that an Israeli can drive like through Israel and the West Bank without having to like go through checkpoints, or the fact that there's like some towns there are even like separate road systems for Israelis and Palestinians. And I think you could also make the argument that the unequal distribution
and Israelis aren't allowed to go on certain roads too.
Yeah, that's why it's called apartheid. Apartheid. Yeah. And then there's also the unequal distribution of rights to develop land and to build on land in West Bank. That's like a big one because I think Israelis get approval quite a lot for building in their parts of the West Bank, and Palestinians get very low rates of approval. So yeah, there you go.
Okay. Yeah. And
I think the issue is that when you
like the level of violence by the state against civilians, correct? Right. The fact that the settlers, right, can enact that violence, and there be like no way, like civil way, for Palestinians to get remuneration or anything like that, right? Like that would be.
I do think you have some options for recourse as a person of the West Bank if you're attacked by a settler. I don't think it's just like they can just murder anyone.
Literally.
Well, it is true that Well, it's true that you can't just like indiscriminately murder anybody. It does seem to be the case that there's a history of IDF soldiers killing civilians. It gets investigated, even by the Israeli military. They determine that improper actions happen, that somebody's killed indiscriminately, and then the punishments for the soldiers are unbelievably soft sometimes, like to the course of like 1 or 2 years of like you're either suspended or like in jail for less than a year for like murdering civilians.
Yeah, and also the fact that like if you're like an outposter, you might even have more rights than someone who lives in the West Bank.
Yeah. I think we can all agree that the consequences should be much more severe, right? Israel has a lot of work to do in how it treats a lot of its populations, right?
Yeah.
Using the term apartheid is something that I disagree with. I do agree that it could become apartheid, and there's, especially with the national law that happened in 2018. I think that it's getting much closer there.
So one sentence. All I'm saying is that like if you don't agree, one sentence.
Incredible. One sentence. You cannot.
Okay. Both of you are getting fucking muted. What the fuck? You guys fucking stupid. Prime, chill out, man. Let Quibbles talk, by the way, please.
Okay.
Go ahead, Quibbles.
Okay. The frustration that I have is that when people call it apartheid, they are by definition calling the entirety of it Israel, right? So you can't simultaneously believe that the West Bank is not part of Israel and also call it apartheid, right? It's, if you want to call it an occupation, valid, but there's a difference between occupation and apartheid. Apartheid requires that it's the same country.
No, it doesn't. Not legally.
What? No.
That's why it's illegal. That's why it's an appeal to a legal definition. The crime of apartheid. The crime of apartheid does not need to happen in your own country. Okay.
All I want to say is
it just needs to be a system. It doesn't need to be like one state.
Okay. In order for it to, in order for something to be legally considered legit, right, there also has to be legal precedents. So what legal precedents has there been where a country has been guilty of apartheid against non-citizens?
Well, that's why I said there's a lot. That's
people who are non.
Well, that's why I said that there's quite a lot of wiggle room in it, because there hasn't been much precedent, right? That's why. But that's why
I think also
because Israel is unique in this situation, right? That like this form of like extreme occupation for an extremely long period of time, something that we have very rarely seen. I don't know, like what East like Indonesia, maybe. I don't know any other.
Most countries literally just genocide or kill those populations instead of do this, right? So and that was you can look at all of those in situations. So I don't understand what you expect in a lot of these situations. A lot of times Israel's Israel's back is completely against the wall from their perspective. And that's why, like, I always ask, like, what do you expect them to do? Because I had a lot of expectations. I was a leftist Israeli, right? Just like the majority of the Israelis that got killed on October 7th, right? I had a bunch of, you stop rolling your eyes. That's so disrespectful.
I will absolutely
right?
not do that. I will not do that. I'm gonna roll my fucking eyes. Thank you. God, you know that.
So
What the fuck?
I know, like, so from the UN Charter, the crime
So
against
what happened?
humanity of
She's not
apartheid.
finished.
How dare you just roll your eyes like at that
I will
situation?
do that. I will
Okay.
do whatever I want with my face. You don't control
How
that.
dare you,
I'm
Scott.
sorry.
And
You don't get to
call you
colonize my
out
face.
Let them
for
play
making
the
fun of like
victim
the
card.
largest killing of Jews since the
Let
Holocaust.
them
Yeah,
play the
okay.
victim card. Go.
Yeah, stop trying. Stop knocking it
Okay.
off. So from the UN Charter,
I was
right?
in the
The
middle of a
crime, the
sentence.
crime against humanity of apartheid is capable of being committed during an occupation that is governed by
She
international
was in the middle of a
humanitarian law.
sentence.
First Article
Yeah, she
3 of
wasn't
the International
finished.
Convention.
She was
of the
literally in the
Elimination
middle of a
all-
Yeah.
sentence.
She was not
Okay.
finished.
She attacked me. She was in the middle sentence of attacking me. So then
Because
I
you
stepped in. So
rolled
shut
your
up.
And you
eyes
not
and
attack
Yeah, and I will
talking
roll
about
my
This is
eyes
not
being
meta
again.
shit.
killed.
This is
You
not meta shit.
colonize
Just
my eyes.
okay.
All
Stop
right,
messing
all
with
right,
me.
all
No,
right,
no,
all
no.
right, all right. Wait,
Complete
stop. Quibble. Okay. Eris, finish your point and then Prime go afterwards. Please don't interrupt her.
When so there was like this major attack on primarily leftist Jews and leftist Jews primarily leftist Jews, leftist Israelis, right? Because when you're talking about Israelis, they're most when you're talking about leftist Jews in Israel, obviously they're all Israelis. So I'm going to use it interchangeably in this situation. But they're always like they were making tons of allocations. One of the things that they were the one that pushed Ariel Sharon to leave the party and supported him in leaving the party of Likud in order to even make to pull out of Gaza and to make that peace allocation, right? There were a bunch of other instances. They were the ones that pushed, and it's a bunch of the people that actually got kidnapped were peace activists who were constantly trying to push for more people in Gaza because there's a huge unemployment rate in Gaza, and that's what leads to a lot of the radicalization that happens there, right? So they were pushing for more permits to go work there. This is not, you can keep rolling your eyes, but these are like real policies that were pushed for. And what ended up happening is leftist Israelis got completely humiliated on October 7th, because what happened with those Gazans that were given those work permits, okay, a huge portion of them were literally using it to gather intel, to take pictures, to gather intel about how many civilians and how many babies and how many women were in each village that they wanted to attack. And this is, you can look this up yourself. This is just like given evidence. I don't think this is so funny, you know?
All
I don't
right.
know, like I don't know, like why you're laughing at
Eris,
this.
let's let Prime reply.
Sure.
Prime, go ahead.
Thank you. Ignoring that, back to what I was actually responding to, the apartheid, right? The crime against humanity of apartheid is capable of being committed during an occupation that is governed by international humanitarian law. First Article 3 of the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination obligates states to prevent, prohibit, and eradicate all practices of this nature. Racial segregation and apartheid in territories under their jurisdiction. So
you are opinions of the law now.
Okay,
when you say position.
No, yeah, and the law,
Based.
and the law, as many different organizations have established, this falls under apartheid.
Okay.
And so,
when you
all I
say
was trying to say,
apartheid-
Quibble, and now Quibble's talking. What?
No, Quibble, don't. Let's not do this again, please. Try and go
Thank you.
there.
So when you say like you don't feel like this is apartheid, right? I don't care about how you feel whether it's apartheid or not. Well, what I'm saying is that there are actual practices that are mirrored in both. And if you don't think these are the same, I think what it means is that you're not familiar with South African apartheid. The mechanisms of control used against the Black population there are mirrored in the methods of control used against Palestinians. That's
I don't think that's true because there's Palestinians that are actually in government in Israel. There's like they have freedom. They're able to vote. They engage in democracy. Like
You're on the Supreme
it's
Court.
not. It's not like when you're talking about the mechanisms of control. They're not really as similar.
If you're saying so is the standard of like any crime, right? That the facts of the crime must be literally exactly the same, or it's
no, it's not that they have to be exactly the same. It's that when we use the word, that's what we're referring to.
Wait, I think hold
that's
on.
what we mean when we say apartheid. So
I think
if
we
we
talk
say
about
the word, That's what we're referring to.
I think when we're talking about apartheid, if we're being good faith, okay, I think generally when we talk about what we feel like apartheid is if you have a country and then that country has policies that are literally separating out racial groups in terms of the rights allotted to them, right? This is a horrible thing that all of us should be opposed to. I think the difference is that for Israel, these are occupied territories. The situation is quite a bit different. If this was a one-state thing and it was all one country and they were giving explicitly different rules for Arab Palestinians, I think all of us agree that would be horrible. I'm sure most people here would say, like, yeah, we can call that apartheid. But we're dealing with like a military occupation of military borders, armistice lines. It's a bit different, I think.
Well, let me ask you then,
hold on,
Dustin.
Like it's you think,
Prime,
but that's
please.
these
Prime,
organizations
Prime,
have-
Prime,
please.
let's let somebody
Prime.
else get in there as well.
Oh my God.
Oh, shut
So-
up, Quibble.
So
Yeah, what's up?
So I was going to ask you then. So with what you just said, let's assume Israel annexes all of the West Bank tomorrow, and everything else, all else equal, everything else stays the same. Would you call it apartheid then?
Absolutely.
So it's just
But I think
like
that's
the
probably why
practice.
Israel wouldn't want to annex. Like, if you gave Israel the opportunity, well, yeah, this is the one-state solution. If Israel had the opportunity to annex both territories, Israel wouldn't want to because they don't want to give equal rights to those people.
I just want to say,
Right.
so outside of all the dipshits on Twitter, that is generally the argument that people like advocates give when they call it apartheid. Is they're saying it's just like it might as well be because of how it functions. But yeah,
Yeah, because the issue is because the military. Because I think in the original definition of apartheid, I don't remember they're trying to cuck out to extend it more because they want to condemn Israel or whatever. But I think as part of the original chapter that talks about apartheid, it's the intent to have like an extended like racial separation. Like you're trying to establish something over a period of time, which is what South Africa is. What like 50 years or whatever?
Yeah.
Is what you're trying to do. Yeah. So for Israel, right? If we were in 1970, right, or 1975, and we call this apartheid, that's stupid. 1980, probably stupid. 1990, 2000, 2023, where we've had these armistice lines for like 50 years, 60 years. Well, now it starts to feel a lot different. I can understand why people are like, is this apartheid? It kind of feels like it. There's still military borders and it's an occupation, not official territory. But yeah, it gets a little bit murkier. But the problem with people like throwing it out as being apartheid, it's not. The problem isn't really the apartheid. The problem are the military borders and the lack of actual permanent borders. That's the real problem, right? Because if the actual states get set up, then the apartheid problem is simple. That's an easy problem to solve, right?
Well, that's I think the
So
big reason.
I wanna-
The big reason behind people going for the apartheid thing is they want to use it as a prerequisite for, like they did in South Africa, which is voting rights. Like they want a one state.
Yeah, but
So-
I
Yeah,
thought
I
Israel
understand
didn't
that. I
want
understand
to
that. Wait,
have
I understand
Gaza,
why they
For-
want to do
for a
that.
minute.
But the issue then is that people all over the world are doing this. Is they set up this issue as being an Israel versus Palestine issue when they talk about it being apartheid. But that's not the issue. It's not Israel versus Palestine. It's Israel versus the Arab world. That's the issue. And when you only frame it as Palestinian rights, you miss the entire point of like why this is such a conflict,
Destiny,
right?
you've appealed
So-
to the
Ray
UN many
Frame.
times.
That was a
good
in the
conversation.
right? You've appealed to the UN many times. When the UN says,
So I wanna-
I googled it and right
Okay.
there, the UN says that this is apartheid. Why do you disagree with that?
Because I think it's a stupid analysis of the situation. It's a military occupation. I wouldn't expect them to
Okay,
have
so
the same
so it's
rights.
how you feel, right? Not like whether like the UN, which you've appealed to many times before. It's just you feel that's not an apartheid, not that like it hasn't been adjudicated as such.
Are you
right?
capable of engaging with any
So-
of the rationalization I just gave, or are you just going to
So-
say like it feels and like that means my argument is
No,
incorrect?
you said that's
Hold on, wait, no,
You're
wait.
saying it's
I did not
European.
say. Hold on,
Well,
let me,
I
no,
asked
wait,
you what
I can
it
restate
is.
it. I can restate it. Yeah, I can restate it. I didn't say I feel like it's not apartheid. So it's not. What I said was apartheid is generally what I would imagine would be levied towards a state that is enforcing racially separate policies with people that live in their borders. That was the issue with South Africa. South Africa's not a military occupation. South Africa was black people had fundamentally different rights codified in law and enforced with the military. Tens of thousands of people died during apartheid, right? Political violence, as opposed to that. But the
Different
difference is
benches they were allowed to sit on.
the problem with Israel and Palestine isn't that it's apartheid. The problem is that it's a military occupation. If the military occupation ends, the apartheid issue goes away. But the apartheid issue will never be solved while it's a military occupation. So focusing on the apartheid part is stupid. That's what I'm saying.
So okay, yeah, all right, fine. But it's that you're saying it's in your opinion. All I'm saying.
Kill me. I'm going to kill myself.
Holy shit. Oh, you just said it was European, correct?
Oh my God.
Oh my God. It was European.
It's all over
Hold
me.
on.
I'm on the 20th floor. I'm going overboard right now. I'm
Why
leaving.
is he so? Why is he so mad?
Look, I just restated what you said. That's your opinion, correct? Right?
Nelson
Then
Mandela
fine.
even made the
Then I
comparison.
will say,
Listen,
just state
that's what
for
I
the
call a
record,
fallacious
for
appeal
the
to
audience,
authority, my
that
friend.
the UN says this is apartheid. The definition I gave you before,
They-
under international law, says that if it's under that
Yes,
territory,
I have
is
no
under
problem. Fine.
the
Yes, I
opposing
will say I think the
jurisdiction.
UN calling this apartheid is fucking retarded. I think it's a stupid thing for
Okay,
the UN to
agree.
do.
Real quick,
I think it moves,
I'm
and I
pretty
think
sure
yes,
we're
and I think
talking
it moves
about
all
one
of
UN.
all of us
We're
pride
talking
from the
about
idea.
one expert.
Okay, wait,
in
hold
the
on,
UN.
hold on, hold on, hold on,
One
hold on.
person
Pride,
at
we
the
I've been
only
trying to
appeal to
step
the
in for a
UN when
minute.
we agree with what they say. We only appeal to the UN when we agree with them.
Well, the UN,
Yes,
the
let
UN
me-
only convicted like 10% of the Nazi officials.
okay,
Okay, the
hold on.
UN's not right
So-
by everything.
So let me. I'm going to
They made the
step in.
partition
I'm
blind.
Head of
trying
the
to
Human
step in
Rights
here for a
Council
minute.
right now is a ram.
UN
Come on, we
giving
can all
us
agree that UN
statistics.
Yeah,
We have
is
one
incorrect.
human rights
So
expert
anyway,
from the
hold
UN.
on.
Right? Iran is
Hold
supposed
on,
to be on
hold
the
on.
Human Rights
So
Council.
anyways,
The UN, wait, this is a
hold
really
on.
short
No,
thing. I'm just gonna cut
Jesus
in and then I'm
fucking
gonna be done.
Christ.
The UN,
I've been
the
cutting
UN
it for like
making
10
a
minutes.
claim
No,
about
Quibbles.
an actual
Calm down.
statistic is
Quibbles, no,
different.
I'm
Sorry,
just
Jeff.
going to
More
talk
donuts.
now.
More donuts, Jeff.
It's like I'm
It's
just going to
what
say
the
this.
fuck?
Okay,
I'm just going to talk over.
Stop.
Such
One
a
and then the other.
mess.
One and then the other.
Both
Jesus
of you
fucking Christ.
stop.
Jesus.
Okay. Fabian hasn't spoken in a while. We'll let him
So
go
peaceful.
first.
All right. So, as I was trying to say, you guys are going to hate me for this, but it's important to point out. So, what has just happened in the last 15 to 20 minutes, and this is why it's really important, and I'm speaking mostly to the audience because I know all of you are going to hate me for this, but it's really important that you understand what you actually saw, because what you actually saw is the dialectic process taking place before you, right? What you actually saw is how leftism destroys these conversations, because aristocracy and quibbles over coffee are they're talking about two specific things. They're talking about a double standard where Israel is judged by this extreme standard that historically all of these other nations aren't, and trying to and Eris brings up this idea that like this is an established government that is a liberal democracy within the area. And so once she says liberal democracy, right, what the leftism speaking through Prime Kais sees that and goes, there is a way. I have this thesis, which is that there is this contradiction, right? There's this contradiction between some people saying apartheid and this idea that it's supposedly a democracy. And Eris tries to stop this, to say, hey, look, if you're going to be this nitpicky about it, about what is a liberal democracy in the region, not actually engage with the conversation, but instead try and subvert the conversation with language games, then like we could do the same thing about the US or any other country. And he forces the antithesis, this idea that actually it's an apartheid state. And what it does is destroys the quality of the conversation so that he can infect it with leftist philosophy instead of actually engaging with the arguments that are put forward before him. And that is why we are in this shit show right now.
Okay, Fabian,
because
that
of
was
the
great.
inability of these people.
That was a great spot to end. Quibbles, you wanted to say something. By the way, after Quibbles is done, then we're gonna, get to our closing remarks, and then we're gonna pick a winner. Because yes, there will be a winner for this show. Quibbles, go ahead.
Cool. Okay. The first thing that I wanted to say was very simple, which is when the UN gives us statistics, those are broadly statistics that can probably be trusted. That's different than when the UN tries to define terms, right? Those aren't the same thing. You can trust them in relationship to their facts and not agree with their opinions, right? Those are two different things. That's the first thing. The second part is I just want to like double down on a lot of what Fabian said there, which is that like, yeah, there is a double standard here. And it's weird that there's this constant conversation trying to parallel the acts of Israel, which is doing the thing that is, though obviously not perfect, a heck of a lot better than what any other country in the totality of the Middle East or Northern Africa has done to their Jews. The only reason this is still a conversation in 2023 is because they refuse to do what everyone else did. They refuse to do what everyone else did across the entirety of the Middle East, which is to create an ethno-state by forcing out everyone who wasn't part of their ethnicity, right? And that's why, to this day, 20% of people in Israel proper are Palestinian. That's why they have someone on the Supreme Court. That's why they're a democracy. That's why they were part of the governing majority up until the recent past, right? This is something that is fundamentally dissimilar to anywhere else in the entirety of the Middle East or Northern Africa. And so it's frustrating that undergirding all of this is the fact that Israel is being punished today because they refused in the past to do something that was as awful as other countries surrounding them did.
Thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of episode 17 of Kicker Key. Prior to ending, I'll give you all, 30 seconds or so to give closing remarks, starting with Dylan. Go ahead.
I didn't get to really say much of anything this show because of my internet connection. But what I will say is something I didn't get to say the whole time, which is I don't think I trust this Israeli government to engage in any type of offensive operation anywhere, especially if it extends into a long-term occupation. This is the Israeli government that failed to defend its own people in southern Israel. This is an Israeli government which built up the security apparatus for the last 12 years under Netanyahu, and it failed. This is the same Israeli government which ruined its relationship with its reservists and with its military through pushing through the judicial reforms. And I'm supposed to trust an Israeli government that its own people doesn't even trust to manage an occupation where it's clearly, to some extent, if you listen to Benny Gantz or you listen to Netanyahu or you listen to the officials close to him, are in somewhat engaged in a kind of post 9/11 bloodlust that many Americans might remember from the Howard Stern stream, which happened during 9/11 as it was going on. Which is a lot of anger, which is leading to loose terms of engagement, which is leading to going headfirst without a plan. The Israeli government still has yet to define exactly what it's going to do after it takes over the strip outside of eliminate Hamas, which is an international organization. Its leadership is in Qatar. How is it going to do that? That's my question.
All right. Thank you, Dylan, for that closing remark. Fabian, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Fabian Liberty. Check me out on Rumble and YouTube, Fabian Liberty. In many ways, I kind of sit in the center, and I still do after all of this. I think that there is massive propaganda. I think is the biggest takeaway we should take as a closing, and that we should all be very, very careful about what it is that we share, what it is that we believe, and how quickly we share stories. I think if there's any one thing we can think about from either side, right? I mean, I think the hospital story was an example of that I think a lot of people saw. The baby beheading story. We still don't have accurate information on many of these things, and I think we should recognize that as the world is shifting, as war is shifting from industrial era empires moving into the atomic age, but instead global hegemonic kind of structures that are based upon the reserve currency of the US dollar and oil and connections and networks, that we recognize that information warfare is at an all new height that never existed before and throughout the social media landscape. And so yeah, I get it. Talk. Fuck you, socialist. And so what I think is so I would say
30 seconds,
fact
not 30
check as
minutes.
much as possible.
30 guys, quick reminder again. I said 30 seconds, not 30 minutes. Okay, so Loner, closing remark. 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's been a bit wacky seeing a lot of Israeli politicians and right-wingers basically turn into Howard Stern after 9/11. It's been maybe less surprising seeing a lot of pro-Palestinian people turn into fucking bin Laden after 9/11. Ultimately, I think both groups obviously deserve peace and dignity and self-determination and human rights and all that shit. Hopefully after this, if Hamas really does get the fuck out, then there can be elections and Palestinians can be represented by a more unified, better leader. And maybe finally the Israeli government can actually decide what the fuck it wants, tell us what borders it wants, stop expanding settlements. Who knows?
There we go. Thank you for that closing remark. That was closer to 30 seconds. Prime. You could take 2 minutes. You could take 3 minutes, actually. I'll give you 5 minutes. Go ahead and give us your closing remark.
Thanks so much. Find me at twitch.tv or youtube.com. PrimeKai, PrimeCayes. Love to have you. I want to just extend, a thank you to the people who participated, even the ones on the other side. Thank you, Eris. Thank you, Quibbles. Right, even though I told you to go fuck yourself a few times. Thank you to my good friend Scott, who I deeply love, even though he said all those things about me. But shout out to all of you. I stand by what I said. I believe Israel is an apartheid state, and I would like a peaceful, equitable
the
way
voice of God approves.
ending this, but it's not going to end peacefully while the occupation is happening, and that's really unfortunate. Free Palestine from the river to the sea. Thank you.
Mamba.
Oh,
Quibbles. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm Quibbles. Whatever. The broader part that I want to talk about is a lot of this was sort of, I think, a conversation that was worthwhile and an interesting conversation, but wasn't necessarily contextualized from the perspective of where we're actually coming from. With the exception of Eris, I believe literally everyone else here is an American. And so I think that it's worth thinking about when we're talking about foreign policy, these kinds of issues from an American perspective.
What?
And so when I think about what America should be doing,
Karantos.
I would say
American
that,
Q.
you know, the first thing that I would say is like obviously the Iron Dome is exclusively defensive, and so we should be continuing to fund the Iron Dome, and we should probably extend more funding towards the Iron Dome. And the second thing that I would say is that, just as a reminder, the reason that Hamas did this entire attack to begin with on October 7th was because there was a concern about Saudi Arabia and Israel going to becoming more peaceful, and a broader power change away from Iran, who's their largest backer. And so when I think about that sort of backdrop of this, I think that it's really important that America stay resolute.
Yeah, he got me spelling defense like an
peace
American.
between Saudi Arabia and Israel. And so those two things I would say are the most important things from an American perspective.
Beautiful. Thank you for that closing remark. SDL. Go ahead, my man. Oh, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Is he deaf on my end too? Or
yeah, he's muted everywhere, I think.
Yeah, he's muted. I think his mic's muted or not plugged in or something.
SDL, you lost your privileges. It's over. It's over. Not gonna get it back. GG's. Oh wait, say something. Wait, he just had it. He just had it. Wait, he just had it. Yo, SDL, speak up again. It works. It works. Say something.
So I was going to read from the special reporter on apartheid to close out. They say, quote, in the Palestinian territory occupied by Israel since 1967, there is deeply discriminatory dual legal and political systems that privilege the 700,000 Israeli settlers living in the 300 illegal Israeli settlements in East Jerusalem and the West Bank, living in the same geographic space, but separated by walls, checkpoints, roads, and an entrenched military presence. There are more than 3 million Palestinians who are without rights, living under an oppressive rule of institutional discrimination and without a path to a genuine Palestinian state that the world has long promised is their right. That's why we call it apartheid, because de facto it is apartheid for 6 million Palestinians. For millions of people who now have, after Israel's bombardment of Gaza, been displaced. There are 1.4 million people displaced in Gaza. 700,000 of those are children. If you want to help them, you should donate to PCRF, the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund. You can find it, easily access it, and the aid goes directly to keeping children alive. Children in South Gaza are only drinking half a liter a day. Give money.
Beautiful. Thank you for that closing remark. Stardust. You've had plenty to say. I don't know if I should. I don't know if I should even give you a closing remark, honestly. But
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I came to join this panel because I was super interested. I messaged Karantos during. I was like, oh, I've been like covering this for like the past week. And he was like, yeah, just join. We're in our last round. But yeah, obviously things were heated, so I couldn't really get a whole lot in. I guess if I were gonna say a couple of things on this, I would say, my opinion is that no one has like a unique right to land purely because of their ethnic background or because of how long their ancestors have been there. Like we could, imagine if, you had immigrants in America, and sometimes you do have this, where people are, say like, oh, your ancestors didn't contribute to the society. Like, why should you be here? Why do you deserve the the results of the toils of our ancestors, so I don't think that I think basically whether your ancestors were existing on the land prior or not, everybody has a right to exist and to have a home as long as they don't infringe on other people's rights or their safety. Neither side in the conflict is completely guilt-free. I think Israel obviously needs to stop occupation. And I think ordering the evacuation of the Gazans
1,100 viewers, chat.
needed to
Absolutely
be better
insane.
coordinated. If you look at like a partition in India and the mass migration that followed because of that, that ended up in like millions of deaths, right? So I think that there could have been better coordination with the evacuation of northern Gaza. It would have taken, sorry. It would have taken longer, but it would have been worth it. But either way, I understand why Israel needs to get involved. There's no other choice in my opinion. They need to get involved. So.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for that take. Tom, go ahead and bless us with your closing statement.
Yeah, just super happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Wait, that's it? Oh my god, I love you, man. You're fucking amazing, bro. Yeah, hey, you hit me up later. I got you. Eris, please go ahead.
The first thing I want to say is I think Israel-Palestine, I'm hoping that the reason why it gets so much attention is not because of anti-Semitism, but is actually because it's a symbolic demonstration of a land back movement, which is right now a massive idea that's being perpetuated in universities and intellectual circles and like online on the left, and it's almost become mainstream now. And you have two populations that argue over whether or not who is more indigenous. They both have their own arguments. Whether or not you agree with them, I think is somewhat irrelevant because I land on where Stardust is. That I don't think it matters where your ancestors are from. I think we should admit that this land back ideology is racist, is dangerous, and directly led to the disgusting genocidal acts of Hamas on October 7th, which is being cheered on by mainstream leftist organizations. The largest university in Canada, mainstream university in Canada, all its student unions came out supporting the attacks on October 7th, right? This has been a regular issue throughout basically the entire West. To me, that is the much larger concern here. There is this very dangerous ideology that if you have had your land stolen in the past, that somehow that justifies what you do, this entire conversation started in the beginning with Prime making claims about who is a settler. And that type of language is dog whistle language. I consider it dog whistle language, and I think this is how we should start talking about it, because it is dangerous. And I'm telling you, to anyone here, okay, you are probably on stolen land, and it justifies your ethnic cleansing. It justifies your genocide, and it's something that we need to stamp out. That type of ideology. It's dangerous regardless. And this idea that Jews should be more scared of the right wing is something I categorically reject now after what happened on October 7th, because obviously tons of lefties have told me that that's exactly what decolonization looked like. So that's my largest concern. Also other than that, I hate the current Israeli government. Okay, it fucking sucks, and they have a huge part in play of why they let so many of their own people die on October 7th. But that's it.
Beautiful way to close your closing statement. Thank you very much. Is there a poll in chat, Steve, for the winner? Because we are selecting a winner.
There is indeed a poll. That's how we decide who wins, Israel or Palestine. World peace is being decided by this poll.
Plead your case, ladies and gentlemen. Plead your case.
I'd like to point out that I believe this panel has been an apartheid panel, as I was the only person that got bitched at for going over 30 seconds. All right.
No, Q was doing the whole like hurry up thing with his hands, so I felt the pressure too.
Yeah. But, I mean, I'm just saying, And I didn't get that special Jew treatment. It's fucked up.
Can I just throw in really quickly
they pay the most,
Muslims were colonizers for a good part of history as well.
Come on.
The term Palestine is an imperialist term, right?
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Who cares? I mean, the whole thing of this debate was Quibbles bringing up all these bad things the country has done in the past. Okay, are we here to condemn the actions of Iran in the 1950s? Or are we here to talk about something in 2020?
Iran just killed a kid who is 16 for not wearing.
Yeah, and that sucks. But is it possible to condemn multiple things at the same time? Am I living in a world where you can only oppose one country at a time? Come on.
No, you can oppose multiple ones, but there are standards that are not being held across the board.
Herodotus.
What's the double standard?
The double standard is that there's the double standard.
I think bitching about one specific quibble is silly.
So I'm saying that
one quibble that has 5.5 million people in apartheid.
America was part of it too.
That's not what I fucking said.
I'm not just saying that's Israel. Certainly not. There are many countries that have done this. So
the very fact that there are as many people as there are that live in the West Bank is because there hasn't been an ethnic cleansing, right? And so, yes, you're right. The number is much higher today of people.
What do you think an ethnic cleansing is? It's when you move people, not take down their numbers.
It's much larger.
The reason Gaza is would you make the same? Would you say that there wasn't
higher?
So
The reason that
Quibbles,
it's
you're
higher than
Would
Quibbles,
you say
you're
that-
wrong on one thing here.
is
I'm
because
so sorry.
they're
You're
doing something. They're doing
You
something
are-
that other countries aren't doing, which is to try to protect those civilians. And that's not something that is happening in Egypt. That is not something that happened in Iran or Iraq or Jordan or Lebanon or Ethiopia.
Protected
It
by
is
both
different.
Quibbles, Quibbles,
I
Quibbles.
just want to be
Wait,
clear
wait,
that this is not on Israel for that the fact that they didn't kill this population or they didn't completely kick them out. They did kick them out. This is established in
Yeah.
1948, right? This is established history, right? The reason why they still exist is not because, we can give credit to Israel for not bombing the shit out of them like tons of countries have done, sure. But the primary reason is that they have not been absorbed into other Arab countries, and they haven't been given their own country because of various reasons, from Israel to the UN to their own corruption within their own government, lots of tons of different reasons. So it's just, I don't want to give Israel
I'm
credit
specifically talking
for somehow. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
Quibbles,
saying,
Quibbles,
I'm saying,
Quibbles, I
I'm
need
talking
to
about the
Quibbles, I
West
need to
Bank
correct
here.
one thing. Ethnic
Yeah, go for it.
cleansing, it does include like forced deportation, forced population transfer
No,
to
I
different
agree.
regions.
If we're talking about 48,
That's all it is. That's
I
not what
agree
it.
with you.
Yeah.
If you're talking about 48, if you're talking about the Nakba, I agree with you. My point is that everything that is going on currently in the West Bank, though awful, is objectively less awful than simply forcing all of the Palestinians living there out of the West Bank and making it part of Israel
But that
proper,
doesn't make
which
it
is
good,
what
right?
precisely happened
right?
to the Jews across the rest of the Middle East.
But you agree that doesn't make
Yeah.
it good. So like we understand that there's levels to
I'm just-
awful. We get that though, right?
The
I
point
understand.
is that I think that it's
I agree with you,
frustrating.
Quibbles.
Right. I'm just frustrated there's not this equivalent like rage, and there's not a recognition that the reason that this is even a conversation today is because they did the right thing, or at least the comparatively better thing in the past compared to everywhere else in the rest of the Middle East.
Okay, hold on.
Wait, so
Stop.
you're
Listen,
frustrated
okay?
by
Wait,
fu-
hold on.
okay.
Wait. This is like the. Okay. I'm a huge Israel stan, but this is the worst argument ever, okay? This is like being in court confronted with a woman that I've raped 20 times and me saying, like, listen, the only reason why this bitch can accuse me of rape is because I didn't cut her throat, okay? Can you really be that mad at me? This is the wildest argument in the fucking world, okay?
It's not a matter.
Hold on.
It's not a
Israel doesn't get
defense.
credit for not genociding all the Arab Palestinians. You're never going to get credit for that.
I'm
So
not
those of
saying
you
they
want to get
deserve credit. I'm
okay,
saying,
okay, but
I'm
then
saying
saying
that
that, like, well, the only
condemnations
reason we
aren't
have to deal.
parallel.
The
No,
condemnation,
Stephen,
no one is
I'm not
condemning them for
asking
committing
for
genocide.
credit.
I'm just saying that, like, you can't. Israel doesn't get credit
I'm
for
not
not
asking for
genociding
credit.
the Arab Palestinians. You
The
are. You're saying like,
frustration
well,
that there's not a condemnation. I'm not asking for credit. I'm asking for condemnation. There's not a
What?
condemnation that is coming to the equivalent degree of all of the rest of the countries that did something significantly worse. And that
Okay,
lack
wait,
of
wait,
condemnation
wait,
years
wait,
ago-
wait. To be clear, hold on. There was a condemnation, okay? It was called World War II. We invaded Germany and we fucking destroyed them, okay? There was a condemnation of
No,
Japanese
we're
treatment.
not
There's
talking
the
about
Chinese.
Germany.
We
We're not
invaded.
talking about Poland.
I thought you were talking about the
Middle East, I'm
Holocaust,
talking about
right?
Ethiopia.
He's talking about the
No,
Jewish
no,
exodus
I'm
from the
talking about
Middle East
I'm
and
talking
North
about
Africa.
I'm talking about the exodus of Jews across all of the Middle East and also Northern Africa.
And that
Sure.
was
I'm talking
all.
about Egypt.
Yeah, but
I'm
everyone.
sure.
So,
I'm talking about
just a few things, Quibbles. First of all, everyone agrees that that was condemnable. Second of all, Palestinians didn't do that. Okay. So that's another thing. And also, you keep on saying you want to be.
I'm not saying that
You've been really frustrated this whole conversation about bad equivalencies. I mean, we can even go down that road because, as far as I know this from reading fucking Benny Morris, is that for the Nakba, they were mostly kicked out either because people came to their villages with fucking guns and said fuck off, or because they knew about massacres and other deportations were happening next to them. That's not equivalent to the Jewish exodus, which was people fleeing, people leaving because of persecution. Some people were forced out of the Middle East and North Africa. Most of them left voluntarily. So that's a bit, I can even say that's different, even though they're both
It's fair
deplorable.
to call that voluntary. I really don't think it's fair to call that voluntary.
It was
not the topic of the conversation.
It wasn't equivalent to the Nakba. That's all I'm saying.
It definitely wasn't, but I think that there are definitely different types of like groups of people we can talk about. For instance, like before 48, I'm pretty sure the majority of the Jewish people that were down there were fleeing from like the Russian Empire, and I think they were like blatantly doing like pogroms and like anti-Semitism was rampant pre-USSR.
I would say the same thing as well,
Yeah.
but I'm also just saying is like you've been. I normally wouldn't do this, but it's just because you've been really frustrated by people drawing equivalencies all the time. But you seem to be perfectly happy to act as if the Nakba and the Jewish exodus were like the same thing, basically.
I'm saying that
So
the
the
lack
Jews,
of condemnation is
post World War
listen.
II, post World War
Listen.
II, the Jews were in like refugee camps for like 4 years after that, and then
Yeah.
you know when some of them tried to return to their
Quibbles.
homes, they would get.
I think my
yeah, they would get
frustration.
Also, wait, real quick.
Quibbles. Hear me
Speaking
out.
of refugee camps, Loner Box, congratulations. You have won this episode
Holy
of Palestine
shit.
versus Israel. So all of those Palestinian kids, and I'm sure you're going to forward your $500 worth of gifted subs to from Kick, okay, are going to be so happy, okay? The children of Gaza are eating tonight. Thank you, Loner Box. I just wanted to close out officially, announce the winner so that Q can I know he's tired over there. He's probably got a lot of military operations he's preparing for tomorrow. Okay, I know you feel very strongly about this. I know that Hamas recruits from all over the world, so I want to give you an opportunity to.
The point.
Wait, hold on.
Let
Let me speak up for myself. Listen, I'm fucking sick as fuck. Okay, so I just showed up because listen, I got a job to do and I did it. Okay, at Loner, congratulations again.
Thanks.
I'm expecting 250. You know what I mean? But like for you, I'd give you a discount, like maybe 150. Yeah, it's okay. But guys, I appreciate all of you for coming on. I'm sure this conversation is gonna continue. So enjoy.
Yeah, the point that I was trying to make there,
Great.
the point that I was trying to make there is
hold
that I
on.
think that I think it's very like convenient often that we talk
Jesus.
about things from a particular like timeline. We talk about like the number of people that were here in 2024 or in 48 or in 67, whatever it might be. And one of the things that we often do that is very convenient is we make this conversation be about Israel-Palestine rather than being about the Middle East as a whole. If you look at the Middle East as a whole, the narrative of Jewish oppression of non-Jews is a ridiculous type of narrative to be making about the Middle East as a whole. And so it's frustrating that the conversation ends up being exclusively about Israel-Palestine and specifically about the West Bank and specifically about Area C and not about the religious sites in Area C or in Area A, of which there are many, and the Jewish access to those places are very,
Okay, we got the
very
point.
limited.
Loaderbucks, respond. We got it. Loaderbucks, go.
What's to that? Respond. Wait, you want me to respond to that?
Hold on. Wait, he did.
Okay, I'll just go back. I'll just say I think the reason I'll just say something relevant. I think the reason people get more incensed about 48 the Nakba than they do about the Jewish exodus is just because one of those refugee crises was solved, the other one wasn't. The Jews, they got airlifted the fuck out and they got citizenship in Israel. Palestinians don't. That's why people get fussy about the laws.
Israelis treated Jews better than the Arab nations.
Wait a minute.
Listen,
I agree.
I would not say
Listen.
that they were solved.
For the
I would not
love
say
of
that was
God,
solved.
listen.
These people lost their homes, right? They were in refugee camps for 4 years after the Holocaust. Okay, I wouldn't say that was like necessarily solved.
What do you think I mean when I say solved? What do you think I mean when I say solved, Stardust?
Wait, this is such a dumb argument. Stop, don't waste any time on it. Stop. It was solved. Nobody gives a fuck anymore. The Jews that moved to Israel are super happy. They live in God's chosen nation. They're killing everybody around them. They're fine, okay? It was solved. Next, go.
Listen.
The point is,
Quibbles,
the
no.
point is,
Quibble, for the love of God, Quibbles.
Jesus Christ, he's
Wait, let him wait.
Do not Jesus Christ me.
Lonerbox made a good point there that yes, the refugee crisis of the Jews across the rest of the Middle East was solved because Israel was willing to solve it. The difference is that Jordan and other places surrounding Lebanon as well, but particularly in the case of Jordan, they've made a very conscious decision in relationship to the West Bank not to allow those people, many of whom have been refugees literally for 40 plus years, to be able to integrate into Jordanian society, which is very materially different. They're doing that for a very conscious reason,
Listen to me.
which is
This
to
is
try
retarded.
to force those people to be able to return to Israel proper for demographic reasons in order to make sure that it is never a Jewish majority.
No, this is
and
retarded.
Similarly, in Gaza, they've chosen not to allow Gaza to join back.
God damn it.
He brings up a very good point that the Palestinians are used by powerful Arab nation states.
They're being used as a cudgel. It's different.
Yes.
It is different.
Listen. Shush. Quibbles. Shut the fuck up. Listen. The reason that we focus on Israel-Palestine is, yes, you are in part right because of the way that the Palestinians are used as a political bloc. The other reason is because Israel fucking matters. We go through all of this fucking like highbrow academic fucking like, well, actually it's like this, but most fucking, the reason that people pay attention to political actions is because of political fucking power, political fucking sway and relevancy. And Israel has a fuck ton of relevancy. And because Israel has a fuck ton of relevancy, because they're unique in the region, because they're allies with Western powers, that is why we look at them in a way that we don't really look at open slave markets in Libya. Why? Because Libya doesn't have any fucking relevancy to the political world stage, right? Or anything else.
Iran are not babies. They're not pathetic little like Syria Assad.
Okay? Saudi Arabia was a baby. Or that we don't talk about Saudi Arabia all the fucking time. You fucking retard. Whoa. You literally will just pick a fucking thing and then string it out into this giant thing instead of just listening to the fucking argument.
We just get into something that I find much more interesting. Does the panel think overall that Israel deserves to respond with military force because of the attacks on October 7th?
That's complicated. This is the thing I was trying to talk about earlier, and it's the
Yeah,
main
so
reason I
I'd be
didn't talk
interested
that
in
much this
what the
panel
response is.
is
Because
because the
I
internet.
agreed with you, Dylan, that I don't trust the
Wait,
Israeli
let Dylan.
government.
Wait,
and
hold
I-
on. Let Dylan answer. This is the
Put him on the
third
spot,
word. He
yeah.
said the whole thing.
Sorry.
Go. Okay.
So
Jesus.
I think one of the main reasons I haven't said that much is because a lot of this to me is almost like settled. It's like, why are we debating whether the British should have given the mandate to the Zionists? They got the mandate. It's gonna be that way. Nothing's gonna change. I can like sit here and we can debate that 80, 90-year-old history, but it's not gonna change. What we can change, hopefully, is whether or not the Israelis invade the Gaza Strip or not. I believe the Israelis have a right to have a military response. How that military response is conducted and exactly what that military response is where I'm going to have some differentiation than the Netanyahu government. I have yet to see the Israeli government really clearly lay out what exactly their goals and what are the standards of victory. And vague standards about just eliminating Hamas isn't going to cut it for me. Eliminating Hamas, how? Does that mean just removing Hamas from the Gaza Strip, from the tunnels? Does that mean going and trying to find their leadership in Qatar and overseas who would have been the people who actually planned this operation, killing them? Are they going to have an AUMF-style authorization for use of military force and be able to conduct strikes in any number of countries throughout the Middle East with no concern at all with their internationally defined borders and their sovereignty? What exactly is the Israeli government going to possibly drag the United States into if this turns into a regional war? Should we be providing them with artillery shells when I think their rules of engagement are quite loose and their military culture, to be quite blunt, is pretty sick, in my opinion, from how you see how Israeli soldiers have interacted with locals in the West Bank, with how they've interacted with locals at Palestinians with protests. I have been given no reason to trust an Israeli government that currently isn't even trusted by its own people. And we can see the polling changing. As more time separates October 7th to today, we see the amount of Israelis who are ready to go into the Gaza Strip shrink, with, at this point, the majority of Israelis from the last poll I saw that was published by Haaretz showed that the majority of Israelis wanted to hold off an invasion out of concern for the hostages. So I don't want to make the same mistake that we made after 9/11 and a bloodlust.
I think that there is a huge silver lining with this situation, and maybe this is just cope on my part, because of all the awful shit that happened. But there, as luck would have it, the biggest disaster in Israeli history happened during a right-wing government, and the entire right wing in Israel really relies off of two things: the religious argument, which is not what wins them, which makes them very successful, but the security one. The security one is something that works on a huge amount of Jews for very obvious reasons, and a very good reason to be concerned about that. So Israel's entire purpose for existence is to prevent another Holocaust. They completely failed on October 7th, and it wasn't just Hamas, right? It took 8 hours for the army to go. It takes 10 hours to go from the north to the south of Israel, the entire country. It took 8 hours for the army to just show up in some of the villages that were being harassed by Hamas. That's insane, right? And the reason why it took them that long was because they were up in the north, protecting settler. I'm going to call them settler terrorists, who were being violent and basically asking for trouble in the West Bank, instead of protecting actual Israel, Israelis in Israel proper. So I ask people to look at this situation with a little bit more nuance. I appreciate that you mentioned that tons of Israelis do not like the Israeli government. They are blaming a lot of the actions that were a lot of the decisions that were made by the Israeli government, and for the losses of what happened on October 7th. So Israel is as complex as a society as the United States is, and so it's very unfair to just suddenly throw. And this is something that Dylan, you are not doing this. I just want to be clear. I don't. But like there is this attitude where Israelis are all painted with like the settler label, and it's just so disingenuous, and it's so dangerous, because that type of ideology is what led and allowed people to celebrate and engage in the attacks on October 7th.
I don't think that critical theory in U.S. colleges is what motivates Hamas. I have some real. I do not think that the land back ideology is the key motivator of people joining Hamas in the $900 per person Gaza Strip. Like, come on, it's like they're fundamentally reactionary, religious, very far right. They are not at all drawing from the same strains as people in the U.S. left.
Do you think it explains the leftists who support Hamas?
No, the reason that
Really?
those portions of the left. Though those portions of the left support Hamas in part because of like the decolonization narrative, but the broader
Okay.
left supports
So
Palestine
you agree
and
that
has
the
for a
narrative
very
is being
long
used to
time.
justify genocide and tons of dangerous abuses of what happened on
So
October 7th.
if you like, just to give an idea of this, when you look at polling of say anti-Semitism in the United States, say the question, do Jews have too much power? It's 10% of people on the left, it's 50% of people on the US right.
That's
And
not the
left is way,
anti-Semitism.
way,
The
way
anti-Semitism.
smaller.
The anti-Semitism
When-
of the left
what
isn't.
frustrates me.
The anti-Semitism of the left isn't traditional like blood libel and Jews have too much power and all that. It's being so, in their minds, anti-colonial and land back and anti-America to the point that they will side with any opponent of America, even if it means religious fundamentalists who want to kill all the Jews. That's why you get people like Judith Butler saying Hezbollah and fucking Hamas can be considered like left wing, right?
This is like, so I'm obviously I can't prove this, but this is just a feeling I have. I feel like if a one state solution were set up, I feel like if through some amount of time, some amount of terrorist activities and some external pressure from Arab states that like mass pogroms or assassination or murders of Jews started happening within Israel, I feel like most leftists would either be quiet or they would celebrate in states in response to all of the oppression that had been previously experienced by Palestinians. I don't think that's much of a stretch to say.
Yeah, most leftists is completely absurd to say. Like the whole point is that like when you look at the anti-Semitic protests, they were routinely condemned by even stuff like DSA, which represents the overwhelming majority of the U.S. left. Like and the broader left, once you get
DSA celebrated it.
DSA
No, they didn't. The
National
They celebrated it. Yes, Connecticut DSA did. Connecticut DSA did.
Yeah,
Connecticut
DSA is
DSA
fucking
did.
insane.
And
And
but no,
what I'm
so I
trying to
think-
point
I
to,
think-
You just said that DSA didn't, but we just
Yeah,
demonstrated that they did. So
because
every day I
some
get messages
chapters
from
are
Jews,
morons, but
socialist Jews
national-
that have been
Oh my
ostracized
God.
from their own communities because of this. Like this is a severe issue
When
that
you-
the left has to deal with.
when you
Okay,
look at the
STL,
overall
I
left,
think-
the proportion of anti-Semitism
Hold
is
on,
extremely
STL.
small. What's
If
so
you-
frustrating here
when-
is
But
that
what you
we
found
talked
is
just
that-
earlier in this conversation about
when
how
people
Israel is
condemn
getting
the
into a
Libertarian
disastrous
Party
ground
for
war.
crazy shit
Stop,
that
stop.
New
Just
Hampshire
Quibbles,
let
let
me
him speak.
That's
Okay, you've
perfectly
spoken
valid.
for an hour
Quibbles,
over the
let him
past
speak.
conversation.
Okay,
When
go for
you
it.
look at what the right of the United States wants, they are calling for blood. Trump got up on stage and said that for every gallon of American blood, for every drop of American blood, we should spill a gallon of their blood. And he was saying that in support of Israel. He said we should support Israel 100%, 110%. He supported everything they did, said completely steadfast. You look through his C-SPAN
Do you know
shit,
anybody on the
he
right?
wants. You're here. The point more broadly is that Donald Trump,
Exactly.
possibly the
anarchist.
next president of the United States,
Fabian Liberty is really representative of the Republican Party.
the next president of the United States very possibly wants Gaza flattened. Okay, Lindsey Graham said that Gaza should be flattened. When you look at the response from the right, they want Israel to do something so insane that it might destroy Israel. When you talk about Israel having a risk of being destroyed, aristocracy, the right is the one that runs that risk. It's not
I don't know
decolonial
who you're
activists in the
talking
left.
to.
Like,
I don't know who you're talking to, though. No one on this panel is in support of Trump. There's literally not one of us.
And no one
let me-
here is
let me-
in
because
support
of
of, like,
threats
also-
of
bomb-bombing
anti-Semitism.
Jews.
Okay.
So I don't know
Threats
why-
of
I don't know-
anti-Semitism and
so
the threats
it-
to Israel come disproportionately from the right within Israel and within the United States. That's the argument.
Threats to Jews
Eris
and
brings
threats
up
to
this
Israel
word.
are not the same. It is not true that the majority of American threats to Israel are coming from the Republican Party. That doesn't mean that it's a defense writ large of the Republican Party. They do a lot of other things that are terrible, but it is not true that the
Listen,
majority of threats to the
listen.
country of Israel are coming from the right today in the United
Listen.
States.
Listen. This is a really important, thing that we have to understand. First, we need to understand that when we talk about the majority of opinions of any political group, we are not talking about philosophers or people that have policy positions. We are talking about people who have an opinion because other people in their in-group have the opinion. Okay, so when you talk about the right has an opinion, or lefties have an opinion, or this group has an opinion, more often than not, people believe something because everybody in their Twitter group, their little echo chamber, etc., believe a thing, and they kind of just go along. It is a much smaller percentage of people that actually investigate and attempt to have detailed ideas about a policy. That's the first thing. The second thing, right, is characterizing. So once we understand that, we have to understand, well, who are the thought leaders or the people that push a movement? You are correct in assessing that. I would say that it is more likely that there's a larger portion of right-wing people that have anti-Semitic views or anti-Israel views in some ways. The problem is that the right is in a very interesting place politically in the West currently, where you have surging populism, as you've stated, and then populism that is supplanting it. And so the as much as the left is fractured and has like socialists and communists and Marcusian neoliberals and and then just full-blown pro hardcore capitalist neoliberals all in the same category, they've kind of been in that state for the last 20 years, and it's the right that has kind of beginning to match the left state. So when you say Trump says this or Lindsey Graham says this, if you hang out with any right winger, most of these right wingers, almost all of them will be like, those fucking rhinos, they don't represent me. Fuck neocons. The majority of like politically engaged right wingers right now are isolationists. They want to be out of every single other fucking war because they want to secure the southern border because they're afraid of being like invaded by immigrants and think Israel's war should fuck off and we shouldn't be giving them money.
I disagree with you to some extent, Fabian. When we talk about politically engaged right wingers, we need to separate ourselves from the internet, which is where we hang out all the time, and the people who actually end up at the voting booth, the people who are going to the RNC local like central committee meetings that influence policy. The evangelicals,
I'm doing that too.
The evangelicals are the mega base of the Republican Party. They have more sway, they have more influence, they have more power, and in a lot of extent, they even have more money. And the evangelicals, by and large, support Donald Trump, who is trying to earn their support more over people like Mike Pence, Nikki Haley's, others who are trying to win their votes. Mike Pence has finally dropped out. He's trying to win them over by showing how much he can hammer those Palestinians and save God's chosen country, Israel. Yeah. And so while we can talk about the online sentiment, like around the Vivek Ramaswamy's who polls at 3%, around those types of people, yeah, it's isolationist. But when it comes to Israel, that's God's chosen country to the evangelicals, and they're going to support it come hell or high water.
And just to speak to that briefly, it's only just to speak to that briefly.
The ortho
Republican support for Israel. Republican support for Israel, something like 60%. For Palestinians, is like 5%. It is like it's completely in favor of supporting Israel.
Okay, so that's my
polling
point.
data about support Israel versus Palestine is very different than like.
When the support they want to offer to Israel is that they want the most bloodthirsty response you've ever seen, which puts Israel at more fucking risk.
That's not true. You're taking polling data to now say we want the most bloodthirsty response.
Okay, and can I read a quote from Donald fucking Trump?
The right supports Israel. So fucking sense.
Is there a single Republican in the House or Senate who doesn't want to send aid to Israel?
Thomas Massey, I guess. Yeah. Thomas Massey voted against the HR resolution.
I know that
was
like
literally just
14
condemning Hamas without condemning
I
Israel.
understand what Scott's trying to say, though. Like, just to say, take a poll and to say that like we support one side or another isn't a deep examination of their actual opinions there, right? And then when you say Trump said some outlandish thing, I think that
bitch will change his opinion in fucking 20 minutes.
I don't think he even fucking cares. Certainly, yeah. But still, I think.
But look at what he actually did. He moved the capital to Jerusalem, right? He cut off all aid to Palestinians.
Which is the capital of Israel.
Okay, he moved the capital to Jerusalem, which is one of the most inflammatory things to like a half dozen countries surrounding Israel.
It is the capital of Israel.
No. Stop. Quibbles, stop. Why? Why did he do that?
Because he wants to win the evangelical vote and he loves Israel.
Right. Why did he need the evangelical vote?
Because they make up 25% of the electorate and they all vote Republican. What is this question?
Right. So what you have to understand, right? What you're taking, the context you're taking out of him moving that is that he needed to capture a vote that he should have already had. And the reason he didn't have that vote is because he's a New York Democrat. Because Trump is more fucking liberal and less evangelical than almost all of the other fucking Republicans that have run for president.
He moved the embassy to Jerusalem because he's a liberal.
No, you're not.
He cut off all aid to Palestinians because he's a liberal.
Listen,
You're gonna
have to follow with me real quick, but it's real simple. Okay. He's a fucking narcissist, right? He doesn't hold any of his fucking opinions because they're real opinions.
It's not just Trump. It's literally every Republican. Can we stop making this about Trump? Lindsey Graham said flatten Gaza.
If you think every fucking Republican wants to flatten Gaza, like you're insane.
Lindsey Graham said it, and did a single Republican condemn him? Did a single Republican condemn him for that statement? Can you name one?
Can I name
No,
one? Like,
because they don't give a shit about saying that you should level Gaza. He was on Fox News. He was literally on the most important conservative channel in the.
Okay. Let me bridge the divide here. Number one, okay, I know the interview you're talking about. It's not just him though. Tom Cotton said they needed to quote unquote bounce the rubble. You can find any number of statements from different legislators in Congress and the Senate from the Republican Party saying crazy shit about Gaza. But it is true that probably not every single Republican, elected or otherwise, wants to do that. It is true though that if somebody in the Republican Party does say that they want to do that, they're going to have zero repercussions for it. And it's in the standards of the Republican Party, perfectly culturally fine.
Okay, the context.
Sorry,
of
I didn't. Hold on, I didn't. What did you say at the end?
I said that within the standards of the Republican Party, it is perfectly culturally acceptable to say what Lindsey Graham said about Gaza.
Yeah, that's true. About any place in the Middle East, honestly.
Santos is doing. What Santos is doing currently is also acceptable, right? Like literally lying on your resume is acceptable for the Republicans. The point is they don't condemn each other for any actions.
No, quibbles. They do, right? Like if
like Democrats don't fucking
say, like,
lie.
I am totally like pro-abortion or pro-choice. And I'm like pro-LGBT. I love the transes, right? You're gonna get
no. I don't have a Kick account to get my money.
So there is,
I have to make one though.
The Republican Party,
I guess I can
a policy
claim
window
the loaner
that
box
they're
kick.
allowed
I hope
to
they
play
don't send it to the wrong person.
Being cruel to Palestine
sign up now.
is certainly within that policy window.
I agree with you. There is certainly
and Trump stepped out of that window.
Problem in MAGA. That's definitely true. I don't understand why.
Trump is pro-choice.
It is so easy to say that there's an Islamophobia problem in the far right and even in the moderate-ish right. I don't know why it's so difficult to make a parallel statement about the issue of anti-Semitism.
Wonderbox is already taken.
Islamophobia is a silly word. You should all fear Islam. Like it's a fucking savage and barbaric religion. Fuck off.
Oh my God.
I do think among. Okay, sorry, I'll let you finish.
There's a difference between saying that that writ large, the problem of anti-Semitism, like the violent anti-Semitism of America, of Tree of Life, which I'm a member of, right? Like that's different than the anti-Semitism that we're talking about in the context of Israel-Palestine. There's like different type, like white supremacist anti-Semitism is not the same as like the far left anti-Semitism that we're articulating here.
I think that if you look at certain sections of the
treated
far
Bernie Sanders
left,
the exact same.
if you look at certain sections of the far left, like that one local DSA chapter, you can find anti-Semites, you can find people at certain rallies that are anti-Semitic. But when you look at the halls of Congress and you see what, for example, Ilhan Omar said about All About the Benjamins, she was dragged through the mud. There was questions within the Democratic Party of whether they should continue to stand with her and support her.
I agree.
And that was about a question around not a war, but around the influence of Israeli lobbying money in American politics.
Talking about AIPAC.
Now we're talking about American politicians saying to level an entire city, bounce the rubble. Certain American political commentators on the most popular news networks in the country saying, what's really the difference between like Palestinians and terrorists? The cultural standards in the United States and how we view Palestinians versus Israelis and what we're willing to accept when it comes to civilian casualties is absolutely different. An American in Congress can say, an American in Congress and a congressperson can say, flatten Gaza. If somebody said that on the other way, they would immediately be expelled from Congress.
This is not a conversation that's happening in America writ large. It's a conversation right now. Everyone here currently is on the left, with the exception of Fabian Liberty, who is, though not, left wing, certainly not MAGA by any stretch of the imagination.
This is a generational divide.
So the idea that we can't have a conversation about the anti-Semitism specifically in the left when we're talking to people who are on the left is crazy. Sure, you want me to shit on Lindsey Graham? I'll shit on Lindsey Graham for you. You want me to shit on Trump? I'll shit on Trump for you. But we should be able to talk about the actual topic that is actually affecting the people that we're talking about, which is the left.
I agree. We should be able to talk about that and in direct terms, right? Like there were some things that were set, and I'm sure you can give me like a whole list of examples since October 7th by those major groups that were anti-Semitic that we would disagree with. If you want to bring those up, that's fine, right? SDL was trying to make a separate point. Let's be clear. Like he was trying to talk about something like how. Like in response to that, how Republicans don't.
Right, he wants to virtue signal about how the Republicans are bad. I agree, Republicans are bad.
Okay,
cool.
Right, then we agree.
It's not just that they're bad. It's that the focus here has. So I can find you so many more fucking articles. There have been literally probably 200 articles. Introspection from the left. From the I'm saying introspection from the left.
To Republicans, I'd agree with you that what you're saying is valid.
Quibbles.
So
Go for it.
I can find like 200 articles
then just
about
30 years of
intra-left
history
introspection,
from
about
the
people in the
70s to
left saying,
2000s.
hey, maybe parts of the left are saying things which are anti-Semitic or which like validate anti-Semitic outcomes or something. And all of those, like there's so many, so there's so much fucking coverage of that. That's been brought up to the halls of fucking Congress. A person introduced a bill to Congress to censor, I think it was Rashida Tlaib, because she didn't like condemn Hamas strongly enough. There's been so much fucking coverage of that. But what frustrates me, and what I'm trying to bring up is the same with Dylan, is that there's a lot of coverage of like left anti-Semitism, and there's a lot of leftist people, including me, like in a lot of discussions I've had inside the DSA, hand-wringing and very mad about parts of the left that are anti-Semitic or verge on it. But the coverage in terms of what actually fucking matters is that one half of this country wants to lead Israel into like a crusade, which might like that might lead to some of the worst outcomes fucking possible for Israel.
Okay.
Even Obama said that.
I just want to say that the United States is particularly good. The United States is particularly good to Jews, right? So the so it's very much, if you want to like look from a global lens, Jews are not being treated that well by the left. Around the entire world. You look at what's going on in England, the leader of the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, right? His favorite book is written by an anti-Semite, and in that exact book, it has so many anti-Semitic, literally talking about Jewish financiers and parasites and how dangerous they are in the Jew power. That's his favorite book.
What book
and
is
that
that?
got spread around. There's a bunch of them. Here, I'll link you his page right now, Lonabox.
Well, it's worth thinking.
That's the mainstream leader, and this stuff is very mainstream in a lot of countries. I actually think the United States is the only one that's dealing with it properly.
Keir Starmer took power within Labour, and you know what he got on stage today is to say that a ceasefire is a bad outcome and Israel needs to fight more. Like the people you're talking about do not represent even the majority of like progressives or whatever. There are leftists, and there are lots of leftists who've made and promoted bad things. My point in all of this has been to try and say there's been so much introspection on that when the overwhelming threat is from the far right and from the mainstream right in the United States.
Estiel, do you think that the only conversation that can ever happen is a conversation where we condemn Republicans? Can we ever have any conversation that is among left-wingers when we're talking to left-wingers?
The reason I brought this up is that the literal reason I brought this up is that Eris said that the ideology of land back is what inspired Hamas. And I'm trying to say, I think there's a really big disjunct between the types of bad ideology on the left.
I said it's part of what justified Hamas's actions.
I love you very much.